I said you better watch what you're doing, 'cause I ain't gonna stop when I'm moving. I'm headed to the top, I'ma do it. I'm headed to the top, I'ma prove it. And I could go all night, I'm sick of being nothing. All right, I'm gonna be something. I'll fight with every breath, trust me. I'ma be the one at the top, you can't touch me. I bleed with every word coming. I would rather die than be someone who's nothing. I'm the type of dude who will not remain nameless. I'm the type of dude who is headed for greatness. I'm the type of dude who could really make changes, 'cause I'm the type of dude that's becoming contagious. I'm the type of dude that will always be ageless. I'm the type of dude that will always feel shameless. I'm the type of dude that they say is fucking heinous, 'cause I'm the type of dude that you know is fucking dangerous.
You are absolutely right. The way he went about it was absolutely wrong. Like, so, like I said, I'm not
of my Jewish hatred that actually goes. Other than the fact that why are y'all popping out of the sewers in New York City?
Annunciation Catholic Church. You couldn't have called it pronounced Catholic Church?
Yeah, pronounce the Catholic.
Know it. You guys tried to detain your own person. Yeah, that's probably because you have the reading level of a fucking 8th grader, my dude. Come on. You like fucking think this is gonna stay running the fucking planet, bro? It's not gonna fucking go anywhere. This idiot isn't gonna learn. Listen, working for the fucking government? Like, you think that this is gonna save you? Save me how? From everything that's going on in this world?
Whether you work for the government.
Hey, do you know that you have to work for ICE? Man who is out there racially profiling other people. That's fucking sick. In fucking Germany that I gotta carry my fucking passport with me? Are you guys gonna make me wear a fucking star like my ancestors? I'm fucking Jewish and Latin American, and I have to deal with this shit. My ancestors were fucking murdered by Nazis, and now you guys are back doing it all over again. Fuck you! Fuck you! You know, I hope you
That's a crazy comparison.
You're a Nazi!
Read a fucking book.
You're fucking Gestapo!
Hey!
What did you just say? I can't hear you.
I said, no, the street.
Say it louder.
Can't take you. Founded laws on immigration. Like, it's simple. Like, that's it. Like, we can't argue that.
History of immigration.
We do.
Both.
We do.
But again, I don't think you know all of the history of the immigration.
Because our country
and what's
doesn't
happened.
It's not about the history, it's about the laws. It's not about the history, it's about the laws. We are here to enforce
When you go and detain people, show us everyone the judicial warrant, and then we'll be like, okay,
Yeah.
show us an official,
the
legit judicial warrant, and then go ahead.
Absolutely go in if
But
you have the
don't fucking take people out of their houses for no fucking reason and fucking beat them up.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear.
Yeah, because you have stupid ass face mask on, that's why.
But you said
Wait. I want you all to understand you are already in a civil war. Here you saw a Jewish white woman screaming at a black man how he is a Nazi because he's killing her people. Are we killing Jews now? Did I not get any kind of, did I miss something? What the fuck just happened? Number one. Number two, you also got another fat ass fucking white woman yelling at a black man how they're racial profiling. God damn. Holy shit. We've come full circle with the retardation. White people yelling at black people about how it's racist for black people to be doing their job. Like, where the fuck are we at in society, ladies and gentlemen? Holy fucking shit. Where the fuck are we at in society where you can tell a black man that he's racial profiling other brown people and he's a Nazi? Somehow killing Jews, apparently. What the actual fuck are we at war with? Again, there needs to be another term for the word retardation. There has to be something stronger because it's just missing that kick, isn't it? But, ladies and gentlemen, it is just me today. Okay, we're doing the hearings and everything like this. Davey's working. It is just me. I was supposed to go out of town, miss Monday because I was coming back. Long story, not going to get into it. But what I will say, I got some time to spend today, or this week. And all you southern states out there, from Texas to Carolina, bitch, get ready. We got a massive fucking snowstorm coming through. This may get ugly. Holy shit, we looking at single-digit temperatures for a couple of days in my area. I mean, we went through this last year, but nothing like what they're saying. We're supposed to have a big-ass snowstorm roll through. Y'all get ready. Get you some food. Make sure you're warm. You lose power, make sure you have candles, flashlights, batteries, everything you need, and definitely stay warm. Holy shit, guys. This is going to get wild. But not as wild as a hearing we're about to go through. I guarantee you, this is actually live going on right now. It's like we're going to catch up. We'll speed it up a little bit here. We're going to catch up. It's been going for like roughly around 15, 20 minutes now. But we'll catch up into it, and once it slows down, we'll be live with the committee at that point in time. But how we going? We got Stacy in the house here. Stacy with the donos says, hope y'all are well. This world is nuts. Miss y'all. Well, we miss you too. We're glad to see you again. But yeah, it is incredibly insane out there. And we just got started. Imagine that. Holy shit. But yeah, we got Stacy and Jeno Spuds in the house on the YouTube side. Janine Shire. And Rumble ain't saying nothing so far, but then again, this is the little members only kind of portion for this, so I don't expect a lot going on in the chat, especially with Rob and everybody else live right now. It is what it is. I'm going to do this. I'm going to try and keep my cool as much as I can. All right, because we're talking about people's money on this, right? We're talking about your money, my money, our taxpayer money. We've all seen the fraud going on. We know it's everywhere. We just don't know how deep the rot goes. I'm going to make a prediction with you, and it's going to be 100% guaranteed. Dems will talk about anything but. They will scream Orange Man. And I guarantee you're going to hear some, oh, this is racist to try this because black people are pathetic. We're going to be hearing a lot of that too. So, I'll be watching chat. I'll be looking around. I'll be listening. But I'm going to play a game in the background just to kind of keep my emotions on this in check a little bit. Just letting you know off the bat. Because I feel like I'm fit to be tied already. And I haven't even heard anything but this hearing on, what is it? Addressing fraud and the theft of taxpayer dollars. That's all I heard, and I paused. Let's have some fun, guys. I don't know how much fun this is gonna be, but... And yes, I do have the chats up there on the screen because, I'm alone. This is a hearing. You can hear it. You don't have to watch. There's not a lot of visual things that happen in hearings, so there you go. Oh, I see the line on the YouTube side. I gotta cut that down a little bit, but let's go.
Today's hearing, and I mean everybody who's in here and everybody who will come in here is welcome to come in here and participate and watch and participate orderly. But our hearing is on fraud and theft of taxpayer dollars. I now recognize the gentlewoman from Florida, Ms. Lee, to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you. I now recognize myself for an opening statement. Today's hearing will examine the widespread and outrageous amount of fraud taking place in and around Minneapolis, Minnesota. Minnesota has lost billions of dollars in state-administered and federally funded programs due to organized fraud. Fraud networks operating in Minnesota dating back more than a decade have submitted over $9 billion. That's $1 billion with B in false claims. Some high-profile cases in Minnesota include organizations and programs such as Feeding Our Future, Early Intensive Developmental and Behavioral Intervention, Housing Stabilization Services,
43. When makes it feel like it's 36?
Now we're going to watch a video.
but we're in almost the hottest time of the day. It's not even going to get up to about, what, 50 degrees in my area?
It's welfare fraud. It's all about the daycare.
They estimate as much as $100 million a year is being stolen by shady daycare center operators.
So how much money are we talking about stolen from the
Oh,
American
yeah, that's
taxpayer?
right. Stacey's in Alabama, too.
Ripping off state-run programs intended to feed low-income kids, house the disabled, and provide services to autistic children.
Where are the children at? Do you know where the children are at? Where are the children at in these daycare centers?
I don't care.
Are there children here today?
No.
No children?
Yes.
So this is Quality Leering Center. Hello, we'd like to ask where the money's going.
Attorney General Keith Ellison was focused on one thing and one thing only, and that was keeping these folks in business.
When do you think Governor Walz knew about this fraud?
From the very beginning.
What happened here in Minnesota that allowed this fraud to materialize?
The people at the highest levels of responsibility in the government of the state of Minnesota looked the other way.
Fraud within these programs have involved false claims, fictitious providers, and services not rendered, highlighting the need for stronger verification, monitoring, and enforcement to protect taxpayer funds. These fraudulent actions have robbed taxpayer funds intended to feed children, support individuals with autism, provide housing for low-income and disabled Americans, and deliver health care to Medicaid recipients. Since 2021, the DOJ has charged 98 defendants in Minnesota-based fraud cases, 85 of whom are of Somali descent. Of the 98 defendants, 64 have been convicted. DOJ has now undertaken extensive investigative action, which includes issuing over 1,750 subpoenas, executing more than 130 search warrants, and conducting more than 1,000 witness interviews. Since the start of the Trump administration, the federal response to fraud in Minnesota has intensified, following a series of high-profile cases involving state-administered, federally funded programs. One of the initial instances of high-profile fraud in the state involved the nonprofit Feeding Our Future, which was at the center of a $250 million COVID-19 related fraud scheme. As part of the scheme, fraudsters exploited Department of Agriculture, USDA food programs designed to provide meals for children. Federal prosecutors ultimately convicted 57 defendants and described the scheme as the nation's largest COVID-era fraud. The issue gained renewed national attention in late December 2025 following a widely shared YouTube video posted by one of our witnesses, Mr. Nick Shirley. Mr. Shirley's work highlighted suspected fraud in Minnesota child care programs.
Nick Shirley is there?
His reporting prompted federal authorities to intensify investigations, expand oversight, and coordinate multi-agency enforcement efforts.
All right.
A week ago today, Mr. Shirley released a second video that documented alleged fraud in the transportation industry intended to provide rides for children, the disabled, and the elderly. Mr. Shirley uncovered companies with questionable addresses and vehicles intended to transport children, the disabled, and the elderly that remained idle for extended periods of time. We look forward to hearing from Mr. Shirley about what he was able to uncover. But how did we get here? Hopefully another witness, Scott Dexter, a former fraud investigator for the Minnesota Department of Human Services, can shed some light on that for us. And I'd be remiss if I didn't point out that this massive wave of fraudulent activity didn't just have the consequence of ripping off taxpayers. It has drastically impacted legitimate organizations that are truly helping their neighbors.
Oh, shit.
Jennifer Larson is here today to share her story about how this massive fraud has crippled her organization
I just saw
that
that.
serves autistic children. We'd like to think that these fraudsters will one day face justice, but it appears that is not always the case.
There we go.
For example, Yasmin Ali, a daycare and home health care owner charged with stealing millions from Minnesota taxpayers, after being granted bail, disappeared before a trial and has not been located since. That was more than a decade ago. The tentacles of this fraud ring are widespread and include crimes other than fraud. For example, the aforementioned Yasmin Ali. Her brother, Adaris Abdullah Ali, pleaded guilty in 2009 to lying to a federal grand jury about his knowledge of a group of young Somali men in Minneapolis who traveled to Somalia to fight with al-Shabaab, a foreign terrorist organization against the transitional federal government of Somalia. We can also consider the fact that at least $700 million in U.S. cash transported via passenger luggage through Minneapolis-St. Paul International Airport. The incidents are all currently under federal investigation, with the majority carried by couriers traveling to Somalia, other African nations, and the Middle East. While no definitive links to funding terrorism have been established yet, we know that hundreds of millions of dollars in cash are being transported to areas where foreign terrorist organizations are active. What could possibly go wrong? A whistleblower has alleged that TSA personnel at MSP, Minneapolis-St. Paul International Airport, repeatedly identified and flagged routine encounters with Somali men carrying large suitcases filled with bundled cash, often exceeding $1 million. During an interview, a former TSA agent at MSP from 2016 to 2021, now a whistleblower, Liz Jackson, noted that she saw, quote, suitcases packed with millions of dollars in cash moving through MSP again and again, carried by the same type of couriers, which raised questions that she feels law enforcement and political leaders still haven't answered, close quote. Jackson further explained her repeated encounters with Somali men carrying suitcases packed with cash, and in one case, a bag filled with new passports. According to Jackson, the volume, consistency, and profile of the transactions she witnessed were well beyond ordinary or everyday behavior. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent has noted that the department is currently investigating where Minnesota's taxpayer dollars are being placed. Additional reports show that Somali individuals in the United States send roughly $215 million abroad each year. On January 9th, Secretary Bessent indicated that the Treasury Department's Financial Crimes Enforcement Network, FinCEN, informed 4 money transfer organizations that they're under investigation for their roles in the fraud scheme involving the theft of funds from social services in Minnesota. He also indicated that some banks in Minnesota are being investigated by the Internal Revenue Service's Civil Enforcement Division for allegations related to money laundering. As you can see, there's much to unpack surrounding these numerous fraud schemes taking place in and around Minneapolis, Minnesota. I would be remiss if I didn't suggest and urge additional investigation throughout this entire country. I know that in my home state of Arizona, our Democrat Attorney General came in to office and quickly said that there had been $2.5 million in fraud just in the Medicaid program alone. And in recent studies released over the last year in Arizona, it's been suggested that as much as $7.2 billion in fraud annually take place in Arizona's similar programs. So this is not just a Minnesota issue, but it just happens to be at the forefront of why we're here today. I look forward to today's hearing, and I thank the members and witnesses for taking part. Now yield back and recognize the ranking member, Ms. McBath, for her opening statement.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you for convening this hearing this morning to talk about the harm
the
that
fucking
fraud
ranking
can cause.
member
And
of
thank you
this?
for everyone that is here this morning to testify. It's so necessary that we continue to investigate and prosecute
I guess
all
you just
forms
don't
of
have
fraud,
any
including
real
government fraud,
superstars, so
which can turn many into victims. That is because a person committing fraud against a government program steals from all of us as taxpayers and abuses the initial purpose of these programs. They harm the organizations that need these programs to operate, and most importantly, they harm the people that the program is designed to help. Whether we're talking about a program that feeds school children, helps seniors find housing, helps people overcome addiction, or provide services to address disabilities, it is critical that the dollars that we invest in these programs actually serve the purposes that we have in mind when we, the lawmakers, created them.
Yes.
That's why the Department of Justice has always combated fraud, including prosecuting dozens of people for perpetrating fraudulent schemes in Minnesota in 2021 and under the Biden administration. But prosecutions are not enough to combat or prevent fraud. So the Biden administration also established a COVID-19 fraud enforcement task force and increased oversight of programs that were being targeted by fraudsters. Minnesota lawmakers have also taken steps to reduce fraud in their state, strengthening the state's ability to stop potential fraud sooner and improving investigations to hold those scammers accountable. But President Trump has taken a very different approach to fraud just last week. Trump added quite a few fraudsters to his growing list of people that he has pardoned, not because they are deserving a second chance, but because they hired his friends, back-channeled a donation, or served his political purposes. He has pardoned many people charged or convicted of fraud and other financial crimes, wiping away more than $1 billion in money that would otherwise have gone to victims of crime. President Trump has also fired inspectors general, instructed his DOJ to stop enforcing bribery statutes, and gutted the offices that investigate white-collar crime.
So
That is
opening
how we know
statement,
this hearing
Orange
is
Man
not
bad.
really about fraud. It is about trust. The Trump administration does not want you to trust these programs because if you don't trust them, they're easier to destroy them. They do not want you
Good.
to trust entire communities because if you don't trust them,
$9
they're
billion
easier to
in the
intimidate.
fucking
But
of
we
my
cannot let
taxpayer
that
money has gone to
We will
just
continue
people
to fight for
just
robust and
because they
responsible
exist.
oversight and
Fuck you,
for the
ho.
continuation of initiatives that make all of our communities safer, healthier, and more resilient. Across the country, there are daycares, schools, hospitals, treatment centers, research facilities, nursing homes, fire departments, police departments, airports, and more that all depend on state or federal funding, not just to
She
help
has
those in
dark
need, but to
roots.
serve every single one of us. If President Trump succeeds in an attempt to freeze child care funding
Yeah, it is
across
cultural
5
appropriation.
states,
She's not
which is
Irish.
temporarily blocked by a court order, the effects would ripple across families and businesses throughout our economy. It would affect
I mean,
more
she
than
does look like a
500,000
bulldog's
children.
asshole, but she's not
These are
Irish.
children that are not just within the state of Minnesota, but 500,000 children, their parents, the businesses and organizations where those parents work, and the many people who depend on those businesses to fulfill needs in those communities. That's the fallout from just one program, addressing one need across only 5 states. If President Trump continues this assault on critical programs, the harms could be far greater. These latest attacks come on top of the cuts that President Trump and congressional Republicans already forced through, which are taking health care from 10 million Americans and reducing food assistance to over 40 million Americans, including many, many children. We don't
that
have to
don't
choose
belong
between
here
programs
and
that
shouldn't
are
be getting
susceptible
that
to
food
fraud
assistance.
and nothing at all.
Jesus
With proper
fucking Christ,
oversight,
they're eating
we
steaks
can
and
make
my
sure
ass
that
is barely
every
fucking
American
being
is
able to
fed,
feed
that
myself.
everyone can access
What the fuck are
housing
you
and medical
talking about?
treatment, and that our daycares and our schools can keep guiding our children towards a better future. I look forward to hearing more today about how we can achieve this goal. I thank our witnesses for being here, and I yield.
Gentlelady yields back. I now recognize the chairman of the full committee, Mr. Jordan. No, I don't recognize him right now, but I will recognize the ranking member of the full committee, Mr. Raskin, for his opening statement.
Thank you kindly, Mr. Chairman. Thank you to all of our witnesses for joining us.
Yes.
In a just world, the Judiciary Committee today would be investigating why
Is
a
that
masked
money
ICE
you're
agent
cutting?
shot 3 times in cold blood
Is the
and
money
killed
that
an
should be
unarmed
going
citizen,
to actual
a 37-year-old mom,
And
Renee
she's like,
Nicole
oh my
Good.
God, you
We'd be
can't take it
investigating
from
why
them and give
Trump's
it to
DOJ
you.
is harassing
That's
and
horrible.
investigating Renee's wife instead of investigating her killer. We'd be asking why ICE agents are
She
trained
said,
in basic
"Drive,
CPR,
baby,
but 911
drive, you
tapes
faggot."
have shown none of the agents performing CPR on Ms. Good. They left her bleeding alone in her car for almost 3 minutes and definitively rejected the help of a man who came forward and identified himself as a doctor. We'd be investigating why in another Minnesota case, ICE agents deployed tear gas under the car of a family of 8 people, including a 6-month-old, a 2-year-old,
So because a
and 2
motherfucker
kids
says
with
I'm a
severe
doctor,
asthma.
he should be
We're
able
just
to
trying to
just
get
mess
home
around
from a
with the scene
basketball
then,
game.
right?
The baby
So
stopped
shut the
breathing,
fuck up,
and his mom
Raskin.
had to administer CPR as they desperately waited for medical help to arrive. But our colleagues want to talk about fraud in Minnesota, fraud that was already being investigated and prosecuted under the last administration. It is true that
That has
social
been going
services
on
fraud,
for a fucking
serious fraud
decade.
occurred in Minnesota.
And you did
That's
nothing
why under
about it
President
even when you
Biden,
were
the Department of
investigating
Justice
it.
opened multiple criminal investigations that to date have already resulted in more than 90 people being charged and 64 people being convicted of federal
Out of
criminal
thousands.
offenses. Indeed, Minnesota lawmakers acted to root out and prevent fraud going forward in the public benefits program. That's why last year, the Minnesota legislature passed legislation to empower the governor to cut off payments or to claw back funds whenever fraud is detected. And that's why Governor Walz appointed the first ever director of program integrity to make sure the state is effectively investigating and preventing fraud and corruption in their programs. The fraud in Minnesota was discovered not by a right-wing social media influencer who's been harassing people in communities all over Minnesota in recent weeks, but by the hard work of real local investigative journalists, brave whistleblowers, and state and federal auditors. It is this fraud, which we must take seriously, is not unlike the $2.5 billion
I hope
breathtaking
Shirley
Medicare
grows some
fraud
fucking
scheme
balls in this and
uncovered
says
last
something.
year in the home state of the chairman of the subcommittee, as he
I
himself
hope he
mentioned.
does.
Or the massive COVID-19 unemployment assistance fraud scheme uncovered in Chairman Jordan's home state of Ohio. Fraud is endemic in government all over the world. There are fraudsters attacking our public institutions, trying to undermine them and rip them off. Even our president has been convicted of 34 counts of criminal fraud by a jury of his peers in New York related to the fraudulent payments made to porn star Stormy Daniels, and also civilly convicted in New York for different kinds of real estate fraud.
Fucking work.
Fraud is not headquartered in one
that
state
didn't work.
or one municipality, much less one ethnic, racial, or religious community. But President Trump couldn't resist the temptation to use fraud in Minnesota as an occasion to mobilize the power of the federal government to bully and intimidate first and second generation Somali Americans who live in that state. Many of the people convicted in the fraud schemes were of Somali ancestry. So, under the pretext of cracking down on a fraud that had already been discovered, investigated, and prosecuted, Trump surged federal immigration officers to Minnesota and aided them at the Somali American communities, calling the people who live there repeatedly garbage. This is despite the fact that it is a complete non sequitur, obviously, to send immigration agents to conduct fraud investigations. And the deployment of law enforcement resources against an entire ethnic community after the criminal prosecution of a small group of its members is to promote the sinister ideas of collective guilt and guilt by association, two doctrines that are emphatically rejected in Anglo-American jurisprudence and by our courts. The community targeted in Minneapolis is made up, incidentally, overwhelmingly of U.S. citizens. What the fuck? That's 95% of Somalis in Minnesota are U.S. citizens, including 58% of whom were born in the United States. Well, what is the Trump administration's actual record on fraud? Well, let's see. President Trump pardoned the big-time drug dealer and convicted fraudster Juan Orlando Hernandez, the former president of Honduras, sparing him a 45-year criminal sentence. after he brought in 400 tons of cocaine into our country. That's 800,000 pounds of cocaine that he said, quote, we are going to stuff up the nostrils of the gringos. And Trump pardoned him. And if you're interested in that particular sweetheart deal, that would be a great subject for a hearing, Mr. Chairman. Just last week, again, the president granted pardons to more convicted fraudsters. Julio Herrera Vellatini was scheduled to be sentenced this month for participation in a political corruption and fraud scheme alongside his co-defendant, the former governor of Puerto Rico, Wanda Vasquez. In late 2024, when Mr. Herrera was facing felony bribery charges in a different case, his daughter donated $2.5 million to the MAGA Inc. Super PAC. Then in May 2025, Mr. Herrera's lawyer, who had served on President Trump's legal team, negotiated a deal allowing him to plead guilty to a trivial misdemeanor offense instead. Several months later, Mr. Herrera's daughter donated another $1 million to MAGA Inc. And what do you know? President Trump generously granted Mr. Herrera a full and unconditional pardon just last week. They're making a fraud out of the pardon process in America with pay-to-play rules as they pardon recidivist, hardened, unrepentant fraudsters. Well, indeed, in total, President Trump has pardoned more than 1,600 people, depriving victims, survivors, and taxpayers of an estimated, check this out, $1.55 billion in restitution and fines owed to us,
Orange Man.
the American people, while shockingly, because other presidents didn't do this, but Trump did, while shockingly allowing corporate fraudsters and tax cheats to keep all of their ill-gotten gains. This is a massive and unprecedented swindle from working class people and crime victims as the administration gives all of these ill-gotten gains right back to the criminal fraudsters who stole the money in the first place. And finally, Mr. Chairman, President Trump has dismantled the infrastructure that actually prosecutes white-collar crime and fraud in America, actually roots out waste, fraud, and abuse. The Trump DOJ gutted the public integrity section at DOJ that prosecutes government officials who break the law. And nearly a year ago, his DOJ suspended enforcement of the Foreign Corrupt Practices Act, which prohibits foreign bribery, saying all bets are off. He's gutted the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, which is the first and the only agency devoted solely at the federal level to protect American consumers against being cheated by big financial corporations.
By
the CFPB
letting them
delivered
cheat you,
$21 billion back to more than 200 million Americans who were victims of fraud and other predatory business practices. And the administration has been gutting the CFPB because they are on the side of corporate fraud and white-collar crime. That's the truth of what's going on there. They fired 17 inspectors general, the independent government watchdogs, whose job it is actually to root out waste, fraud, abuse, and corruption, and left 28 IG offices without Senate-confirmed leadership at all, allowing the corruption and the fraud to run rampant. So if we're going to have a hearing about fraud in America, Mr. Chairman, let's do it. Let's take in the full scope of what's taking place in our country. I yield back to you.
Gentleman yields back, and I recognize the chairman of the entire committee, Mr. Jordan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll be brief. I want to thank our witnesses for being here. Estimates are potentially as high as $9 billion we're looking at here in what appears to be a decade-long scam, fraud.
They get to get away with it.
One program I talked about a couple weeks ago in an oversight hearing was this Feeding Our Future program, where taking federal Americans' hard-earned tax dollars, taking that money and supposedly providing meals to children. Problem was there were no meals and no kids. They're just stuffing it in their pockets. So I think this is a great hearing to have. We appreciate the witnesses and the work that they've done. Ms. Larson, the work she does, and actually making a difference, doing a legitimate program.
They get to do whatever the fuck they want because they're the ones that should
with that, I would yield back and look forward to hearing from our witnesses and the hearing itself.
Fucking screen.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I recognize myself for just some UCs. The first one is President Joe Biden commutes sentences for two of Chicago area's most notorious fraudsters. North Dakota judge blasts Biden for setting fraudsters free. Biden commutes roughly 1,500 sentences, pardons 39 in biggest single-day act of clemency, including fraudsters. Illinois lawmakers furious after Biden commutes sentences of state fraudsters. Without objection. And now,
Mr. Chairman, could I enter some as well?
Yeah, please.
Thank you much. This UC request is from ABC News, January 20, 2026, titled Trump's Pardons Forgive Financial Crimes That Came with Hundreds of Millions of Dollars in Punishment. This one is Arizona has recovered just 5% of taxpayer dollars lost in a $2.5 billion Medicaid fraud scheme. That's ProPublica. Columbus Dispatch, Columbus mother and daughter among 15 indicted in pandemic unemployment assistance fraud scheme. And finally, a Minnesota fraud scheme timeline from NPR News. Fraud investigation stretched across Wells's tenure.
Without objection. And now, without objection, all other opening statements will be included in the record, and we will introduce today's witnesses. Mr. Scott Dexter. Mr. Dexter is a former law enforcement officer, having served for 28 years. He also served with the Minnesota Department of Human Services Office of Inspector General, where he investigated fraud in the Child Care Assistance Program. Thank you, Mr. Dexter, for being here. And Ms. Jennifer Larson. Ms. Larson is the founder and chief executive officer of the Holland Center for Autism, a clinic that provides services to children and young adults with autism. She started the Holland Center to serve families like hers that were not receiving adequate services and support elsewhere. Thank you, Ms. Larson, for being here today. Mr. Nick Shirley is an independent journalist. His recent investigations and videos have shed light on the scale of fraud in public benefit programs in Minnesota that are currently ongoing. And thank you, Mr. Shirley, for being here. And Mr. Dylan Hetler-Gaudet. Mr. Hetler-Gaudet is the Acting Vice President of Policy and Government Affairs at the Project on Government Oversight. POGO is a nonprofit organization that investigates alleged wrongdoing by the governor. Thank you, Mr. Hetler-Gaudet, for being here with us today. We welcome all our witnesses and thank them for appearing today. We will begin by swearing you in. Would you please rise and raise your right hand? Do you swear or affirm under penalty of perjury that the testimony you're about to give is true and correct to the best of your knowledge, information, and belief, so help you God? Thank you. Thank you. You may be seated. The record will reflect that the witnesses have all answered in the affirmative. And at the instruction of Mr. Hetler-Gaudet, I wanted to let all members of the panel know that when you have questions for him, please say his name so he knows that you are addressing him, please. I want the witnesses to know that your written testimony will be entered into the record in its entirety. Accordingly, we ask that you summarize your testimony in 5 minutes.
Hey, Rhonda, how
we'll
you
begin
doing?
now with Mr. Dexter. You are recognized for your 5-minute statement.
Thank you. Chair, members of the community, thank you for the opportunity to speak with you today. My name is Scott Dexter. I'm a retired law enforcement investigator with 28 years of experience, most of it spent conducting criminal and financial fraud investigations, with experience in surveillance operations. In 2013, after retiring from law enforcement, I joined the Minnesota Department of Human Services as part of a newly created investigative unit within the Office of Inspector General. Our mission was straightforward: identify and investigate fraud within the Child Care Assistance Program, known as CCAP. I was one of the original 4 investigators hired, all of us former law enforcement professionals with backgrounds in criminal investigations. Our cases were not selected based on the name of the center, the owner, or the community it served. They were selected based solely on tips, complaints, and the amount of CCAP funding being paid out. The highest funded centers were reviewed first, and many of those centers were referred to us through the public tip line or by licensing inspectors who observed activity inconsistent with a legitimate daycare operation. What we found was deeply concerning. Many of these centers operated out of commercial spaces with windows totally covered, no visible play areas, and very few children ever present. Through surveillance, data collection, and review of attendance and billing records, we repeatedly documented patterns of overbilling, non-existent attendance, and in some cases, children being signed in for hours they were never actually at the center.
Of course.
Our investigative process was thorough and methodical. We collected licensing and billing data, installed covert surveillance cameras, reviewed hours of video, identified parents and employees, and calculated estimated overpayments based on actual attendance. Completed cases were then turned over to the Minnesota Bureau of Criminal Apprehension for search warrants, interviews, arrests, and potential prosecution. As our investigations progressed, we noticed a trend. Many of the centers receiving the highest levels of CCAP funding were owned and operated by Somali individuals, and the families served were predominantly Somali. This was not the basis for selecting cases, but it did become the basis for accusations against us. We were labeled as racially biased, despite the fact that our case selection was driven entirely by funding data. An outside review was launched into our investigative practices. We were questioned about how we selected centers and how we conducted surveillance. Following that review, new restrictions were placed on our work, including mandatory panel reviews before we could move forward with investigations. Investigators were also pulled from conducting new or current investigations in order to enter data from all previous complaints received by DHS into a newly created database, a process that took nearly a year to complete. These changes significantly hindered our ability to do our jobs effectively. Ultimately, in 2019, I chose to retire because the investigative process had become so constrained that meaningful work was no longer possible. Through collaboration with federal agencies, including the IRS Criminal Investigation Division, Homeland Security, and the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, we learned that millions of dollars in cash from the Somali community was being flown out of the Minneapolis-St. Paul airport by Somali couriers. At one point, nearly $70 million had been documented leaving the country halfway through a single year. Although we could not prove that the cash was obtained fraudulently, we strongly suspected that it was. We also encountered situations where federal partners were prevented from opening cases due to concerns about political sensitivities surrounding the Somali community and the refugee resettlement program. These decisions had real consequences, allowing fraud to continue unchecked. Throughout our work, we identified several loopholes that made CCAP highly vulnerable to fraud. Centers were allowed to bill for the full authorized hours, even when children were present for only minutes. Billing records could be submitted up to 30 days later, creating opportunities for manipulation. Attendance records were handwritten,
How you doing,
unreliable,
Jackie?
and often incomplete. And despite our recommendations, no biometric attendance systems, no electronic submission requirements, and no state-installed security cameras were ever implemented. Chair and members, the purpose of my testimony is not to cast blame on any community. It is to highlight systemic weaknesses that allowed large-scale fraud to occur and to emphasize the need for stronger safeguards, better oversight, and investigative processes that are allowed to function without political interference. Thank you for your time and your commitment to ensuring accountability within publicly funded programs.
When
And I am
Raskin or
prepared to
anybody else
answer any
starts
questions
talking.
that you may
Have some balls to say
Thank you, Mr.
something.
Dexter. And now we're going to
These people
recognize
should not
Mr.
be
Hedler-Gaudet
feared.
for
They
your
should
5
be
minutes
mocked.
of opening statement.
Chairman Biggs, Ranking Member McBath, and members of the subcommittee. I appreciate the opportunity to testify before you today on the important issues of preventing fraud and
Yo,
protecting
I've seen
taxpayer
this dude. I
dollars.
think he's actually really
My name
blind.
is Dylan Hedler-Gaudet, and I'm the Acting Vice President of Policy and Government Affairs at the Project on Government Oversight. We are a nonpartisan,
I've heard
independent
this dude
watchdog
before, yeah.
that promotes a more
I think he
accountable,
really is
transparent,
blind.
and effective federal government. We view it as our mission to combat abuse of power and corruption in the federal government, which includes working on rooting out waste, fraud, and abuse. The unfortunate truth is that fraud in government programs is a fact of life. Since the United States government has existed, fraud in government has also existed. For much longer than that, in fact. For as long as human beings have been organizing ourselves into societies and building institutions to govern those societies, there have always been those who will seek to take
He
advantage.
better not. He better not.
This is a harsh
Jennifer.
but real truth related to the human condition, related to our fundamentally fallen and flawed natures. That said, it is still incumbent upon every one of us to do what we can to prevent fraud and to hold perpetrators of fraud accountable. This is especially true when the fraud implicates hard-earned taxpayer dollars and critical public programs and services. This is true whether we're talking about fraud in the context of the Feeding Our Future program or any other program in Minnesota, whether we're talking about welfare fraud in Mississippi, which involved the participation of a world-famous Hall of Fame NFL quarterback. This is true whether we're talking about fraud in the context of it being perpetrated by large multinational defense companies in the context of multi-billion-dollar contract they have with the Defense Department. The point here is that fraud and the abuse of taxpayer dollars is not related to any particular geographic, demographic, or other boundary or characteristic. So why do these things happen so much? Mostly they are caused by deep structural flaws, gaps, and weaknesses in our system of government. They're also driven by recalcitrance and resistance to change on the part of federal agencies. To put it shortly, fraud is a systemic problem and it requires systemic solutions. So what are these solutions? I'm pleased to share a few of them with you today. We must first look at watchdogs, critical sources of information, and practitioners of oversight from within the federal government itself. I'm specifically talking about inspectors general, the Government Accountability Office, and whistleblowers. Rather than attacking, firing, undermining, and intimidating these individuals and entities as this administration and its allies have done, we must strengthen, preserve, and protect them.
My bad.
We must enact reforms to make sure that IGs and GAO can perform their duties effectively and independently, and we must add additional safeguards to make sure that whistleblowers can blow the whistle without fear of reprisal or retaliation. We must also take a long, hard look at the architecture currently in place for how we track, monitor, analyze, and assess federal funding. To put it bluntly, that architecture is broken. Key resources like USAspending.gov are in desperate need of overhaul and modernization. We need to enhance and improve the quantity, quality, timeliness, and integrity of the data and information we collect on federal funding. We need to promote more accountability, transparency, and compliance mechanisms within the chain of spending for federal funding. If we don't do this, we will never have a good grasp on where funding is going, where it's ending up, who is being helped by it, who is being missed by it, and what the ultimate impact is. Lastly, we must enact robust reforms and vigorous enforcement to crack down on corruption, cronyism, and conflicts of interest, which turbocharge waste, fraud, and abuse in the federal government. The presidential pardon is an acute example of this, with each of the last two administrations using the pardon power inappropriately to pardon convicted fraudsters. We must also promote reforms to crack down on the revolving door between agencies and industries, and to head off pay-to-play politics, all of which distort and corrupt decisions like the award of federal contracts. The takeaway here is simple. Focusing on individual, salacious, scandalous examples of fraud is akin to looking at the symptoms and not looking at the disease or the root causes of the disease. The Project on Government Oversight stands ready, willing, and able to work with anyone here who wants to work on root causes and systemic solutions so that we can actually get our hands around waste, fraud, abuse, and corruption in the federal government. Thank you for having me here today, and I look forward to answering your questions.
Thank you, Mr. Hedler-Gaudet. And I forgot to mention, when you get about 10 seconds left, I'll just tip that so everybody will know that as well. So, Mr. Shirley, you're recognized for your opening statement.
Awesome. I'm here today to speak on behalf of all hardworking, law-abiding, tax-paying citizens here inside of the United States. I've helped bring to light widespread fraud that's happening inside our nation, and we the people have had enough of our hard-earned money going towards fraudsters as if it's no big deal. As I speak here, I want to ask everyone a question. How much do we trust when we pay our taxes it's going to benefit our nation? People erupted during the Boston Tea Party over just a few percentages as they believed they were being taxed without representation. Nowadays, we have the representation, but do we trust our representatives? My name is Nick Shirley, and I made a 41-minute video that I posted on platforms like X and YouTube. My video received over 100 million views, and it created instant change within our government.
What's up,
As the federal government launched investigations in departments such as Health and Human Services, froze over $185 million in child care funding until businesses can prove they are legitimate businesses. I actually became aware of the fraud that was happening in Minnesota in June of 2025, as I was there for a separate video, and Minnesotans started reaching out to me, asking if I was making a video on the fraud. I said, well, what fraud? And this lady, she was a real estate agent, and she says, well, I'm having a hard time selling my properties because people are curious about these assisted livings that are popping up next door to some of the houses that we're buying, or the home health care clinics that are popping up, and we don't know who's next to these houses that we're trying to sell. And I said, well, I'm not gonna come and make a video if I don't have any proof, so therefore I left Minnesota, and I continued to look for fraud in the best way I could. And as I was getting my own information, a man by the name of David reached out to me, and he said, hey, I have been investigating this fraud for years now. I have been driving by these child care centers. I've never seen a single child, and I have received information from the state of Minnesota as to how much money these places are receiving. I said, great, let me come to Minnesota and we'll make this video about potential fraud that was taking place inside of Minnesota. We go to a daycare, and I'm instantly surprised by what we see. We arrived, and it was an industrialized building, and there was 2 daycares registered at that building. And the first thing I noticed is all the windows are blacked out, and there's no footprints in the snow of any children. There's no playgrounds or anything that would make it look like it's a child care. But above me, a sign read, open 7 a.m. to 10 p.m. But there was nobody there. The doorbell did not even work. And then we continued to go to other daycares and notice the same pattern.
Didn't even work.
No children, blacked out windows, and one daycare,
we failed that fucking hard.
learning
We
center,
can't even make a doorbell work.
spelled Quality Learning Center instead of Quality Learning Center. They had received $1.9 million, yet with that $1.9 million, they could not even spell Leering right on their sign. Governor Walz has said he's been fighting fraud in Minnesota since 2019 and said the buck stops with him. However, how long would it take for you to notice $1 million leaving your bank account and not knowing where it's going? That's essentially what had been happening in Minnesota
does seem
for
nervous
years,
as
as
fuck,
billions
though.
of dollars has been
Not gonna
misplaced.
lie, he
Meanwhile,
seems
while people
nervous
like
as hell
Governor
right now.
Tim Walz call people like me a white supremacist, delusional conspiracy theorist, he actually decided to drop out of re-election because I believe of how deep and extensive this fraud is. Thank you very much. Since my reporting, the HHS department froze over $185 million, and to this day, not a single business has been able to prove proof of legitimacy. How fast would you be proving that you are a legitimate business if you have children to actually feed and to take care of? You'd be sending in that paperwork instantly.
Right.
I made this video to document the widespread fraud that has been taking place, as I truly believe all fraud is bad. And people like me, my generation, we're sick of seeing tax dollars go towards fraud. We just want to have the same opportunities that our fathers and our grandparents had. And when you see people making millions of dollars by committing fraud, it upsets everybody from all age demographics. And so I hope today we can have a good conversation, and I think we can all agree that fraud is bad, and that fraud is fraud, and I wish the best for our country, and I think that's what needs to be happening, is to crack down on all forms of fraud. So thank you for having me, and God bless the USA.
Thank you, Mr. Shirley. And now I recognize Ms. Larson for your 5-minute opening statement.
Chairman, Ranking Member, and members of the committee, thank you for allowing me to speak today on this issue. My name is Jennifer Larson. I'm the founder and CEO of Holland Center in Minnesota. I've been an autism provider for over 20 years and started the organization for my son. I built Holland Center because families with children like mine were desperate for help, desperate for services and stability, desperate for somewhere they could trust their child would be supported and helped, not sent home on a bad day, not babysat in a classroom and forgotten. We serve the children that don't succeed in public school settings. What started as a small program grew over 2 decades into 4 locations that families rely on, not just for therapy, but for hope, routine, and survival. This work is a labor of love for me. Just like me, there are providers all over the state laboring with love to help these children. And this week, Holland and other programs all over Minnesota are collapsing. Not because we committed fraud, but because a crime ring was allowed to operate inside Minnesota's service system, and the government's clumsy response is now destroying legitimate, long-standing providers and devastating families that we serve. Families come to Holland, they do not have a backstop. Their children often receive 30 or more hours of therapy a week. These are not an extravagance. These are medically necessary. These children learn to communicate, regulate their emotions, reduce dangerous behaviors, and function in daily life. For many parents, therapy determines if they can work. Consistent staff and therapy prevents severe behaviors and regression. Structured care keeps children and their siblings safe. When services disappear, families do not just simply adjust. They face a crisis. For more than 2 decades, Holland has served hundreds of children year after year, employed hundreds of clinicians and staff, operated under yearly on-site audits, inspections, and documentation oversight, delivered real services to real children every day. We have always complied with everything the system required. Yet, within the last month, the state has withheld over $400,000 in Medicaid funds for my own program, and that number grows every single day. I had to infuse my personal funds to survive these weeks, but can't do that any longer without payment. Let me be clear, we are a fee-for-service industry. When we can't pay our staff, we lose our staff and children lose care. Families do not lose appointments, they lose the people they trust. What happened in Minnesota had nothing to do with the ethical, long-standing autism providers. What did happen was organized criminal networks that exploited autism services by opening fake centers, billing for children that did not exist, billing for services never delivered, and stealing millions of taxpayer dollars in the process. These are not minor compliance issues. They are criminal enterprises. Families trusted that the government was protecting the integrity of the system. It failed. Now, instead of doing the obvious thing and targeting criminal actors, the response has been to freeze everyone's payments. That decision does not punish the criminals. It punishes innocent children and families. As Medicaid payments are delayed due to prepayment review by an insurance company that is in the business of denying claims, providers are reducing hours, cutting staff, and starting to close. Families are scrambling for alternatives that don't exist, children are regressing, parents are leaving jobs to care for their disabled children. Autism therapy cannot be paused without consequences. Loss of services can erase years of progress in weeks, and abrupt disruption of services can cause lifelong consequences in these children. This is not abstract harm. It is daily trauma for families already carrying an extraordinary burden.
Sorry, mother-in-law called.
The simple solution to the problem, send the criminals to jail and allow trusted providers with decades of clean audits and verified ownership structures to continue providing prescribed ethical therapy and go back to paying them what we've earned and resume paying them on time. I built Holland for 20 years. Families built their lives around the care that we provide. All of that is risk of destruction today, not by fraud, but by clumsy government response that failed to distinguish between criminals and caregivers. It treats children with disabilities.
The gentlelady will suspend. We've got a photographer there. We allow photographers in here, but not between the panel of the witnesses and the members. You will please move.
Okay.
Photographer, please move.
Thank you.
Like right now.
Okay. Sorry.
All
of that is at the risk of destruction. Sorry, can I continue?
Yeah, please continue.
Not by fraud, but the clumsy government response that fails to distinguish between criminals and caregivers. It treats children with disabilities as acceptable collateral damage.
You tried
Fraud
to
must
get
be
a
stopped and
picture of
criminals
her
prosecuted.
trying to cry.
I'm a taxpayer. I live in Minnesota. This is disgusting.
What the
But
fuck?
families and children should never pay the price for government failure. Thank you.
We will now proceed under the 5-minute rule with questions. Chair recognizes the gentleman from Wisconsin, Mr. Tiffany, for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Besides the work Mr. Shirley has done, I want to recognize Powerline, who has done
I'm sorry, I had to kick
yeoman's
that
work
photographer
exposing
out of
this
the
over the
fucking
last decade,
hearing.
what has happened.
You know
and I just
better.
want to say, Ms. Larson, I live in northern Wisconsin. There's an autism school that was started in my community. Where did we visit when we wanted to start that a decade ago? We came to Minnesota, where you have been leaders in having good
What up,
autism
Thor, man?
programs.
Rumble
And
likes
I think
to
about
fight.
the tremendous fraud that has gone on in
freezes, it likes
nutrition
to do a whole
programs,
bunch of
housing
things.
programs. But is there anything more heinous than abusing an autism program?
I can't imagine. It's so hard to believe that people are faking that children have autism and stealing money from the government. When I'm sitting here with my 25-year-old non-speaker, and now children like my son aren't going to have services because they stole money from the government and faked these things. And it is, like I said, disgusting.
With what's going on right now, what are the families that you're serving, what are they saying?
They're scared.
What are they doing?
Everybody's scared. There are centers programs that have already shut down. Staff are leaving. I, this week, asked my staff who will take unpaid leave because we can't keep going like this. I'm like I said, I'm $400,000 plus in debt now, and I'm not sure these are going to get paid back. I went to a bank, and they wouldn't back the receivable because they said that's not a receivable. If it's prepayment review, you may not get it.
And Ms. Larson, none of this would have happened if the fraud did not occur. Is that accurate?
Yes.
Mr. Dexter, could have something been done about this earlier?
Yes. As I stated in my opening testimony, in the years that I worked there, we identified how fraud was occurring, the loopholes that existed, And we
What were some of the warning signs, Mr. Dexter?
Well, the fact that part of our job was to go and collect attendance records.
I still have to use
We would find
Rumble
attendance
or
records that
YouTube
were
a
either
lot.
incomplete,
Once Rumble stops
non-existent.
the glitches and things,
Obviously, there were times
they'll
we
pick up
found
a
them
bit.
to be fabricated because they were given to us way later. And the same with billing records. They were allowed 30 days after the end of the billing period to submit billing records. So they were not immediately available to us. And
oh yeah, the
it
press
kind of
is
allowed
people that just go
overpayments
there,
or double
they're-
payments to be overlooked.
They do not
so,
think of shit.
We had the attendance
They're
record
thinking of
issue.
just, I want
We
that shot.
had the fact that there was no way to verify who was signing the children in and out, no way to verify what times those children were signed in and out.
Could I do a follow-up here? In Wisconsin, we learned this month that Ibrahima Diop, a Minneapolis school finance boss, placed on leave for failing to submit required financial paperwork with the Minneapolis School District and for signing questionable contracts linked to the Somali fraud scandal, was hired by the Milwaukee Public School System as a deputy superintendent at a salary of $240,000 a year. Do you think it wise? Might that be a warning sign that this person was involved, may have been involved with fraud in Minneapolis? Shouldn't they be concerned in Wisconsin that this is that they're hiring someone like that?
Well, if somebody that they hire has a past history and practice of doing that type of stuff, I would be very leery of it occurring again, or that being the basis that they're hired.
So Governor Evers refused to open the books.
They haven't
and is
leered at
blocking
all.
federal audits of our food stamp and Medicaid programs. And he also vetoed 4 auditor positions in a recent budget. Do you think that is also a warning sign?
Yes, if it's preventing...
Or ill-advised, would that be a better way to pose the question?
Yeah, if it prevents the oversight
I'm
and
a
the
boomer,
ability
but I'm a
to
cool,
audit
not
and look at
hippie-like
the records
boomer.
to make sure it can have a check
I
and
guess I should
balance
stick
system,
to doobies
I think that'd be
because
very
it's
unwise
easier
because,
for my
again,
boomer
that
brain.
allows fraud to occur.
Because
it's pretty much the same thing, just
Mr.
different
Shirley,
colors.
what is happening in
and
Minnesota,
arranged
it could be
differently.
happening throughout the United States. Isn't that correct?
Correct.
If there's one thing we've learned or leered, as they say in Minneapolis, isn't it possible that this is happening everywhere?
Yes, I believe it is.
Mr. Chairman, I yield back.
Gentleman yields. I now recognize the ranking member of the whole committee, Mr. Raskin, for his 5 minutes of question.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Thank all the witnesses for your excellent testimony. Mr. Hedler-Gaudet, the administration has systematically undermined government
never gonna get
oversight.
old.
The president has fired more than a dozen inspectors general, not for any cause, but seemingly just in retaliation for doing their jobs and to block unwanted investigations. President Trump has defunded the Council of Inspectors General on Integrity and Efficiency. He's removed independent leadership at the Office of Special Counsel and Office of Government Ethics, blockading whistleblowers and numerous investigations. What is your assessment, Mr. Hedler-Gaudet, of the Trump administration's apparent systematic opposition to internal oversight mechanisms in the federal government?
Thank you, Ranking Member Raskin. My assessment is that the last year or so has been one of the most anti-oversight, anti-accountability periods that I've witnessed in our federal government. And I think the things you laid out, as well as others, are the sort of proof in the pudding there. And I think speaking of things that should be giving us pause and raising red flags, that should all be giving us serious pause and raising serious red flags about how seriously people who claim to take oversight, accountability, fraud, how seriously do they actually take it?
There's been a lot of attention given to Donald Trump's extraordinary use of the pardon power, as in the pardon of violent insurrectionists and cop beaters. But there's also been a forgiveness of $1.5 billion.
This is your taxpayer dollars at work.
Restitutionary fines.
Orange Man's back.
That various
Orange
people had to
Man's
pay, and a
back.
lot of them
It's not
are
the Somalians
fraudsters.
taking all your fucking
the DOJ
money
in Trump's
because
first term brought bank fraud and
pinballs
tax evasion
motherfuckers
charges
allow it.
against reality TV stars
Man
Todd and
back.
Julie Chrisley. They were convicted in 2022.
It's not all the
They owed more
illegals.
than $22 million
It's not them
in restitution to
actually taking your
taxpayers
rights
and to their
away and
victims.
trying to
But then
fucking
Trump
kill you.
suddenly inexplicably pardoned
It's
them
Orange Man.
and forgave all of the money that they were supposed to be paying back to their victims. Todd Chrisley bragged publicly about his get-out-of-jail-free card, jubilantly exclaiming, "The feds got effed." Let me give you one other example. Trump on April 23rd issued a pardon for Paul Walchuk, a former nursing home exec who pleaded guilty to multiple tax crimes. What he was doing was taking millions of dollars from the nurses and orderlies and doctors who worked for him at his facilities, took more than $10 million that way. Instead of giving it to the IRS for their taxes, he used the money to buy a $2 million yacht
he's gonna be the
and to pay
dickhole he
for
is.
high-end
A
jet travel
retarded
and to go
fucking
shopping at
piece of
Bergdorf
shit
Goodman and
asshole
Cartier.
he's always
Well, he was
been.
sentenced to 18 months in
He will
prison
be.
for stealing his employees' tax withholdings.
That's a
He was ordered
guarantee.
to pay his employees back $4.4 million for the money he looted from their accounts. So he's going to have to pay that back. But then he got his mom to go to a glitzy fundraising dinner for Donald Trump at Mar-a-Lago, and she paid $1 million for her ticket. Then, right after Trump was inaugurated in his second term, Walchuk petitioned for presidential pardon, arguing that he was the victim of political retaliation because they were Trump supporters. And what do you know? President Trump issued a complete pardon with forgiveness of all of the financial fines and restitution that Mr. Walchuk was going to have to pay back to his workers, the nurses and doctors and orderlies. So that was forgiven. That was $4 million taken away from the victims of a fraud and given back to the perpetrator of the fraud. Okay, now, if we had all day, we could go on all day with this because that's how their pay-to-play pardon system works. What does this do to our efforts to root out fraud and corruption systematically in the government and in crimes in different industries?
Nurses and doctors and orderlies.
I think it provides a perverse incentive structure. I opened my statement by saying that we all have an obligation and a responsibility to do what we can to prevent fraud and to hold perpetrators of fraud accountable. But that last bit, holding a perpetrator of fraud accountable, perhaps via conviction, doesn't mean much if all one needs to do is contribute to the right Uber PAC or attend the right fundraiser, and suddenly that accountability and that conviction is wiped away, including the financial restitution you mentioned. So those kinds of actions are at direct cross purposes of any effort to promote a broader, more systemic approach to rooting out waste
everybody does?
Thank you very much.
But you want to complain about how fucking Orange Man is just
thank you, Mr.
so
Chairman.
bad.
Mr. Dexter, let me make sure we got this right.
Raskin does
you get
it
tips
too.
and complaints, whistleblowers or others come to you and tell you something's not right at these child care centers in your state that are getting all kinds of taxpayer money. Is that right? That's how it started?
God,
That's correct.
fucking
Okay.
damn
And then you go and do your work.
retards.
And you got 28 years experience investigating things, and specifically in the crime and financial fraud area. Is that right?
That's correct.
And you go out and find out these child care centers, there aren't any kids. No kids are there. I mean, there's some, but there's like, you don't see the playgrounds, you don't see any kids at a place where they're supposed to be helping children. And then you also find out most of them are run by Somali individuals. Is that accurate?
That is correct.
And then you make some recommendations. You said, here's what we should do. I think you put this on page 2 of your testimony. You said there's some basic things you should do. No, you said they didn't have biometric attendance system. They should do that. They should have electronic submission requirements. They need security cameras. You made some recommendations.
Yes.
And then what happened?
Nothing.
They ignored your recommendations, but it didn't stop there, did it? They ignored your recommendations. They called you a racist, right?
Correct.
Typical left. I always say the left will tell a lie. Big media will report it. You tell the truth. They call you a racist. Exactly what happened here. So they ignore your recommendations. They call you a racist. But it even got worse than that. You can imagine. They started investigating you. Is that right?
Yes, we were interviewed by an outside firm for a report given to the Office of Legislative Auditor.
What did that report look like? What did they say? They call you a racist. What did the report say?
The report basically questioned our investigative tactics, looked at how our unit was managed.
Even though you had 28 years experience in this particular area, tips and whistleblowers came to you, even though that was the whole catalyst for doing this.
Correct.
Yeah, okay. And the end result is what? The end result is Miss Larson, who's actually helping people, she suffers and the people she helps suffers. Is that right, Miss Larson? Not to mention the fact that taxpayers are getting ripped off, but the people who do good work, who actually help people, you suffered.
The disabled are paying for the money stolen.
Yeah. And why do you think all this is the case? So, I mean, all this brings me to seems to be a typical pattern, but in the end, you got to ask why. Why was, when you point out what's going on, you have good people doing good work who suffer, the taxpayers are getting ripped off. Someone's got to ask, well, why did they take not follow your recommendations, call you a racist, investigate you instead of just fixing the problem? Why'd they do that? What could be the answer? Anyone want to hazard a guess? Mr. Shirley, you want to hazard a guess why that's the case?
Well, they simply use that as a deflection technique to make you not want to speak out against the fraud.
Yeah, it seems to me it's politics, though. You think it's politics, Mr. Dexter?
Yes, I do.
Yeah, the people at the top, like, well, we don't want to do this. We don't want to be called racist. In fact, we found that out a week ago in a hearing where we were looking at this Feeding Our Future program. And we found out they actually shut that program off for a while. They said, time out, something's not right here. They found the same kind of things you found, Mr. Dexter. And they said, we're going to stop payment. And then it restarted. And the reason it restarted is because they threatened a racial discrimination lawsuit against the authorities there in Minnesota. So, okay, forget about the fact that when we do this, we restart the money, we're going to hurt good people like Ms. Larson and the people she helps. Rip off the taxpayers, we're going to do it all for politics. And we also found, interestingly enough, the Attorney General in Minnesota had a meeting with the key folks in this particular program, and then they find out a couple weeks later they start sending in campaign contributions. I think it's politics. I think it's politics driving it all. And that's why it's appropriate we're investigating here at the congressional level. That's why it's appropriate the Department of Justice has put in place a specific individual to focus on this, not only in Minnesota, but around the country. I talked too much. Anyone else want to ask? I'll give you, Mr. Shirley, Ms. Larson, a chance to say anything if you want.
There's still time.
I'll yield 28 seconds to our chairman. I'll yield 20 seconds, remaining my time to the chairman.
Thank you. So, Mr. Hedler-Godet, would it surprise you that Joe Biden issued pardons to someone named Crundell, who had the largest municipal fraud in the country's history, and had a restitution amount of $53.7 million that was never paid following the commutation? Would that surprise you, sir?
That would not surprise me. And actually, in my written statement, I outline how some pardons under the last administration, the Biden administration, they also fall into the same pattern of pardoning convicted fraudsters. So I'm in agreement with you there.
Yeah, thank you. And without objection, that time's expired, so without objection, Mr. Klein will be permitted to participate in today's hearing for the purpose of questioning the witness if a member yields him time for that purpose. And now we're going to go to Mr. Moore from Alabama.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. All this talk about pardons and the ultimate shyster, one of them was Hunter Biden. He got pardoned after Joe promised he wasn't going to do that on the way out. So anyway, that's another pardon for another day. Ms. Larson, I'm impressed with your son. I honestly thought he was your attorney when you guys were sitting there. But were there early warning signs, if acted on, that could have prevented the fraud schemes from growing to the scale that we see now?
I'd say yes. Looking back, the Somali community in Minnesota has a high prevalence of autism, and I know that because I serve a lot of minorities in my centers. So when these centers started popping up, I thought, good for them. You know, like I took care of my son. We haven't had a waiting list for 5 years, so I thought it was a positive. And then it just started to go and go, where now it's 400 plus of these. And it started to. I didn't Nick Shirley it. That's a verb now. Go out and go see, because obviously I'm busy and that's not what I have time for. But I think there were a lot of early warning signs. I think if anybody was actually paying attention,
they would have caught it.
Oh, 100%.
Because how long have you been in business? 20 years?
Over 20 years.
And you went through a number of audits, I think, every year, right?
Every year.
So how is it that these groups are getting away with it, and you're under the thumb of the government auditing you every year? Why do you think that is?
Either there's a double standard and they don't, for whatever reason, have the same expectations that we do, or they're just looking.
Maybe Chairman Jordan was onto something. Maybe it's politics.
Yeah.
Mr. Shirley, now I guess investigative journalists are known as right-wing social media influencers. So can you confirm how many daycare centers you personally visited in Minnesota during your investigation?
During that first video, we went to around 7.
How did you select those facilities? I know you said earlier footprints in the snow, but how is it that you identified those facilities to go to initially?
So the man David in the video, he had the daycares with the CCAT funding, and we just simply drove around Minnesota and around Minneapolis area.
It took a lot of courage to do that, I would imagine. Probably more so now than what it was when you initially did it. 100 million views, you said.
Yes, over 140 million views on X alone.
So what was Mr. David's background? How did you connect with him, and how did he call you, or did you reach out?
He simply is just a man in Minnesota who has a passion for his city, and he's been seeing fraud taking place for years. And out of all the thousands of messages I get on Instagram and other platforms, I just happened to read his, and he provided me the information, so I gave him a phone call.
And then from there, just went to those different facilities. What was probably the most interesting thing as you were doing this? I saw the video. We watched it, and it looked like it was a number of facilities in the same building.
Yes. So in one building, there was, I believe, 3 daycares, and there was no children. And they were all receiving CCAT funding for separate daycares. There was one daycare we went to that one day it was closed by the government, and then that same day it was reopened underneath another name. And they both received CCAT funding.
I bet, Ms. Larson, they probably weren't getting audited nearly like you were.
I would guess not.
So how many daycares are there in Minneapolis we think are fraudulent right now? Ms. Shirley, any idea? Are the amount of money total? You got any idea on that?
Well, they've frozen over $185 million, and not a single business has been able to prove that they're a legitimate business yet.
It's $185 million for sure that we know. Mr. Dexter, I got a question for you. What common patterns or warning signs usually indicate that the provider or the program may be committing fraud? As you were doing your investigations and 28 years of experience, what are some of the indicators that you see that maybe that should be a telltale sign or a red flag that there's fraud there?
Well, one of the immediate signs that we saw when we would go out to first look at the location is where that was located. A lot of times they were located in commercial areas, and I'm not talking like strip malls or anything like that. I'm talking about like industrial areas where you wouldn't typically find a child care center. We would notice that there was no play area, and if there was any play equipment, it was bare minimum. Now, there was an exception that if there was a playground area within a very short walking distance, that would count. But a lot of times we didn't see that. But the most glaring thing was that when we watched the centers, we would sit and watch it for a couple of days before we even put up surveillance cameras. We would watch, and we would see little to no children.
Motherfuckers are driving around in fucking
if anything,
Mercedes
there would
Benz
be
and
a few
Rolls
kids.
Royces.
As you begin to blow the whistle,
okay, maybe not.
the investigator became
Gentleman's time has
explained.
I'll go back, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Chair recognizes the ranking member.
Well, you can barely put food on your table.
Mr. Chair, when he began his second term, President Trump broke from historic norms and fired 17 inspectors general, people who serve as critical watchdogs and prevent waste, fraud, and abuse. A federal judge held that these firings were illegal, but also held that she could not reinstate these people due to their important roles. As a result, the president has been able to appoint acting inspectors general who have themselves been removed after informing Congress that Trump officials are not cooperating with investigations. Mr. Hitler-Gaudette, how do these frequent firings affect the ability of inspector general offices to prevent and investigate fraud?
I think they fundamentally undermine it, and they also create a real chilling effect for the inspector general who are left. The incentive to do something that could upset the powers that be suddenly becomes a bit of a risky proposition. And so between the completely undermining them and the chilling effect, you are really dampening and damaging the ability to do real oversight.
Thank you. And how does the politicization of inspector general appointments affect the morale and effectiveness of career investigative staff there within these offices?
It also has a severely negative effect on morale and efficacy within the offices.
So I believe we can and should do more to prevent fraud and improve oversight so that all of our government efforts are doing the most that they can to help the American people. When the Judiciary Committee marked up the Republicans' partisan big ugly spending bill, I offered an amendment that would dedicate half of 1% of funding to be used for oversight and fraud improvement.
Very
prevention.
close about
My Republican colleagues, they opposed the amendment.
10 minutes or so,
Mr.
and then
Hitler,
it'll have to slow down because we will
in
be
your opening
live.
statement, you spoke on steps that Congress could take to ensure robust, nonpartisan
like
oversight.
the
The Project on
could be
Government
after
Oversight
Miss
recently
Lee, but-
published an article, 7 Ways
Cameras
Congress should
gotta go
sharpen its
down,
oversight
too,
in
'cause
2026.
It's that time.
Without objection.
Thank you. Thank you. Is there anything else that you want to highlight from those recommendations?
Sure, yeah, I just want to pause to note that Congress really is the indispensable actor when it comes to doing oversight. There's supposed to be a somewhat adversarial relationship between the branches, and Congress is supposed to be the primary adversary when it comes to the other two branches and conducting oversight, but that is predicated on Congress taking that oversight duty seriously, irrespective of who is in charge of the other two branches. And so I think there's a political will issue there with oversight, but also there are some mechanical issues. So Congress could do a better job of holding hearings that are a bit more bipartisan, a bit more focused on the facts as opposed to the sizzle of a given anecdote or scandal. I mean, really trying to get at root causes and really trying to take hard, deep looks at the underlying structural reasons why things like fraud happen. It's not as sexy. It's not going to get you as many views on social media, but it's going to actually ideally lead to long-term, sustainable, durable reforms that can really crack down on the problem.
Thank you. And so the short-lived DOJ office was supposed to cut fraud. Mr. Hetler-Gaudette, what did it actually do, and how did its actions actually affect everyday Americans?
So DOJ was a complete failure. Even on its own terms, the primary progenitor of DOJ claimed that he was going to find $2 trillion, then he moved that down to $1 trillion in waste, fraud, and abuse cut spending, but in 2025, we actually spent more money than we spent in 2024. At the opening of this fiscal year in October, we ran the largest opening month budget deficit ever run before at $285 billion. We have hollowed out the key functions of a bunch of agencies. So any claim that DOJ was effective either on cutting spending or promoting effectiveness or efficiency are just flat out undermined and undercut by the facts.
And Mr. Hetler-Gaudette, because you have done investigations yourself, did you do any follow-up on Mr. Shirley's video?
So personally, I took a look at some of what had been done to try and backstop what Mr. Shirley indicated in his video by professional journalists at CBS and by professional oversight practitioners like the Inspector General in Minnesota. And as it turns out, they had a difficult time substantiating what Mr. Shirley was claiming to be true in his video. And in fact, they found countervailing evidence, including having been provided security footage by one of those daycares of children being dropped off the very day that Mr. Shirley was supposed to be there. So
that's another
I think in my view, I would have to err on the side of believing the professional journalists at CBS and the professional oversight practitioners at the Inspector General office.
My great work. For the record, I don't use AI.
I recognize the gentlelady from Florida, Ms. Lee.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And so on that note, I think it's important that we return to a discussion of how these investigations were conducted and the type of evidence that led to the discovery of this massive fraud. One thing that is clear based on the testimony today is that this is not just a Minnesota problem. This is a warning sign for every state that is administering large-scale programs using taxpayer dollars. And we need to get to the bottom of how to identify this type of fraud and prevent it from continuing to occur. So, Mr. Dexter, I'd like to go back to your testimony, both what you have shared with us already about your extensive background investigating and analyzing program fraud, and the methods that you used to identify the theft of taxpayer dollars in this particular type of case. In your written testimony, you mentioned that case selection and investigations were begun in part by looking at funding data, and I am interested in how your office would use things like funding data, use statistics, and other information and evidence to begin to develop these cases.
Well, it wasn't hard to find the funding amounts. We looked at
over here on a
the centers that received CCAP funds.
Yeah.
And then we listed them out. We had what was originally referred to as the top 100 list, and it was based off of centers receiving the most CCAP funding, and that was generated through the billing process and the people that administer the funds.
And when you looked at that list, did it turn out that there were certain facilities that were outliers in some way, either because they were receiving a larger amount of funding based on student population than appeared typical, or because of where they were located? Tell us how you identified which facilities warranted further review.
Well, when we started looking at the centers that were receiving the most funds, the investigators were each assigned cases, were assigned centers, and we first started looking into what the billing pattern was or what the billing amount was, how many children were being billed at these centers, and we would have centers that were billing for 120 plus children.
Quality Leering Center?
Looking at the different days and times, kind of establishing a pattern that just was outside the realm of a typical daycare center.
So in other words, you used objective data and evidence as the foundation to proceed further with your investigations.
Yes, in order to start the investigation, that's what we would begin with.
And in your experience, wouldn't you also say that that is the typical method or atypical method for beginning and analyzing a potential fraud case of any nature in any community?
Yes, because in order to do the investigation, you first have to find out if it warrants an investigation and to what extent that investigation would be.
And now, isn't it also correct, you mentioned in your testimony systemic weaknesses that allowed the large-scale fraud, even after you had developed substantial evidence that there was in fact fraud occurring? That there were institutional and systemic barriers that prevented you from successfully moving these cases through prosecution. And indeed, in your testimony, you note that in 2019, you chose to retire because the process had become so constrained that meaningful work was no longer possible. Tell us about the barriers and ultimately that profound frustration that led you to retire.
Well, when we were originally hired, when this unit was originally created and we were hired with the understanding that our job was going to be to investigate fraud and stop it. And as we proceeded through with that, it wasn't by our doing that it turned out that the centers we investigated were predominantly Somali. But once that was kind of brought out to light, the roadblocks that were put in front of us, being called racist, being called before these boards to be investigated, and basically it wound up turning us into auditors. We wound up just simply reviewing attendance records and matching them up with billing. There really wasn't a lot of substantial investigation anymore, and most of our cases wound up going before administrative hearings rather than criminal.
Which in the end allowed this pattern of conduct to continue to occur, did it not?
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I yield back.
Gentlelady yields. Chair recognizes now the gentleman from North Carolina, Mr. Knott.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. To my colleague from Florida, thank you for that line of questioning. I'm going to pick up where she left off. In regard to the testimony that we've heard today, the other side of the aisle makes us believe, or wants us to believe, that the fraud has been effectively stopped, that they aggressively pursued it, they prosecuted it, and that it is under control. Is that your interpretation of where we are, Mr. Dexter?
No.
I believe the fraud is still going on. I don't think anything has changed. From what I've seen with Mr. Shirley's videos, I'm seeing in his videos the exact same things that we were seeing back from 2014 to 2019 when I worked there.
And it's astounding to me when I was looking at some of the footage, the evidence, there was almost a sense of, we are owed this money that we're stealing. How dare you investigate us? Did you ever encounter that type of attitude when you were performing these investigations?
There was an underlying attitude like that, that we were taking away their money and that it wasn't fair to them.
In your investigation, sir, was the fraud as obvious as it seems to me that it appeared in the videos and the other evidence that I reviewed?
You're taking away
yes, as a matter
their
of fact,
money.
when we would go out to do our investigations, one of the things that we would have to do, or I would have to do, is we would scout out a location for our surveillance cameras that allowed us direct line of sight to the centers, all their accesses. A lot of that, because of the location where we were in these industrial commercial areas, meant we had to go to businesses and ask them permission. And the number one comment they made was, oh, you mean that daycare center over there where there's no children? So everyone else around it saw it.
In regards to your investigation, sir, I'm assuming that you did not just investigate daycare fraud. What other types of fraud did you investigate?
No, our function was strictly child care fraud, but some of that overlapped into, even though we didn't investigate it, a lot of it was also tied into the medical transportation. And
did you ever investigate single entities that were appearing as though they were committing fraud in multiple avenues?
I'm sorry, can you say
so it was like, was there one facility that was a daycare? It was also associated with the medical transport. Were there people who were double dipping in the fraud in your investigations?
Not that we saw as far as different organizations, but there were where one daycare center owner owned multiple daycare centers. So what we saw was more within the daycare center.
Yep. Ms. Larson, thank you for being here. I echo my colleague's sentiment from Alabama. Your son is very impressive. What's his name?
His name is Caden.
Caden, thank you for being here today. You look sharp. You're doing great. Let me just talk to you about these various audits that you were subjected to. How rigorous were they?
I mean, he can't talk, but
they'd be there for hours. Come in and say, I want to see these files for these kids at this date and this time.
Was there any way that you could have tricked them, concealed it? If you had not had any children there, would it have been possible?
Absolutely not.
In regard to the services that you've rendered, first, thank you.
Thank you.
And then in terms of the budgets that you require, how does it make you feel when you hear firsthand accounts that hundreds of millions of dollars have been taken out of the country in suitcases to hostile nations?
I can't even respond to the way I feel about that, but I will say it's still happening. To the question, I mean, there's only 2 autism centers that have actually been shut down of all of these that are going on. So what they're doing is this prepayment review and putting us through this AI system at Optum to look for suspicious claims, which is why our funds are being held. And it's not going to work. I'm going to tell you, it's not going to work. I mean, they just need to do what Nick did. Go and see that there's no kids there. Go and check it out.
And what Mr. Dexter did. Data-driven review.
Yeah.
Without any preconceptions, without any prejudices, and then holding the fraudsters to account. And when he did that, he was called a racist.
Yeah.
It's astounding. It's astounding. And you said that you helped many patients, diverse patients. Yeah. How have those patients been harmed by this administration in Minnesota, the Walz administration?
They are all being harmed if I shut down next week.
Is that what you're up against?
Well, if I haven't gotten paid now, the last date of service was December 5th. I'm over $400,000 in debt. My payroll is $250,000 every 2 weeks, and we get paid every 2 weeks. So on Sunday night, I'll know if I get any money. I haven't been paid a dime. All my claims have been held. So I'm preparing to. And apparently in Minnesota too, I can't just pause services. If I pause my services, then DHS can say, I'm sorry, you've lost your license to serve the kids through this program. So I don't know what they think we're supposed to do.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
Well, again, thank you for being here. I appreciate all the testimony. Sorry I didn't get to everybody else. There's a lot of questions. Mr. Chairman, I yield back.
Gentleman yields. I recognize the gentleman from California, Mr. Kiley.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Shirley, thank you for your testimony today and the work that you've done. Americans hear these numbers of the fraud that we have, and whether it's 10,000 or 10 million or 10 billion, sometimes the numbers, you almost become desensitized to it. And so the way that your video was able to show people the fraud sort of in real life actually happening, I think opened a lot of eyes and has helped to catalyze a level of scrutiny that we really should have had before. So you mentioned in your testimony that you think that what you discovered in Minnesota, that this is not isolated to that state, but likely exists in other parts of the country as well, correct?
Yeah, he's sleazy.
What makes you think that? Well, now you're seeing, since I posted that video, lots of other people have started to go to other locations, for instance, in Ohio or in Maine or in California.
I like Kylie, but I just can't get past the fact that if you just look away for 1 second.
Yeah, I have a particular interest in California, being from that state, and we know there's been a lot of fraud. There was $32.6 billion that's been confirmed in unemployment insurance fraud. There's 1.2 million fraudulent community college applications. Have you gotten any sense, or have you seen any signs there that sort of are similar to what aroused your suspicions in Minnesota?
Yeah, and fraud in California might be worse than the fraud in Minnesota.
What makes you say that?
Well, $24 billion went missing for homelessness. They've been trying to build this train for years, yet there's hardly anything to prove for that. Fires.
We've talked
those are
about
good points.
that.
So you look at let's run through a couple of those because I mentioned the areas where we have confirmed fraud, but then you also have these areas where you have so much spending, and then we look at what results from that spending, and there's nothing. So $24 billion in homelessness, and yet the homeless population went up, and a state audit found that they couldn't even figure out where the money went or what the outcomes linked to that spending were. Is that something that is kind of a red flag for you?
Yeah, it's a major red flag, and you don't even have to be smart to be able to know that. That's a red flag.
Well, unfortunately, our state legislators haven't managed to figure that out, or at least the governor hasn't. So what are you saying about him?
They're not smart. No, but yeah, I mean, it's so obvious, and that's what we saw in Minnesota is how complicit the government has been in enabling this fraud to happen. Quality Learning Center had over 90 violations, yet they continue to give that daycare $1.9 million.
Yeah, that's a great point. That there's the political accountability just hasn't been there, and that's what enables it to continue. So then you mentioned the high-speed rail as well. So there's been about $18 billion spent so far. No track has been laid, and not a single passenger has ridden the train. So when you spend $18 billion on a train and there's no train, does that raise suspicions for you?
Yes.
So you think that might be something worth looking at?
For sure.
We also had a $650 million 911 service that they scrapped after 6 years, so absolutely no value from it. Maybe that's another example where there might at least be questions.
I think you got a lot in California.
All right, well, we'll look forward to seeing what you find. We're certainly trying to use whatever tools we have here to bring more accountability in California as well. Mr. Dexter, I wanted to also ask you a couple questions about your work, because you have extensive experience on the law enforcement side trying to detect fraud. That's actually how in California we discovered the EDD fraud, the unemployment fraud, is it wasn't the state suddenly figuring it out. It was district attorneys who came together and investigated and in fact pointed to the fact that the state had let this happen and failed to heed their warnings and hadn't taken basic fraud detection steps. So is this something that you encounter? Like what kind of internal controls make it so fraud is more difficult, and what type of lack of internal controls make it so fraud?
Somebody's fucking working apparently.
I would say the biggest thing was the fact that when we tried to investigate this, once we started bringing cases forward and it showed that the number of centers that we investigated were Somali, the biggest roadblock was the fact that they didn't want to follow through on these cases. They shut down investigations. They made us, in light of the report from this outside management firm, we spent nearly a year pulled away from our investigations because one of the things they determined was that when our unit started, we didn't have a proper case management system for recording and keeping track of the tips. So as investigators, we instead had to spend nearly a year entering past complaints made to DHS into a newly created database. We couldn't do our investigations because of that. So they kept us from doing our work, basically.
Yeah. So the states that make fraud detection a priority have less fraud than those that actively contravene efforts like yours. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I yield back.
Thank you. Gentleman's time has expired. Recognize the ranking member, Ms. McBath, for some uses.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to ask unanimous consent to enter into the record an article, Republicans' claims of fraud are pretext for unpopular and drastic Medicaid cuts.
Without objection. So I have you see. Yeah, please go ahead.
Actually, forgive me, I have a handful of them here, Mr. Chairman. One is a letter dated October 21, 2025 from Representative Benny Thompson to Robert F. Kennedy Jr. regarding the decision to rescind the $101 million penalty imposed on Mississippi.
Wait.
To ask unanimous consent to enter into the record an article, Republicans' claims of fraud are pretext for unpopular and drastic Medicaid cuts.
Without
So her answer for all of this is to put a goddamn article into the record that says, yeah, all your talk of fraud, yeah, you just want to cut Medicare. We are this fucking stupid, ladies and gentlemen. We are this fucking dumb. Is this live? Sounds sped up. Yeah, it is sped up. It will be live very shortly. I did pause, so it's given a little bit more time. I just wanted to point that out. She's literally, hey, here's this article that says, because you care about fraud, you just want to cut Medicare. This is your taxpayer dollars at work. God damn.
Objection?
Thank you.
And so
Mr.
I
Chairman,
have some. Yeah, please go ahead.
Actually, forgive me, I have a handful of them here, Mr. Chairman. One is a letter dated October 21, 2025 from Representative Benny Thompson to Robert F. Kennedy Jr. regarding the decision to rescind the $101 million penalty imposed on Mississippi. Press release dated September 17, 2025, titled Governor Walz issues executive order directing state agencies to take additional steps to combat fraud. Executive Order 2501, titled Preventing Fraud and Establishing the Financial Crimes and Fraud section of the Department of Public Safety, signed by Governor Tim Walz, January 3rd, 2025. Article dated December 2nd, 2025, titled Trump calls Somali immigrants garbage as U.S. reportedly targets Minnesota community.
Something about
Article dated January 9, 2026, titled 5 states sue administration for withholding billions in social safety net funds. Article dated January 10, 2026, titled Behind the Somali Daycare Panic is a Mother and Son Duo Angling to Become Top Mega Influencers. Article dated December 31, 2025, titled Right-Wing YouTuber Behind Viral Minnesota Fraud Video Has Long Anti-Immigrant History. Article dated January 11, 2026, titled Fact Check What's Really Happening with Child Care Fraud in Minnesota. And finally, article dated January 13, 2026, titled The Trump Administration Says It's Cracking Down on Fraud, but it gave a red state a pass. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Without objection, Chair recognizes Ms. McBath again for the UC.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I ask unanimous consent to enter into the record an article titled
This
"Trump
is fucking
Childcare Fund
retarded.
In 5 states could cost families $400 million by adjudication of the Century Foundation."
Without objection, I recognize myself for a series of UCs. From Fox News, Biden clemency for convicted fraudsters met with outrage. Slap in face. From CNN, victims shocked after Biden grants clemency to kids for cash judge and $54 million embezzler. And from Axios, Biden sets presidential record on pardons and clemency. Also,
Come on.
Minnesota daycare expose. Journalist strikes again, and part 2 names the hub of the fraud wheel. 78th defendant charged in feeding our future fraud scheme from U.S. Attorney's Office, District of Minnesota. Suitcases filled with millions in cash flew out of MSP airport. Ex-TSA agent connects dots years later from Survival World. From the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, HHS freezes child care and family assistance grants in 5 states for fraud concerns.
That was the
From the
one
U.S.
where
Attorney's Office, District of Minnesota, 6 additional defendants
like,
charged.
hey,
1 defendant pleads guilty in ongoing fraud schemes.
And for years,
This is from the local Fox News in Minneapolis. Through the years, a decade of investigating fraud, Minnesota. U.S. Department of Homeland Security release. ICE continues arresting worst of the worst in sanctuary Minneapolis, including pedophiles, gang members, and drug traffickers. From MSN, TSA flags suspicious cash outflow at Minneapolis-St. Paul Airport. From MSN, foreign ATM, Somali cash exodus from Minneapolis exponentially larger than other major U.S. airports. From Breitbart, SBA cutting off grants to Minnesota over reports of Somali fraud. Vance praises YouTuber Nick Shirley reporting on Minnesota fraud. Waltz and Omar using ICE operations to distract from fraud scandal.
Here?
And from Just the
What's
News,
happening?
in Somali fraud scandal, Republicans probe evidence of a blue state election scheme. From the New York Post, ringleader of $250 million Minnesota welfare fraud scandal ordered by judge to forfeit Porsche and luxury goods. From LifeZet.com, TSA whistleblower, Somalis regularly flew out with suitcases stuffed with millions in cash. From Fox News, Minnesota welfare fraud probe targets Somali Hawala money transfers. From the Star News Network, feds probe hundreds of millions in suspected Somali cash and luggage leaving Minneapolis Airport. From USCIS announces results of Operation Twin Shield, a large-scale immigration fraud investigation. From PBS, Nome says Homeland Security is investigating fraud in Minneapolis. From Cornell Law, this is the 18 U.S.C. Section 666, theft or bribery concerning programs receiving federal funds. Also, same source, 18 U.S.C. Section 641, public money, property or records. Also, from same source, 18 U.S. Code 1001 statements or entries generally. And without objection, I now recognize myself
how
for
this could be
5 minutes of
living economic warfare.
So,
I don't see how you could not
I
say that
read
isn't.
all of your statements, and I do thank you, Mr.
$9 billion
Hedley-Godet,
stolen
for your
in just
recommendations.
one fucking
Mr. Dexter
state.
also had some recommendations.
And it
I think
didn't
those
go
are
to
prescient.
you.
I think those are important.
It went to
but
other
I
fucking
also have
people
to bring
who
some
levy
additional information out just
economic
because it's in my nature.
warfare.
I got to do it. So, Mr. Hedley-Godet, you've been talking about the IGs
They
because
gave
you were asked
aid and
about the
comfort to
IGs.
those who
Do you
were
know how many
stealing
cases,
from
for
you.
instance, criminal cases are being investigated, say, by the Department of Homeland Security IG right now?
I don't
It's
know
getting
the number
way
off the
too
top of my head.
fucking easy to
Would
do
it
this.
surprise you if there were 650 ongoing cases with 200 of those being COVID related?
That would not surprise me, no.
And do you know how many audits they have going right now?
Nope.
They have 60 audits going right now with another 20 investigations going. That sounds to me like the IG there, at least in DHS, is not being chilled because of the appointment of temporary IGs. Am I wrong on that, or am I misconstruing that?
One thing about the DHS IG, Mr. Joseph Ghaffari, is he was actually appointed under the first Trump administration, and he has remained ever since. We actually at the Project on Government Oversight have long recommended that Mr. Ghaffari be fired because he has had a long and demonstrated track record of slow-walking investigations at DHS, particularly when it comes to abuse of force and other issues with DHS agents.
And yet the Oversight Committee for the IGs didn't adhere to that recommendation. So anyway, the point, I felt that point needed to be made. Additionally, Mr. Dexter, you looked at some of the same kind of physical evidence that Mr. Shirley looked at with regard to physical presence at the various daycare facilities that you were examining between 2014 and 2019. Is that true?
Yes.
And you saw basically the same kind of physical evidence that Mr. Shirley exposed.
That's correct.
You also looked at funding data, and you also had whistleblowers.
Yes.
And I find it interesting that somehow local news, which reported on the fraud, other local news reporters who reported on the fraud credibly agree with the findings of Mr. Shirley. Is that what you have seen as well, Mr. Dexter?
Yes. Fox 9 News in Minneapolis, they followed a lot of our cases and did stories on them.
And so I mean, the very notion of trying to discredit Mr. Shirley because he got a lot of views, or that some CBS reporter disagreed and said they couldn't find the evidence, actually, in my mind, discredits the CBS reporter. That's because, I mean, I appreciate the ranking member having cited the Arizona fraud,
evidence
which I also
right
constantly cite,
face.
is a massive fraud in Arizona. Not just the $2.5 billion, but there's another additional allegation of about $7 billion per year fraud in Arizona. I think there needs to be a change there. I think we need to get a handle on this, not just in Minnesota, but nationwide. Because what we've seen in Ms. Larson's case, those who are conducting themselves according to the law, delivering services, are the ones that also get punished. But if you're a fraudster, somehow you're able to keep on going. And the fraud hasn't stopped. Mr. Shirley, have you seen any evidence? You said twice today that $185 million of recipients, not one of them has been able to demonstrate that they are legitimate business.
No, in fact, they're actually actively suing the HHS to prevent handing over any information.
Right, so they don't even want to give the information that would be required in an audit. That would be required from a separate independent investigation. They want a court to intervene and enjoin and prevent them from having to respond to this kind of investigation. Is that correct?
Okay, so we're live
that is
now.
Correct.
So, I mean, this is the thing. And
Slow down. We are live.
I think, I'm listening to the panelists. I think everybody on the panel. I think everybody up here.
Now they
we
all
all
sound
want to
slow and
stop
drunk.
the fraud. But the bottom line is, it's so infused with politicization that it is preventing us from just sitting down there and saying, okay, we got a symptom in Minnesota and we're going to fix it. I think the symptoms being exposed is critical because then it actually motivates people to try to get to the root cause.
Yeah,
I'm out of
it's fucking
time,
freezing.
and we have no other members here, so I just want to thank each one of you, from Mr. Dexter, Mr. Hedler-Goddett, Mr. Shirley, and Ms.
They're
Larson, for
having
being
fucking
here
problems over
and
there,
giving
like
us
always.
your testimony. I really, really appreciate it, and I would encourage my colleagues to be better stewards and have better oversight, because otherwise, Mr. Shirley's generation is going to be paying through the wazoo, which right now means $40 trillion in national debt. So thank you all. Appreciate it. We are adjourned.
What? Is that what this? Yo, you gotta be fucking kidding me. Okay, cool. Because guess what? We still got... Where was that other one? That was GOP oversight, wasn't it? Yeah, that was a business meeting. That's still live. Homeland Security. Oh, give me a sec. Give it. Yeah, oversight of the Department of Homeland Security.
Taxpayers fund.
And guess what? We can actually hear this and fast forward. This is the CISA, TSA, and S&T. What the fuck is S&T? S&T banking? Is that what that is? No. Investment banking. Yeah. S&T Bank. Okay. How do they play into this? The cybersecurity, transportation, and bank. Well, okay. So cybersecurity, transportation, and banking. That's what this one's about. All right. Go at 1.5.
Hearings conduct oversight of the Department of Homeland Security and assess priorities for calendar year 2026 for the Cybersecurity, Infrastructure Security Agency, Transportation Security Administration, and Science and Technology Directorate. Chair reminds all members that the chair will enforce the rules of decorum at all times and urges all members to be mindful of their remarks. I now recognize myself for an opening statement. Good morning, and thank you to our witnesses for being here. Today we are conducting oversight of the Department of Homeland Security, focusing on TSA, CISA, and the Science and Technology Directorate, otherwise known as S&T. Nearly 25 years ago, 19 hijackers exploited significant vulnerabilities in our commercial aviation system. The Al-Qaeda terrorist attack on September 11, 2001 killed nearly 3,000 Americans and changed our nation forever. Our transportation system, among other critical systems, demanded accountability and hardened security to ensure a horrific event would never happen again. In response, Congress enacted the Aviation and Transportation Security Act to establish TSA and grant DHS flexible operational authority, allowing us to prepare for and respond to an ever-evolving threat landscape. Over the past 2 decades, threats facing our nation's aviation, transportation, and critical infrastructure have only risen. Today's risks are far more diverse, complex, and technologically advanced, and the motivations and methods of our adversaries have shifted rapidly with emerging technologies. Threats posed by lone wolf actors, radicalized individuals, and homegrown extremists have only increased. Transnational criminal organizations pose a significant threat by exploiting the transportation system to traffic humans, drugs, weapons, and illicit goods. Traditional terror tactics have given way to more sophisticated methods of attack. Cybersecurity is now at the forefront of these conversations, with adversaries attempting to take down our transportational systems through digital means. Similarly, the potential for coordinated attacks using drones to disrupt flights or deliver explosives represents a new and growing frontier of security threats. Sophisticated foreign adversaries, including the People's Republic of China, Russia, Iran, and North Korea, are actively targeting our digital systems that underpin essential services, economic activity, and national security. These state-directed campaigns are designed to position hostile actors for strategic disruption and coercion. Rapid advances in emerging technologies, including AI, are further accelerating the scale, speed, and sophistication of these cyber operations. In cyberspace, the United States is operating in a highly contested environment. Congress created CISA to serve as the nation's lead civilian cyber defense agency to meet this reality. CISA's responsibilities included securing federal civilian networks, supporting owners and operators of critical infrastructure, and coordinating with the private sector to reduce systemic cyber risk. That mission has grown more consequential as adversaries become more capable, patient, and willing to operate inside U.S. networks for extended periods of time. CISA's authorities extend across a variety of sectors, including energy, water, communications, healthcare, transportation, and financial services. This committee has been clear about CISA's expectations. It is not a policy, think tank, nor messaging agency. Its mandate is operational. When that mandate is carried out with discipline and focus, the agency earns bipartisan support in Congress and confidence from the industry. When it does not, that confidence erodes. Over the past year, CISA has faced real operational challenges. Those challenges include rapidly evolving threat landscape, the scope of the agency's responsibility in an increasingly digital world, and organizational adjustments. As with any agency responsible for our national security, it is critical these changes do not degrade readiness, responsiveness, or mission delivery. This committee supports the administration's goal of aligning department resources towards urgent homeland security priorities. At the same time, workforce continuity, clear leadership, and mission readiness are essential to effective cyber defenses.
I'm praying that
professionals at CISA are some
members
of the most experienced cybersecurity experts in the federal government, and preserving that expertise must remain a priority.
Subpoenas
We're
in
encouraged by the
Minnesota,
President's decision to
Minneapolis,
renominate Mr.
St.
Sean
Paul.
Planky as Director of
I'm
CISA.
so ready to
Mr.
see
Planky is a
something.
respected national security professional
I
with
am
decades
too.
of experience. His confirmation provides long-needed stability and strategic direction at
I
CISA,
am
which has
too.
operated without it for far too long.
Because
This committee's oversight of CISA is
y'all
grounded in
know
respect for its mission
I've
and
already
confidence in its
been on the
workforce.
edge for everything.
Lastly,
here,
several major
so,
high-profile events are set to unfold across the U.S.,
everybody's
including
calling
the
for fucking
2026
war
FIFA World
now.
Cup, America 250,
Everybody's
and the
calling for
2028
everybody's death.
LA Olympics. These events will only increase
And
the volume
like I
and complexity
said,
of threats
me and
facing the
mine
homeland,
will
and
survive.
DHS must be prepared to respond. Trump administration, to its credit, has taken strong steps to prioritize strengthening our nation's security systems. However, modernization of TSA, CISA, and S&T will require sustained congressional support. As chairman of Homeland Security Committee, it is my priority to ensure we support and invest in the next generation of technologies and adopt highly innovative and effective security approaches given the challenges facing the department and our country. This hearing provides an important opportunity to assess how TSA, CISA, and S&T are carrying out their missions. We look forward to hearing from our witnesses and engaging in constructive dialogue about how Congress can effectively support security, operational excellence, and accountability across the department.
Give
I also
us
want to take this
more
opportunity to
money.
thank
You
our
know that's what they're gonna
DHS
say.
personnel
Why are
who
you
keep us safe
even
every day,
asking?
including our dedicated cybersecurity professionals, our innovative researchers and scientists, and our brave TSA security officers who work on the front lines to protect the traveling public and who continue to do so even without pay during the nation's longest shutdown last year. I'm confident that by working together, we can break through the challenges of today and prepare for threats of tomorrow. The stakes for the American people could not be higher. Thank you. I now recognize the ranking member, the gentleman from Mississippi, Mr. Thompson, for 5 minutes for his opening
comment that doesn't show.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I want to thank you for holding today's
There it is.
hearing on oversight of the Department of Homeland Security. Congressional Republicans' oversight of the Trump administration has been dismal this Congress.
Make sure they hit
Republicans
the
have
nerve
had
in
administration
American fraud
witnesses
and the
before this
demonic
committee
asswipes
the
are
fewest
screwed.
times in any recent administration's first year.
I mean, the people
Most of
are
that was
seeing
on
it
the
now.
watch of the prior chairman, who was, to my favorite phase of his, derelict in his duty to bring
supply
Trump
chains are
administration
going to be
officials
an
before the committee.
incredibly major
This hearing
issue.
is a step in the right
People will
direction.
be
The
fighting
Trump administration
for the
has created
supply
serious
chain.
issues at TSA, CISA, and DHS, S&T that need to be addressed. Committee Democrats
Remember,
are committed
you're
to
also
taking a
talking
hard
about
look
people that
at
have
those
no
issues.
idea where
From
their
President
food
Trump's
comes from,
slashing
like
the
grocery
CISA
stores
workforce
either.
to Secretary Kristi Noem's
then again,
unlawful rescinding union
once
rights
they
for
figure that out,
frontline
it will be
transportation
incredibly
security
violent
officers
to take
through the
it.
administration cutting programs that leverage university-based research to address critical homeland security challenges. But none of those things can be the sole focus of our oversight right now, because President Trump and Secretary Noem have weaponized DHS against the American people and are wreaking havoc in Minneapolis and other communities across this country. It's an absolute disgrace that ICE isn't here today in wake of the shooting death of Renee Good at the hands of an ICE agent. Mr. Chairman, as you know, I've asked for ICE Acting Director Lyons to appear at today's hearing.
This is
I ask
oversight
unanimous
of the
consent
Homeland
to
Security, and this
insert in the record
motherfucker's
my
like,
letter
why
to you
are we
dated January
working?
14,
Somebody got shot.
2026, requesting Acting Directors Lyons appear before the committee without delay. I want to thank you for issuing that invitation, but committee Democrats and I are outraged that ICE refused to appear today. Ms. Good was a wife.
We're talking
mother of 3
about
young children,
oversight of
a devout
Homeland
Christian,
Security,
and a
but
US
ICE
citizen.
ain't here for
We all
us to
seen
yell
the
at.
shooting video with our own eyes. Ms. Good certainly did not deserve
Banking,
to be killed by her own
transportation.
government.
What is it?
She should be alive
banking,
today.
transportation,
Mr. Chairman,
and
at this time,
cybersecurity.
I ask for a moment of silence.
But ICE ain't
in
here
memory
for us
of
to
Renee
yell
Good.
at. I'm a black man, and I'm so pissed off.
Thank you.
I mean,
Mr. Chairman, in the wake of Ms. Good's
screw
killing,
what I did
ICE
fucking
has an obligation
for
to appear
the January
and
6th
answer
committee, right?
numerous questions. Her tragic killing
Screw how
needs
I
to be
made
thoroughly
up
investigated,
shit.
and
Screw
everyone
how we
involved, from the
fabricated
ICE officer
fucking
who pulled the trigger
evidence.
to the president and
Screw
secretary
how
who
we
sent
just
them to Minneapolis,
encrypted it
must
all
be held accountable.
and then deleted
DHS
it.
also needs to
Screw
be held
all that
accountable
shit.
for its
ICE ain't here
out-of-control
for us to
immigration
yell at.
operation, creating chaos in communities like Los Angeles, Chicago, New Orleans, and Minneapolis, terrorizing people from all walks of life and hurting U.S. citizens and immigrants alike. Mr. Chairman, in order to ensure
I don't give a
that
fuck
ICE
about
appears before the
immigrants,
committee,
faggot.
pursuant to
What
Clause
about the
2J1
citizens you
of House
hurt with that
Rule
January 6th committee
11,
bullshit?
I'm providing
What about
you
that?
with a letter signed by every Democratic member.
What about
of
the
committee
war you
requesting
waged on the
testimony from
American
Acting
people
Director
over that
Lyons.
shit?
I ask unanimous consent
What
that
about
this Minority
that?
Day letter be submitted for the record. Thank you. Mr. Chairman, I understand that you
And then
intend
we're gonna
to hold a
act like you
series
didn't do
of
anything?
oversight hearings with
We're gonna
DHS
act like this
officials.
is okay.
I look forward to ICE being before the committee at our next hearings. Democrats insist on that. Never has oversight and accountability been more necessary than it is now. President Trump and Secretary Noem are doing real damage to this country and to the department that was stood up in the wake of 9/11 to protect Americans from future attacks. Unfortunately, President Trump and Secretary Noem have established a corrupt, above-the-law culture at
I can't believe
DHS,
it's
and
gonna be
Noem has
Benny
enriched
Thompson that spins
herself
me
and
out
her
today.
allies
God damn.
at taxpayers' expense. She has awarded multiple no-bid contracts to close associates and siphoned $240 million of taxpayers' money to companies connected to her top advisor and close confidant, Corey Lewandowski, as well as to her spokesperson husband.
We're not here to talk
She
about the
fast-tracked the
fraud
contract
we
worth
know we've
almost
let
$1 billion
happen.
to a
We're
company
here to
led by a
talk
Trump
about
donor.
Kristi
And
Noem
she's living
and
rent-free
Donald Trump.
in the U.S. Coast Guard housing designated for military members. She has also
What the
abused her power
goddamn
as secretary.
fuck?
She's acknowledged cherry-picking.
Anybody that follows these
which
motherfuckers
court
are so
orders
goddamn
the
fucking
department
stupid.
will comply with,
They can't be
contrary
called
to the rule
human.
of law.
They really
She's used
can't.
access to disaster funds to punish political foes, illegally withholding congressionally authorized disaster funds. She has obstructed congressional oversight, barring members from visiting ICE detention facilities and refusing to respond to oversight letters and requests. In short, she has enriched herself, abused the power of her office, obstructed congressional oversight, and violated
Never
her
mind
oath
the
of
shit
office
we
to
do.
the
Let's look at
Constitution.
the shit you
Never
do.
has oversight of the Department of Homeland Security been more important,
Dude.
and never has holding an administration accountable been more necessary. Be assured that accountability is coming. Accountability is coming, Mr. Chairman, and I yield back.
Is that a threat?
Gentleman yields back. Other members of the committee are reminded that opening statements may be submitted for the record. I am
that a
pleased to have highly
threat?
distinguished panel witnesses before us today. And as the
Accountability
ranking member knows,
is
we have
coming.
talked about
That
doing
they've
other
been
oversight
talking
hearings,
about
and that is the
arresting
intent of this committee.
imprisoning
to
and
do what
even
Congress is meant to do
killing
and
anybody
conduct
who
oversight.
speaks
And,
out
I'm
against
pleased today
them.
that we have our
Accountability
first panel
is
of
coming. I feel like
DHS
that's a
officials
fucking
here.
threat.
DHS is a big department, and there should be several of these, and we will have several of these. Pursuant to Committee Rule 8C, I ask that the witnesses please rise and raise their right hand. You solemnly swear that the testimony you will give before the Committee on Homeland Security of the United States House of Representatives will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God. All right, let the record reflect that the witnesses have answered in the affirmative. Thank you all. Please be seated. I would now like to formally introduce our witnesses. Mr. Pedro Allende is Undersecretary for Science and Technology, leading the department's research and development efforts and serving as science advisor to the Secretary. Previously, he served as Florida's Secretary of Management Services and has held roles at DHS and the Department of Energy and Labor. Mr. Madhu Gautam serves as the Acting Director and Deputy Director for the Cybersecurity Infrastructure Security Agency, a role in which he helps to lead CISA's mission to understand, manage, and reduce risk to cyber and physical infrastructure. Prior to his appointment, he served as the Commissioner and Chief Information Officer for South Dakota's Bureau of Information and Technology. Ms. Ha Nguyen McNeil is Deputy Administrator of the Transportation Security Agency, a role in which he is performing the duties of administrator to advance TSA's mission to secure the nation's transportation system and improve operational effectiveness. Previously, she served as acting president, commercial, and vice president of digital identity growth at Big Bear AI. Ms. McNeil.
Jennifer, I'm going to be completely honest with you. What's going to happen is they're going to drop a lot of information about how the elections really are fucked up. Just like they did with the Dobbs decision. They're going to drop all of that. They're going to give you absolutely no time to fix shit because we all know what's going to happen instead of everybody actually trying to come together and saying, hey, let's fix this fucking shit. They're not going to do that. They're just going to go out there and scream and yell and rage and riot. And, oh, we told you everything's rigged, blah, blah, blah. Nothing's going to get done. It's all going to be hasty as fuck because it's all going to have to happen at the very last fucking minute. Your election laws in every state are going to be even more fucked up than they are now. There's going to be a lot more backdoor dealings. There's going to be a lot more sneaky shit in every single one of these bills. And if you don't pass it, the election can't go forward. That's this administration's doing. It's coming. They're going to fuck it up even goddamn worse than it already is now. The exit for this war, civil war we were in, that was about 7 years ago. But when they started coming after your kids for this transgender shit, we passed that exit. There was no coming back after that. They went after children. We're here. And it's going to get even more fucked up. Why? Because instead of worrying about our lives, they're worrying about their political power. And that's left and fucking right. Now, there are some that, yes, actually do want to try to help, but they're drowned out from everything else. It's going to get bad because they will have to tear apart democracy to save it. Remember? It's going to get bad because they want to tear down everything and rebuild it with whatever fucked up mind frame that comes to mind at that very fucking moment. Meanwhile, we'd rather just preserve what we got, clean it the fuck up, and make it better. To stop the bullshit from within, which is a bigger, daunting task than anybody will ever fucking realize, because you'd have thousands upon thousands of people involved in this. There's no way you can cut out all corruption from it. Not a damn way. But they want to burn everything down, install just a few fucking people that can do whatever the fuck they want, and expect there to be no corruption. You're handing all power over to a few people, and you expect everything to run correctly and smoothly. It's fucking retarded. They're going to fuck it up yet again with this election shit. I guarantee you. And there ain't no fucking way, unless Republicans turn out in fucking mass, which ain't gonna happen, there ain't no way in hell that Democrats will lose. Look who's in the streets. Look who's raging the fuck out. And look who actually fucking cares about the events that are happening now. Republicans went back to sleep. They listen. They just don't care because they think, the right people are in. Everything's going to be okay now. Huh. We're at war with ourselves. Meanwhile, the government's fighting for power to control everything, just so either side can control you. It's a fucked up time we live in, isn't it? It seems like everything I was saying was actually coming true. A short civil war that'll move quickly into a revolution, all while World War III rages out all around us. Y'all thought I was just being hyperbolic. Here we are.
Also served as TSA Chief of Staff from 2017 to 2019. Thank all the witnesses for being here today. I now recognize Mr. Allende for 5 minutes to summarize his opening statement.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Chairman Garbarino, Ranking Member Thompson, and distinguished members of the committee, thank you for the opportunity to appear before you today. I am honored to serve as Undersecretary for Science and Technology at the Department of Homeland Security, and I appreciate the committee's continued oversight and engagement with our work. The Science and Technology Directorate plays a unique role within DHS. We are the department's research, development, test, and evaluation organization, responsible for anticipating emerging threats, identifying technology opportunities, and ensuring that DHS components have access to solutions that are timely, effective, and responsible.
Hey, I've been
Our
telling
work is
you.
grounded in the simplest measure of success,
I'm down to
whether
put his hand
technology transitions
around just
into the
like
real world
Obama
use,
did.
of
course.
effectuated,
He's
and
fucking
whether they
Muslim.
measurably improve
Would
mission
you
outcomes.
expect him to put his
In my short
hand on
tenure
the
as
Bible?
Undersecretary, I've focused on listening
Would
to the
you
operators
trust that even
across the
more?
department to understand where technology is helping today, where it can
Don't
help
burst my
fill
bubble.
certain
I'm
gaps.
only happy in my
Those
bubble.
conversations reinforce a consistent message. Technology must be operationally relevant. It must be rigorously tested
I don't
and
know what
delivered
to
with
tell you
discipline.
because that's going to happen.
Research alone is not enough. Capability must reach the operators in the field. To meet that standard, S&T works closely with the components. From the earliest stages of development, and we assess emerging threats, evaluate existing commercial solutions, and apply systems engineering and test
I
and
get you.
evaluation to reduce risk before acquisition
I'm
decisions are made. When a private sector solution
For
can
me,
meet mission
having
needs,
hope for
that is our
something
preference.
is a good
we
thing.
prioritize adopting those solutions
But being
and adapting them
prepared for the
in order to accelerate
worst,
delivery to the field.
that's
and,
an even better
frankly,
thing.
to steward taxpayer dollars effectively and responsibly. At the same time, the threat environment facing our homeland is increasingly dynamic and technology-driven. From unmanned aircraft systems to cyber-enabled threats to risks to critical infrastructure, S&T's role is to look ahead while supporting today's operations. And that means engaging with industry, with academia, national laboratories and FFRDCs, and interagency partners to ensure that DHS remains prepared for the future without losing focus of today's challenges. Ultimately, my goal as Undersecretary is to ensure that S&T remains a trusted partner to DHS components, one that delivers capabilities that work in the field, supports informed decision-making, and strengthens the security of the American homeland. I look forward to discussing our work with the committee this morning and to answering your questions. Thank you.
The gentleman yields back. I now recognize Mr. Kamakala for 5 minutes to summarize his opening statement.
Chairman Garbarino, Ranking Member Thompson, and members of the committee, thank you for the opportunity to appear before you today. My name is Madhu Guttumukala, and I serve as the Acting Director of the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency, or CISA. Before joining the federal government, I oversaw statewide technology and cybersecurity operations for the state of South Dakota. Earlier in my career, I worked across the wireless, telecom, and health technology sectors. Those experiences shaped how I approached the role with a practical understanding of how state and local governments.
I'll never understand you, America. I will never fucking understand you. How in the fuck can you have some of the best in cybersecurity and our military and everything like that? But yet when they get out into the civilian life, these are the people that... Look, I get it. Call centers, yes. How much you want to bet I could probably find somebody in the IT field that is American that would dog walk the fuck out of this motherfucker? As far as IT field goes, I guarantee you I could find people better. How the cyber America? What the fuck are you doing? Oh, what is this about diversity, equity, and inclusion? Okay, well, let's just let everybody that doesn't really have an allegiance to this country control this country. Fucking hell.
And critical infrastructure operators experience risk on the ground. I'm honored that the President and Secretary Noem asked me to lead this agency. Since arriving last May, I have been proud to see the professionalism, talent, and deep mission commitment of the CISA workforce each and every day. I'm also grateful for this committee's continued bipartisan support and for the authorities Congress has provided to enable CISA's mission. Over the past year, and under President Trump's leadership and Secretary Noem's guidance, CISA has remained squarely focused on the mission Congress intended when the agency was established, that is, supporting, strengthening, and securing the nation's critical infrastructure from cyber and physical threats. That mission is operational and outcome-driven. Every day,
I will say this. Yes, we are paying more attention to that shit. However, fuck ass. Why the fuck is some of our shit still using floppy drives? Yes, America. We are still on 70s technology shit. In a lot of our infrastructure, we still use floppy drives. Now, the only justification for being able to use that is you can't hack it. However, what the fuck is 1.44 megabytes left? What the fuck was that? What was that? That 8-inch floppy drive? That 512 kilobyte one? I think that's what that was. What the fuck was that? What do we have that can fit on that anymore? You can't even fit a fucking song on one of them anymore. Oh, this is the code they run off of. The code that our infrastructure runs off of can fit on a 1.44 megabyte floppy drive. What the actual goddamn fuck are we doing, America? Oh, shit.
CISA's people work to protect the financial systems, safeguard pipelines, and ensure the digital and physical infrastructure Americans rely on can withstand disruption.
This is a little
low. In 2025, CISA made meaningful progress in an increasingly aggressive threat environment. We strengthened our ability to detect and respond to cyber threats, deepened collaboration across government and industry, and shared threat information and mitigation guidance faster and in more integrated ways. As a result, CISA supported more than 4,000 victims of cyber incidents, published over 1,600 cybersecurity products, shared more than 2,500 threat and incident reports, and triaged over 30,000 incidents through our 24/7 operations center. These efforts reduced real-world impact and helped ensure Americans could continue to rely on the essential services. As the operational lead for federal civilian cybersecurity, CISA worked very closely with departments and agencies to promote risk-based policies and best practices to respond to the evolving threats. In 2025, we issued 3 emergency directives to address critical vulnerabilities and cyber
this
threats.
is completely
We
fucking
also
stupid
scaled the
in every
endpoint
bit of the way.
detection and response technology to over 60 agencies and
Even
more
with
than
these
500,000
H-1B visas and
endpoints,
everything, it's
giving
still like,
analysts
dude, what the fuck are you even
near-real-time
trying to do with
visibility
this
to
shit?
detect and stop those advanced threats. In early 2025 alone, CISA blocked more than 1.7 billion malicious connections on federal networks, including 142 million targeting the critical infrastructure. CISA also continued delivering security directly to the state, local, tribal, and territorial governments, a mission that is very personal to me given my time serving in the state level. With a nationwide presence across the 10 regions, we provided tailored training, technical assistance, and planning
I can't
support,
believe it was
recognizing that
Benny
many of our
Thompson that
partners
got me a little
operate
bit
with limited
heated. Like,
budgets and
that
staff.
never happens.
To help address this, in
Just
August
hearing his
2025,
stupid
the
ass go
Department of
off,
Homeland
though.
Security released funding opportunities under the state and local cybersecurity grant program and the tribal cybersecurity grant program, making available over $100 million to help reduce the cybersecurity risk nationwide. Physical security remains a no-fail mission for the agency. In fiscal year 2025, CISA delivered more than 1,000 counter-IED and risk mitigation training courses to over 26,000 participants, strengthening the preparedness, awareness, and also the response capabilities. We are also actively preparing for the major national and international events, including the FIFA World Cup, America 250, and the 2028 Olympic Games. In April, CISA convened more than 730 participants from over 40 agencies at the Lincoln Financial Field for a full-scale exercise of the World Cup. That exercise produced concrete improvements in coordination, communication, and public safety. As we enter 2026, CISA is executing a mission-first approach. We are launching targeted initiatives to close the most pressing risk gaps facing the critical infrastructure, particularly where cyber threats intersect with real-world consequences. We are prioritizing what works, eliminating duplication, and ensuring that every product and service directly advances CISA's regulatory mission and aligns with the administration's goals of efficiency, accountability, and impact.
A lot.
This includes
Of course,
incorporating
I
the
didn't change
industry
my number and
and
everything,
congressional
but those
feedback
actually
into
dropped
the
a lot
final
for me
rule
when
for
they
the Cyber
started
Incident
finding
Reporting
those
for
cell
Critical
phone
Infrastructure Act.
cells all
Also
over the place.
includes
The ones that
modernizing
held it.
how we engage with critical infrastructure partners.
Shut the fuck up, dude. You're getting me all fucked up here. I can't even listen to this dude. I'm serious. But those cell phone network things that they were finding in New York and all that were holding like 160,000 numbers or something like that for every bank. Yeah, once those started to be cut down, once those started coming down, that shit did stop. I don't get them anymore because I changed my number. I was getting like 60, 70, 80 a day. The same fucking shit. They would call me while being on the phone with me. I had one so pissed off that he was actually talking about leaving India before we dropped nukes on it. It was fun. Ronnie, I have a US dot number public info. Oh shit. All right, let's get back. Can we skip past this dude, please?
Thank you for the evening, Chairman Garbarino, Ranking Member Thompson, and distinguished members of the committee.
Let me go ahead.
Thank you for the invitation to
up.
testify before you today on behalf of the Transportation Security Administration. I'm honored to be here and grateful for the longstanding and productive partnerships TSA shares with this committee and Congress. I would like to start by thanking TSA employees for their unrelenting efforts day in and day out to secure the nation's transportation systems. TSA is an agile security agency embodied by a dedicated and professional workforce that work around the clock to outmatch an increasingly sophisticated and dynamic threat. TSA's greatest assets is its people, and I want to sincerely thank them. From our transportation security officers and canine handlers to our federal air marshals, these men and women embody the agency's core values. They work through the longest government shutdown in American history, many without pay and experiencing personal financial hardships. Their commitment to the TSA mission and to the traveling public
I
is
will give it to
unparalleled.
them. I will give it to them.
Under the
Those
leadership
ones
of
that
President
stuck
Trump
it
and
out for a
Department of Homeland
fucking month.
Security Secretary Kristi Noem, TSA is laser
by the way,
focused
what
on
up,
delivering
Neuro?
for the American people. The upcoming World Cup, America 250, and 2028 Olympics present an enormous opportunity to boldly transform transportation security in the United States and usher in President Trump's vision for a new golden age of travel. Achieving these priorities starts with deploying upgraded, state-of-the-art technology to our over 430 commercial airports nationwide, focusing on our core mission of transportation security and harnessing our collective investment power and innovation through robust public-private partnerships. Last year, passenger volumes at airports reached record highs, recording 8 out of the top 10 busiest days in TSA's history. In 2025, TSA screened 907 million passengers, 480 million checked bags, and 2.1 billion carry-on bags. With the transportation sector remaining a top target for bad actors and continued year-over-year passenger volume growth, it is more critical than ever to have a technologically advanced, seamless, and secure aviation system. I would like to thank the committee for its strong support of the agency's critical aviation security programs, including 2 I would like to highlight. First, the Screening Partnership Program, through which TSA is working closely with airports and industry to incentivize investment in more tailored, innovative solutions to strengthen security. And second, the One-Stop Security Pilot Program, which significantly improves international aviation security and streamlines the transfer process for passengers inbound to the US with a connecting flight. In addition to strong partnerships, we must invest in modernizing our security technology. One avenue to achieving this is for Congress to expand the amount and scope of the Aviation Security Capital Fund. Starting in 2004, Congress authorized the first $250 million in revenue collected each year from the passenger security fee to go to TSA's capital fund to be used for checked baggage technology. That amount has not been adjusted or raised in 21 years, with the next $1.6 billion in the fee revenue going to annual national deficit reduction. If Congress were to return the fund collected to be used for its intended purpose, passenger security, and expand it to include checkpoint technology, TSA could significantly shorten its technology deployment timeframes, improving both security and the passenger experience. TSA is committed to making the airport experience smooth and stress-free for the traveling public, including military personnel and American families traveling with children. Last year, we established the Serve with Honor, Travel with Ease program, which provides screening lanes for active duty military personnel and their families, as well as the Families on the Fly program, which dedicated lanes for families. With the strong leadership of President Trump and Secretary Noem, coupled with continued support from Congress and industry partners, we can transform aviation security and return America to being the world's #1 travel destination. Chairman Garbarino, Ranking Member Thompson, and distinguished members of the committee, it is a privilege to testify before you today. I thank you for your support of TSA and look forward to your questions.
Thank you, Ms. McNeil. The committee I will now recognize myself for 5 minutes of questions, but I want to, because it's an oversight hearing and I want to make sure everybody can ask their questions. I will entertain unanimous consent at the end, like we did last time, so we will accept them all, just we want to do it at the end, so there's enough time for everyone to ask questions, because we do have a 2 o'clock, very important 2 o'clock hearing that Chairman Guest is running, so I want to make sure that that starts on time as well. So I will start. Dr. Ghana-McCalla, there are here now
something more important than your own fucking hearing?
There's been some major shakeups at CISA, specifically with some RIFs, and there's been a lot of changes. But the agency still remains responsible for defending the federal civilian networks, supporting state and local partners, and coordinating with critical infrastructure sectors under sustained targeting by foreign adversaries. I have said it publicly, I know a lot of other members on this committee have said publicly, that any organizational restructuring must reinforce CISA's ability to execute its core mission and should be done so in coordination with Congress. There have been reports that there are planned reorganization efforts for CISA. Can you please describe what, if any, organizational changes you as acting director are planning to make in the months ahead, and if there are any that you have already done?
Chairman Garbarino, thank you for the question. I want to start by saying that CISA is trying to get back on its mission, which is protecting the critical infrastructure security from physical and cyber threats. CISA is a young agency, and we have grown, and as we continue to mature, and as we are rescoping, as you have suggested, sir, we do have a lot of changes in the last year, but we do not have or planned any organizational changes, and but we are continuing to look at how we rescope our existing work that we have, and so that we can get back on our mission of protecting the critical infrastructure. And if there is any organizational changes, I will assure that we will communicate with you.
So as of now, you don't have any planned reorganizational changes that will be coming to CISA?
That's correct, sir.
Okay. And I just wanted to reiterate, you just said you will be sure to notify Congress of any intents to reorganize CISA.
Absolutely, sir. We want to make sure that our resources are aligned with the statutory authorities that you have given us, and we will make sure that we'll work with you.
Wonderful. Do you have the proper staffing?
That's hard. That's hard to listen
right
to
now
altogether.
to fulfill CISA's mission?
Chairman,
Trying to
thank you for the
change my
question.
Rumble name. Did it
We
work?
have the staff that we need for the mission
No,
that
it
we
did
want
not.
to protect.
I don't
So,
know if you can.
Yes.
I mean, you can
we have,
change,
and
like, the names of
any
channels
other
and everything like
situation we
that,
do
but
have, or regular
I don't know
attrition
if
we
it's
use
the
for hiding
accounting.
authorities to make
I
sure
don't
that
know how you
we
do
go
that.
back and get back to our mission, and we are protecting the nation every single day.
And you are in the process of hiring for specific positions right now?
We always use our hiring authorities that we have, sir, and we are making sure that we have the right skills and the right talent that we need across our mission areas.
Okay, thank you very much. I want to follow up also, the Cyber Incident Reporting Critical Infrastructure Act, or SIA, was signed into law nearly 4 years ago. I was one of the co-leads on it. And the final regulations were supposed to be in October of 2025. The deadline has now slipped to May 2026. I'm happy with that, actually, because a lot of us did not like what was coming out of the rulemaking. There was supposed to be, I remember the secretary last year said that there was going to be a possible ex parte process to update the rule. I just want to know where is CISA right now in the rulemaking? Has there been an ex parte process? Are they getting closer to the congressional intent that we had when we passed the bill originally?
Chairman Garbino, thank you for the question. The CIRCIA that you're referring to, the Cyber Incident Reporting for the Critical Infrastructure Act of 2022.
So they're still alive.
What it does, sir, is it requires the covered critical infrastructure entities to report any significant cyber incidents, ransomware payments to CISA, so the government can identify threats faster and assist victims more effectively, and be able to warn others before the attacks are spread.
I'm going to interrupt you because I'm running out of time, but I want to make sure. Is it on schedule to come out, and have you been working with the private sector to address the concerns that came out in the original rulemaking process?
Chairman Garbino, absolutely, we are working very hard to make sure that we are getting towards the closure line. We did not miss the deadline due to inaction. It was a deliberate decision driven by substance. Some of the key drivers are we have about 280 plus detailed public comments, and we have the stakeholder engagement that is ongoing and extensive. And we want to make sure that the protection for companies is there, and we are making sure that there is not a burden on the people that are making those requirements.
I appreciate it. I've run out of time. I now recognize the ranking member for 5 minutes of questions.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Kind of taking off on where you started off with respect to CISA staffing.
I'm going to try not to let it
Congressman
happen.
McCall and myself supported CISA becoming a part of DHS for all the right reasons. And you said there are no organizational changes, that you're able to accomplish the mission. How many vacancies do you have right now in CISA?
Sir, our headcount as of ranking member, thank you again, question for, we have about 2,400 plus employees at CISA, and we have the required workforce that does the mission support every day.
I need the numbers. How many are you short?
We have the normal attrition, like any other federal agency, sir.
You didn't even ask.
Which is 7.5% approximately this past year, and that is significantly less.
You stupid son of a bitch. You didn't even ask that goddamn question. You said, how many employees do you have? And he started answering, I need the numbers. The numbers of what? Oh, yeah. How many are you? And he led the January 6th committee.
Than the previous prior years, and as compared to the
Holy
other
shit.
Federal agencies as well. But in general, we have the required authorities to make sure that we go back to our hiring authorities and be able to hire the required talent.
I appreciate it, but your staff has been cut by 1/3. Is that not true?
Ranking Member Thompson, what we had is a workforce transition program, and people who left the organization, they participated voluntarily. And we have the required staff that is supporting the mission that we do.
I'm sure you're going to say that. I'm just trying to get to a number that you started with and what the president cut. I mean, it should be easy for you to just come up and say, I lost 1/3 of my people, but I'm able to accomplish the mission.
The third of those people were voluntary and the thing ended.
Let me
That's what he just said.
this. As of January 20th, 2025, our CISA workforce was 3,389 plus. At the end of December, we were at 2,389, and we have the workforce transition, like I said, and we have the normal attrition. But like I said, The way we are supporting back on mission is to make sure that we are protecting our critical infrastructure from physical and cyber threats, and our divisions are properly equipped, and we are making sure that we are aligning our existing resources to the rest
Thank you
of the
very
areas.
much. But you provided a November memo that said, contrary to what you're telling the committee. So we will send a letter to you asking for the specific numbers that you're short. And just tell us. That's the only thing. But this leads me to another issue, since you wouldn't
tell us how many
give
people
me the
they
number
cut just
that I
because.
asked. Are you aware that
so we
you
can blame Orange Man
reportedly
for some
failed the
stupid
counterintelligence polygraph test?
Ranking Member Thompson,
Thompson, you are not good at this in any fucking
I do
way.
not accept the premise of that characterization.
God damn, how are you
and
still
I'm not going
in
to discuss the
office?
testing outcomes or clearance matters in an open session.
Everybody
Those
just
issues are
thinks he's
handled
just
through
a
the
retarded
DHS
teddy
processes,
bear?
which are currently underway.
Well, I mean, he is a retarded
Did you
teddy
fail the
bear,
test, yes or no?
So like I said, I do not accept the premise of that characterization, and I understand why people ask that question, and I'm mindful that situations like this affect people, which is why I'm respecting the process and keeping the mission steady, sir.
Yeah, but you know, you're in a very sensitive area, and CISA is important to us, and I think we need to have people who are in that space that pass the standard test. So, I mean, we'll pursue that a little later, but I was just looking for a yes or no
What the fuck are you talking about?
answer.
The standard
if you took
test
the
of what?
and passed it, fine. If you didn't, that's a problem. But I can't get an answer one way or the other out of you, and we'll go forward with that. Are you aware?
This is fucking
of the Chief
absolutely
Information
goddamn retarded.
Officers at CISA that you are at present trying to get rid of or have gotten rid of?
Ranking Member Thompson, thank you for the question. Individual personal matters are not made, the decisions are not made in vacuum. It is a leadership level at the highest levels, and we work according to how we see the roles fit, but I'm not here to comment on.
I understand. Last question, Mr. Chairman. Are you aware of a skiff being planned and paid for by DHS to be built in South Dakota?
Ranking Member Thompson, thank you for the question. I don't know the full specifics of who is building, what is building, but I think it is not federally funded by us, which means we will probably be supporting in terms of like any other skiff that we have, irrespective of what the location is.
So you don't know anything about it?
My ex-husband is in the hospital
Yes, sir, of
with
course I know
dangerously high
that there
blood
is
pressure. Holy
propositions
shit.
for a skiff like any other location.
I hope he
Mr.
makes it
Chair, I'll
through.
follow up with some more questions for the witness.
My wife has high
Chair
blood
recognizes
pressure.
himself
I know what
for
it,
5 minutes.
I know how that
Let me just say
can actually fuck
first,
with somebody.
when I was chairman of this committee, 2015, we passed the Cyber Information Sharing Act. The ranking member and I did together. It's been a very bipartisan issue. 2018, we passed the Cyber Security and Information Security Agency permanent authorization. And the reason why I'm going through this legislative history, it's very important to know what is still authorized today and what is not. One of the most critical pieces of CISA, as we imagined in Congress, was to share information with the private sector, not only to the private sector, but from the private sector, which holds about 80% of the cyber threat information. Would you agree with that, sir?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So that was vitally important as the authors of this agency, and we had quite a battle with, I'd say, with House Intelligence over whether this should be warehoused under the National Security Agency, which is not a civilian agency to interact with the private sector. We thought a civilian agency would be the better fit. I like to think that we were right about that. But then the goal was to expand the capabilities so that you could meet those requirements. Do you feel that you have those capabilities today?
Sir, the CISA 2015, the Cybersecurity Information Sharing Act of 2015 that you're referring to, it provides the legal foundation for cyber threat information sharing between the federal government and the private sector, and it remains one of the most important authorities for defending the U.S. Critical infrastructure against increasingly sophisticated cyber threats.
Okay, so now let me go back to the authorizations, because this is really important for the committee members to know that now CISA, the agency, was permanently authorized, so there's no expiration. However, there is one on the Cyber Information Sharing Act, which was brought about by a compromise with various members who would not vote for it unless we put that expiration term in there. So as of now, it is no longer authorized. It was temporarily reauthorized in the CR, which will expire January 30th. So if I could correct myself, it will expire on January 30th of this year. Mr. Garbarino and Mr. Thompson introduced a reauthorization that passed in the Homeland Approach Bill, but did not go to the Senate. It is not in the Homeland Approach that we're voting on this week. My question to you is, while you still have appropriations to the majority, I think, of your agency, I think if not all, to not be authorized, to have a lapse in authorization at this point in time where the cyber threat is far greater today than when
Rhonda, Rumble Premium, it gives you the members only access to every single person that streams anything, members only to Rumble. If it says premium, you got it. It's not like paying for, just certain channels like on YouTube where you have to pay for this channel, have to pay for that, have to pay for this, have to pay. Nope, you get Rumble Premium, you get it all. That's the best part about it.
Mr. Thompson and I first created the agency and the Information
like
Sharing Act.
$10 a
In addition,
month
coupled with the World Cup FIFA events coming up, the Olympics and the anniversary or 250th anniversary of the Republic, how does that harm your efforts to protect the nation?
Congressman, thank you again. Like I said, I personally support, and DHS also supports the long-term reauthorization of the CISA 2015. And I understand that the act expires Jan 30th. And one of the strengths of CISA is the partnership and collaboration with the private sector. And the private sector understands that this will be extended through the continuing resolution. And like we have worked with Chairman Garbarino and the committee in the widespread information.
If I could, my time's going to expire, but this is not your fault. This is Congress's fault.
Jennifer, or not Jennifer, but Rhonda, we do have a locals, but we don't use it because unless you have like 1,000 people over there, then they only let you do like 30-minute streams at a time, and you only get like 3 or 4 a month. So really, what's the point to us unless we can do higher than that, Because we do, even at most, it's like an hour and a half. So I'd have to restart it every time. I'd just run out of things over there on locals to be able to stream with. I can add videos to it, but hey, we don't do videos. So I just don't see the point in locals yet.
And it's incumbent, I think the House has done its job, but the Senate has not done their job on this. And so it's vitally important, and this is a message to the Senate, that when we do pass this, again, that the Senate reauthorize your mission. Otherwise, your ability to collect 80% of the threat information from the private sector is gone. You're no longer authorized to do that by law. And so that is why that is so important, sir. And this has always, as Mr. Thompson knows, always been a bipartisan issue. I really hope, I don't have any doubt on my colleagues on the other side of the aisle or in the House, we're going to get this done. But the Senate, for the sake of the nation and our security, needs to act on this. It is highly irresponsible. And quite frankly, it's just downright dangerous what they're doing. And they're playing games with something that's very serious. And with that, I now recognize who's next in the queue. Yeah. Mr. Correa.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to thank the witnesses for being here today. Dr. Meadow, if I may, I wanted to follow up with some of the questions and thoughts, directions of the chairman and the ranking member. You said, correct me if I'm wrong, a third of your people have left voluntarily?
About 806 people, sir, yes.
Third. It was just stated from both sides of the aisle that the threat, cyber threat, is ever increasing. It's even worse now. When I go home, I get stories from local vendors that they've been hacked. I get stories that they're essentially being held ransom because somebody from outside the country has got to them.
Yeah.
From that level up to Colonial Pipeline, cyber threats everywhere. Your agency lost a third of their staff. We're about to vote on a bill that cuts your funding by about $270 million. Is that correct, sir? Yes, no, maybe? You're under oath, by the way.
Congressman, thank you. I appreciate
Yes or no?
I have to look, sir.
You haven't looked at it yet.
We have a president's budget of $2.5 billion.
Are we about to cut your budget by $270 million? Vote to do that. Are we, yes or no? Yes or no?
I don't have
We are. Just watch the votes the next couple of days. And yet you've said that you can still do your mission, your assignment to defend this country
and why are you
satisfactorily. Is that what you're saying?
Wasn't
yes or no?
part of the whole
yes or no? Do you need more resources?
Congressman, we are...
Yes or no? Do you need more resources, sir? You're under oath.
Congressman...
Can you ensure the...
Lou, you're losing this one, man. You're trying to make him say, just give me more money and everything will be okay. That's never been the fucking answer to any of this. Why are you pushing so hard for somebody to try to say that shit? What the fuck? But first of all, the CISA was behind a lot of the fucking spying on American citizens just because you motherfuckers wanted to check up on your ex-girlfriends. What the goddamn fuck are you talking about, sir? Holy shit. You're trying so fucking hard for a target that is well beyond the fucking pale here. You're trying to fucking hit a home goddamn run in fucking New York City while you're sitting in Los Angeles. It's not gonna happen, faggot.
Public of this country that based on all these cuts, you've lost a third of your personnel, we're about to cut your budget, that you can still do your job? Yes or no?
Congressman, thank you for the question.
Yes or no?
Sir,
thank you very much. I've got 2.5 minutes left. If you could answer that to me in writing later on, I'd appreciate it. Ms. McNeil, thank you for being here today.
No matter what he said.
Quick history.
No matter what he said, he didn't want to hear it.
Homeland Security. Department of Homeland Security was created as a result of 9/11. That cowardly attack on our country that cost us thousands of lives. We don't want to see that repeated again. If I remember correctly, hijackers, terrorists, broke into the cabin of a number of airline flights on that day, took command, control of airplanes, and used them as weapons against the United States. Is that correct, more or less?
That's correct.
Do you have the resources today to defend against something like that?
We do, sir. Since the establishment of TSA, we've taken a concerted, layered approach to aviation security.
Recently, if I may, reassignment of some of your personnel to ICE and CBP over the last year or so, is that correct? You've lost about 250 air marshals, air marshals who are randomly on airplanes, on commercial flights, to prevent another 9/11 from happening. Those folks are now assisting.
Wait. So these motherfuckers are tasked with sitting in goddamn planes to make sure there's no terrorist on it, right? Right? On the other hand, didn't a lot of fucking flights get canceled because there were no people working them, because people weren't actually taking flights? Didn't a lot of that shit just fucking happen? But we're supposed to keep them on deck and keep them paid so that there's 7 air marshals per flight now? What the fuck is this? Goddamn, you dumb son of a fucking bitch. You know, sometimes you're worth defending, but I can't defend a fucking thing on this, you retarded fucking cunt bag. Holy goddamn fuck. I guess we're just gonna get to a point to where airlines are just carrying air marshals all over the place, so the air marshals can be watching the air marshals to make sure that the air marshals aren't fucking terrorists. Like, goddamn, dude, you are fucking stupid. Holy shit.
In ICE removals. Does that not concern you? You think you're still okay doing your job of defending this great country against another hijacking attack?
Yes, we do, Congressman, and the federal air marshals today are more agile than at any time before.
Well, they're agile, but do you have the personnel to actually carry out your mission?
Yes, and they are deployed based on risk on our flights. They also offer ground-based security, and yes, they do support our colleagues across DHS to advance the national security and transportation security mission that includes
one of you fucking worthless cocksuckers just call his ass out for that.
If you can answer this question for me in writing, you're focused more on investment in technology. I like to focus on trained personnel. Sounds like we're cutting back in personnel and trying to focus more on technology. I think it's a combination of both. But if you can explain to me how we can assure this country, our citizens, that they are safer today than they were back in 9/11. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. My time is up and I yield.
Gentleman yields back. I now recognize the gentleman from Mississippi, Mr. Guess, for 5 minutes questions.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ms. McNeil, thank you for being here. Thank you for the dedicated men and women who serve under your command. Particularly want to thank you in light that those men and women work for a period of 6 weeks without being paid, as my colleagues on the other side of the aisle chose to shut down the federal government. But they continue to come to work. They continue to protect the traveling people. So thank you for their professionalism, for their dedication, for their hard work, particularly in a time where you talk about in the statistics that you gave that last year passenger volume reached record high. You say in your opening statement that 8 of the 10 busiest traveling days were last year, and that the men and women who serve under TSA, that they screened over 906 million passengers, 480 million check bags, and 2.1 billion carry-on bags, all for 6 weeks without getting paid, continuing to do their duty to the traveling public. You also mentioned in your opening statements some challenges, opportunities that lie ahead. Those include the 2026 World Cup, where we know that people will be coming from across the globe to America to enjoy soccer in the World Cup being hosted here. America 250 also next year. And then 2028, we know that the Olympics will be held in California. And once again, we will have individuals coming from across the globe here, coming to America to enjoy those events. And so I want to talk a little bit about, and you mentioned this in your statement, I know this is something that is near and dear to the chairman, the passenger security fee diversion. For now some 20 years, we've seen a diversion of those funds that were originally set up, $5.60 for a one-way ticket, $11.20 for a round-trip ticket, for reinvestment back into aviation security. We know that some 20 years ago, before most of us were here in Congress, that a decision was made to divert some of those fees. And that diversion now totals roughly $1.6 billion a year. Also in your statement, not only we talk about the diversion of those fees, but we talk about the Aviation Security Capital Fund, which also was established some 20-some-odd years ago. Originally, $250 million was set aside in revenue to screen luggage that is checked by passengers, and we've seen that that number has not increased now for 20 years. You talk about the fact that we are in need of, returning those diverted fees back to TSA, putting that money back into aviation security, which is what it was created for. And you also talk in your opening statement about the need to increase the Aviation Security Capital Fund. So I want to give you just a minute, if you could, to expound on both of those.
Absolutely. And Congressman, I thank you for recognizing the workforce, because seeing them turn up day in and day out throughout that government shutdown was nothing short of inspiring. And they kept our skies safe for the traveling public, and did so with absolute commitment to the TSA mission.
You knew you weren't
It is our
getting paid and you
responsibility
still did
to
the
ensure that
job
they have the
anyway.
best tools at their
Holy
disposal to
shit.
do the job that we are asking them to do. And that is why investment in technology
That
is so
is
critical.
actually fucking
We are
amazing.
facing
I will give
year-over-year
it to
volume
them
growth at our checkpoints in
for that
infrastructure-constrained environments. The only way that we're going to be able to maintain our security posture and improve our security posture and deliver an increasingly improved passenger experience is through that combination of our human talent and technology. And that is what we are looking to work with this Congress to do, to ensure that the Passenger Security Fund is used for those purposes. I would say that there are several different buckets of technology advancements that we would want to ensure that we're investing in. One is that cutting-edge screening technology at the checkpoint that we all experience when we fly through the airports, making sure that that is detecting threats adequately as we face an evolving adversary and threat environment. Second is around identity verification, right? That one of the cornerstones of our aviation security system is knowing who is coming through our checkpoints and doing that adequate vetting so we know who they are before they even show up. And then third is really bringing our checkpoint into the 21st century and providing that IT infrastructure so that we can really drive improvements on a continual basis to our checkpoints.
Ms. McNeil, thank you. My
No,
time
that's
is expired.
how
I
you
yield
answer
back.
the fucking question.
Gentleman yields back, and now recognize the gentleman from Michigan, Mr. Tanadar, for 5 minutes questions.
That was
Thank you,
actually
Chairman,
pretty
and thank you,
good.
Ranking Member, for this hearing. Ms. McNeil, I have the honor of representing Detroit Metro Airport,
Oh my fucking
Michigan's
god,
busiest
Thanadar.
airport and one of the largest
You can't
airline
even name
hubs
your
in the
fucking
world.
district you live in.
Given that
you
I represent Detroit, which
Shut up, dude.
prides itself on its long history of blue-collar contributions to our great nation, you must also know that I'm a strong supporter of unions, organized labor, and collective bargaining rights. In March, TSA announced it would be stripping the collective bargaining rights through the
trying
American
to campaign
Federation of
now?
Government Employees
What the fuck?
for TSA personnel, but was blocked by the courts. In December, TSA tried again to strip collective bargaining rights and were again blocked by the courts. Earlier last year, you were questioned regarding the role of TSA and if you believed that TSA should be privatized. You said that nothing is off the table. In July, TSA announced it would be seeking private sector assistance for the development and deployment of turnkey solutions for use at the airport security checkpoints. Many speculate that this announcement means that the TSA is seeking to replace its personnel with private sector security, a common union-busting tactics. Ms. McNeil, I have very little time, so just a yes or no question. Do you value the work of our hardworking TSA personnel?
Thank you, Congressman, for that question. Yes, absolutely. And in my opening statement, I stated that TSA's greatest assets are its people.
Now, if you believe that their work is so valuable, why are you seeking to make their jobs harder by getting rid of collective bargaining rights, which would help them with job security, safe working conditions, and ensuring accountability in the workplace?
The existence of a collective bargaining agreement is inconsistent with the mission that TSA has to perform and the agility with which we need to run this agency. And our employees know that. And actually, the accountability of ensuring that we don't have 200 personnel that are doing non-screening work is in place, and returning them to the checkpoint is actually better for our employees.
Well, look,
time and again.
Look, this is hardworking men and women.
Yes, they
they're
are.
taking. It's a very stressful environment. They do their best to work as
God
hard
damn, he's
as to
just
keep
an
America safe.
embarrassment all
Look, it is
around.
a fact that workforce morale and retention increased significantly since the Biden administration expanded bargaining rights. The move to end collective bargaining rights is wrong, and I look forward to the courts to continue to block these attempts to harm the workplace rights of our nation's workers. Now, while I appreciate the TSA workers working so hard, I kept hating a video that was kept showing every time I'm crossing the TSA line. Ms. McNeil, in October, a video of Secretary Noem blaming the government shutdown on Democrats aired at TSA checkpoints across the country.
But you can't understand
As
the
I
other
am sure you
motherfucker.
know, this was a blatant violation
This
of
means
the
this
Hatch
dude's
Act,
retarded.
which bars partisan activity using government resources. It also violates the Anti-Deficiency
I don't know
Act,
if it
which
does. I'm
prohibits
just gonna
federal
say it is.
agencies from spending funds beyond what Congress has appropriated since the TSA was operating without funds at the time. Ms. McNeil, why did you allow these blatantly political charged videos to play at TSA checkpoints across our country?
Our responsibility at TSA is
Wait. Wasn't there a contract that CNN had to be fucking playing at every airport, or was that MSNBC or something like that, had to be playing at every airport with a propaganda always on the fucking screens. So you're, what? Dude, are you fucking kidding me? They showed, they had blatant propaganda. Why did you show that? You've been doing it since TSA was a fucking thing.
In part to inform the traveling public of what they can expect when they arrive at our checkpoints. And during the longest government shutdown, that was absolutely necessary to ensure that they understood the environment that they were coming into and the facts behind that environment. And the Secretary is very supportive of the TSA workforce.
I have just a little bit of time.
You have no time. Gentleman's time has expired. Thank you. And I recognize the gentleman from Florida, Mr. Jimenez, for his 5 minutes of questions.
Thank you very much, and I'll try to keep this brief. Ms. O'Neill, have we ever had the capacity to put an air marshal on every single domestic flight in the United States?
The deployment of federal air marshals.
Yes or no? Have we ever had the capacity to put an air marshal on every single flight in the United States?
No, that is not.
Okay, that would be same as me as a fire chief, closing down a fire station every once in a while, then hoping a fire didn't happen in that area. So that's what I feel about the air marshal program. We're going to have a lot more conversation about the air marshal program in the future. I don't have time right now. Second thing, Mr. Gatu Mukala, I'm sorry if I butchered your name, sorry. Where does the Secretary of Homeland Security reside?
In the NCR region?
I think she's from South Dakota, okay? Don't you think that as a Secretary of Homeland Security, every once in a while she's going to need access to a skiff? Yes, thank you. All right, now back to Ms. O'Neill. I don't represent an airport. I actually ran one, okay? As a mayor of Miami-Dade County, I ran Miami International Airport. And so airport security is really important to me. We talk about passenger fees and all that, and if we use the schedule you have right now, by what year are we going to have the things that you think are vital to our nation's security installed in all our airports?
At the current pace of funding, Congressman, for our computed tomography technology, we're looking at 2042 and our credential authentication by 2049.
2049. I hope I'm alive. I don't know. It's going to get close. Okay, so how do they fund these security measures in Europe?
In Europe, it's a vastly different construct than here in the United States. The regulatory bodies set the standards and put the requirements on the airports to.
That's right. They put it on the airports. You know why they put it on the airports? Because they can get it done. All right? We're not going to get it done because we have a fiscal constraint. So let me tell you how an airport works. Right? An airport decide in the beginning, the budget. What happens is, what is it that we need in order to operate this airport? And there's a number. And then after that, they go, okay, how do we attain that number? Well, they attain that number through passenger fees, landing fees, concessions, et cetera, because there's revenue that comes into the airport, and then they balance.
Yeah.
So if we were to set the standards for what we believe we need to secure the American public, I think it would make a heck of a lot more sense for us to say the airports, because we're actually doing this for you, and the airport and the traveling public, et cetera, make it safe, which, by the way, if we make it unsafe and people don't travel by air anymore, it's an unbelievable economic impact on the United States. The #1 economic generator of Miami-Dade County is Miami International Airport. And I'm sure that in other communities around this country, the #1 economic generator is probably their airports. And I bet you, bottom dollar in Atlanta for sure. Okay, the #1 economic generator is the airport. Chicago probably too. New York, the 3 airports too. So why don't we use the European model? Why don't we tell the airports what they need to purchase? They will figure that into their budgets, finance it, and then give those assets over to us, which some airports do when they want to actually.
Why do we give them money if they're making all that fucking money and shouldn't have subsidies from the fucking federal government in the first goddamn place? Why? You're talking about giving private fucking companies government subsidies to continue to fucking run. Why? Well, you can make it cheaper when everybody pays for every single thing. They can make it cheaper that way. Everybody pays for every single thing with the TSA. Shouldn't it have been private companies that would have done it better instead of all the fucking fraud and bullshit that comes out of it?
Be a little bit ahead of the game. Isn't that correct?
We have great partnerships with airports across the country, and we have put in place several different ways for which airports can drive investment to their checkpoints. And we have a capability acceptance program where airports can essentially donate qualified equipment to TSA so that we can upgrade the equipment at the checkpoint. That, combined with appropriated funds and looking to improve programs like the Screening Partnership Program, allow us to provide options to airports on how to drive that investment. I'm a big believer in public-private partnerships. Like you said, airports are major economic engines of the community around them, and this should be an all-hands-on-deck approach, and we are an important part of that, and our partnerships are actually absolutely critical to advancing that.
And by the way, we divert a lot of what's supposed to be used for security to other purposes. The passenger security fee,
annually about $1.6 million.
right, which is supposed, which when I pay a passenger security fee, I expect it to be used for passenger security and not to help balance the federal budget, which is what we do here. All right, and so I don't think we're going to be able to solve that. And so, Mr. Chairman, I'm going to be introducing legislation to change the way that we fund security at the airports, more like the more like the European model.
They were sitting here saying, hey,
and
this
so
is
finally
fraudulent as
we can get the
fuck,
security
and now
that
it's
we
all
need at our
Somali
airports
run?
before the year
I wonder
2049.
why.
Thank you. I yield back.
Gentleman yields back. I now recognize the gentleman from Rhode Island, Mr. Magaziner, for 5 minutes of questions.
Thank you, Chairman. On a Saturday morning in Cicero, Illinois, a young couple got in the car with their 1-year-old child and drove to a Sam's Club to go grocery shopping. When they arrived, they saw a large law enforcement presence, some sort of an operation going on in the parking lot, and so they turned their car around to leave. As they were leaving the Sam's Club parking lot, this happened. Please show the first video.
Entry security. Yeah. Because the federal fucking government ain't paying for it anymore.
Of what appears to be pepper spray thrown by a federal agent into Rafael Veraza's car. He says he was just pulling out of the Cicero Sam's Club parking lot with his window rolled down when the spray hit Veraza on the side of his head.
Mama, you okay, Mama? You okay?
Seconds later, he realized his daughter, 1-year-old Ariana, was in the back seat, also battling the chemicals. Veraza says she couldn't open her eyes and struggled to breathe.
Well, maybe you shouldn't have been smart to fuck off.
I didn't know the effects of the pepper spray towards her.
Rafael says Ariana did not have to go to the hospital, but he did. He says the pepper spray hit him directly in the ear, which caused him to have a severe reaction with his asthma.
When I got to the hospital, my heartbeats were at 263 per minute.
Do you know?
Right. He got sprayed in the ear. And his asthma started acting up. Now, granted, look, pepper spray is a powerful shit. But you'd have had more of a goddamn argument to say you got sprayed in the eyes or sprayed in the mouth that sprayed me in my ear. And my lungs started to be agitated, you know, because that's what happens with pepper spray. Again, maybe you shouldn't have been smart enough to fuck off. Because I guarantee you, that's what happened. I'm just going out on a limb. I don't know. Never heard that one yet. But I guarantee you, that motherfucker was smart enough to fuck off, and they got tired of listening to him run his fucking cocksucker, and he got what he deserved. Just like everybody else that does this shit. They get what they deserve just because he's brown-skinned doesn't mean he gets to do whatever the fuck he wants to do. Just stop playing stupid.
How dangerous it is to spray pepper spray into a moving vehicle? Not only could that kill the people inside the car, it could kill other drivers and bystanders who might be hit by the vehicle. There is not a law enforcement agency in this country that teaches its officers to do that. In fact, in most law enforcement agencies, those officers will be fired. But not in Donald Trump's Department of Homeland Security. We don't know who these officers were or if they were disciplined in any way. All we know is that the White House keeps telling them that they have, quote, absolute immunity. Absolute immunity, pepper spraying a young family in a moving vehicle. And whenever we call attention to these kinds of abuses, the first thing the administration does is try to blame the victims. But this is a family of United States citizens. They weren't even protesting. They were just out to get groceries. And this keeps happening again and again and again. Show the second video, please.
Seth Magaziner, you are a fucking huge fucking
From our son's basketball game at Anderson Middle School.
As the night unfolded,
we started to see, lights and stuff.
One North Minneapolis family trying to make their way home.
Like even trying to leave, I couldn't go backwards, forwards. It was like I was just stuck.
Destiny and Sean Jackson, along with their 6 kids, had just left a nearby grocery store after the game when they turned onto Lyndale. Sean says they tried to take a side street after they saw the crowds.
There's nothing we can do if it's blocked off.
Sean and Destiny say they were stuck between crowds of protesters and law enforcement. When law enforcement tried to disperse the crowd,
all we heard was boom, and every airbag deployed.
They say a flashbang went off near their car as tear gas enveloped them.
And I was screaming to my oldest son, Sean, I'm like, get out, get out. Like, I can't, Mom, and I can't breathe.
Destiny says bystanders pulled her into a home to check on her as she screamed that her 6-month-old child was still in the car.
He was just like lifeless, like he had like foam like around his mouth, and you can see he had tears coming out his eyes. I was giving out to mouth, and I remember stopping and I said, I will give you all my breath till you get yours back, because.
So why are you attacking ICE agents with their children around? So you can sit there and cry about it and, oh, they're fucking horrible. They're Hitler motherfuckers because my children were there. Why were your children there while you were attacking ICE agents? What the goddamn fuck is your problem? Oh, yeah, that's right. You're a fucking failure, not only as a parent, but as a mother.
Nobody wants to see their kids like that.
What was the response of the Homeland Security Department leadership after this? Did they express remorse? Did they suspend the agents or launch an investigation? No. They put up a false tweet blaming that family, the victims, calling the Jackson family, quote, radical agitators. Now, unlike a lot of the victim-blaming tweets that the administration posts, they actually took that one down because it was so indefensible. But why was it put up in the first place? What does it say about the rotten culture at the Trump Department of Homeland Security that when American citizens are hurt by federal agents, the response is to immediately blame the victims before you even know the facts? Now, we can keep going and going. These are just a couple of examples. And I know that this hearing is supposed to be about TSA and cyber, which is important. But when the federal government is sending poorly trained masked agents into the streets, beating and gassing peaceful people, including American citizens, we cannot pretend that this is normal and act like it should be business as usual. We need real standards in place, just like every other law enforcement agency in the country has, to make sure that federal agents are well-trained, do not use excessive force when not warranted, and are held accountable when they do things like tear gas a family inside a moving vehicle. This has to stop. I yield back.
Gentleman yields back. I now recognize the gentleman from Texas, Mr. Gonzalez, for 5 minutes of questions.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, panelists. Director Gatamuka Kala. This, CISA isn't a small little agency that you just go to retire at. It's arguably one of the most important agencies in our government that most people don't realize what's happening. This year, I would argue one of the biggest things that's going to be in your purview is going to be this election. It's going to determine the future not only of our country, but also the future of the world in general. So midterm elections. My question to you is, what is CISA doing to ensure our midterm elections are safe, secure, and fair?
Congressman, thank you. Election security is very important for national security. And somehow the claim that DHS of CISA has rolled back election security protections is not accurate. We treat election security like any other critical infrastructure sector. And our election security services remain fully in place, including cybersecurity support that we provide, the physical security guidance provided. There is the incident response that we provide, and also the threat briefings for the state and local election officials. The election infrastructure owners and operators continue to receive the same level of support as other critical infrastructure entities. So what changed was the scope, not the security, sir. We ended activities that were outside its core mission, but not the election protections itself. And the election security is focused on the infrastructure by all means. What it means is we are exclusively focused on defending the election infrastructure from any cyber threats, any physical threats, and also any foreign adversaries that are out there. And as you may know, sir, foreign threats remain a core priority for us. The nation-state adversaries continue to pose risks to our election infrastructure. And CISA, we are providing that threat intelligence. We are conducting that the vulnerability scanning to all our state and local infrastructure owners. And we are making sure that we are coordinating that incident response across the board. Election security remains integrated into CISA's broader cyber and physical security mission, sir.
I ask that you make that a top priority because it's a top priority for many Americans. You can win an election, you can lose an election, but it has to be fair and it has to be secure. And our adversaries don't want that. My question to you is how many cyber intrusions do we expect this midterm election?
Sir, we look at it as incident by incident, and we look at what the risks are. I don't have a specific number in mind.
Well, we should have that number. It should first start by how many intrusions did we have last midterm, and midterm before that, and midterm before that. I don't want us waiting until after the fact to be able to go, yeah, we got it wrong, and it turns out our adversaries influenced our election. To that point, what actions is CISA doing to work with other partners like Cybercom to ensure that these adversaries are not intruding in our election?
I almost missed the chair sitting down.
We have a very good working relationship. Our strength is collaboration. We want to make sure that we're working with our law enforcement and trusted intelligence partners across the country and international partners to make sure that we are safe.
Cybercom in particular. Is CISA working with Cybercom on any cyber offensive actions to prevent our adversaries from interfering in our elections?
Congressman, thank you. We work with Cybercom on threat intelligence sharing and making sure that we have the incident response, and we are working with the private and stakeholder communities to make sure that that information is shared.
Okay, we need that to be a priority. That needs to be a priority. Between Cybercom and CISA, you two are the two organizations that are going to keep this nation and our world safe to ensure that these elections are fair and secure. To that point, what state or non-state actors are the most aggressive in interfering with our elections?
Congressman, thank you. I think the threat actors continue the foreign state adversaries, especially the People's Republic of China and Russia seems to be the most aggressive nation-state actors. The strategic adversary is China. They are long-term, and they have patient campaigns focused on pre-positioning in our critical infrastructure for a strategic advantage. As you might have seen with War Typhoon and Assault Typhoon, they are both PRC state-sponsored campaign focused on pre-positioning themselves inside the U.S. critical infrastructure for potential disruption for a future crisis. Unlike the traditional espionage, these actors use living off-the-land techniques.
Director, I have 10 seconds left. What I'd say is you just said everything that everyone has ever come before this committee and said, the same actors over and over and over again. So it's no surprise that these actors are going to be involved. They were involved in the last election. They'll be involved in this election. They'll be involved in every election going forward. What I ask is, instead of the United States playing defense, it's...
I just got a call. They hung up on me. I called back. It's Indian. Here we go.
Long time we play offense and prevent these bad actors from influencing our elections. With that, Chairman, I yield back.
Gentleman yields back. I now recognize the gentlelady from Illinois, Ms. Ramirez, for 5 minutes of questions.
Thank you, Chairman. And I do have a number of articles I want to enter into the record at the end. So, as a Chicagoan, I know the terror that DHS can inflict with unlimited resources and unchecked power. You just saw some of that with what Congressman Magazine just showed. Our constituents are being surveilled, they're being threatened, they're being tear gassed, and subjected to warrantless arrest. Rammed with vehicles, they're being kidnapped, and you've seen it, they're also being disappeared. Yet those, there are those in Congress who would still expand DHS's budget.
Oh my God, everybody, they're disappearing people.
Mass deportation agenda. And so I often get asked back in my district, how is this possible? How is it that they can behave this way?
If they're not in your eyesight, they're disappeared.
Baby? Isn't Congress supposed to be a check on DHS? Well, first, I say to them that would require my Republican colleagues to agree that bringing senior ICE officials to testify before this committee is critical. And I do hear, Chairman, that may happen in 6 weeks or so. I think it's far too late. They should be here right now. Secondly, that would also suggest that DHS is behaving in ways outside its design. Now, let me be clear. DHS and ICE, it's not rogue. Let me tell you why. Because from its establishment, Congress empowered DHS to violate our rights under the pretense of securing our safety. Who feels safe right now under DHS? DHS was intentionally established with an overbroad mission and unchecked power, which has been expanded by Republicans with a blank check, unlimited personnel, and no guardrails whatsoever. And Trump, with his authoritarian tendencies, is only making visible what so many communities have already known to be true. DHS is a threat to our collective safety, and funding it only fuels our destruction and our human suffering. It's why 32 people have died in detention in ISIS's deadliest year yet. US citizens are being shot and killed, and the agency doesn't even know who they're hiring and doesn't seem to even care who they're hiring. Yet, Trump's campaign donors are profiting off the pain of our neighbors, including children. And so today I say enough. I am introducing today the Melt ICE Act that would prohibit DHS from using funds to detain or monitor immigrants, effectively limiting ICE's authority and ability to continue to cause pain and terror, while redirecting.
We're going to continue to just name these bills whatever to say some fucking dumb shit. Oh, it's the Melt ICE Act because it targets ICE. Get it? You're too fucking stupid. God damn. Look, the naming of these bills and everything. Fuck, it's catchy. Yeah, the Free Puppies Act. Yeah, we get it. All right, just stop with the fucking retardation. Jesus fucking Christ. Can we just call it whatever bill, HR, whatever? Can we just do that? Because this is fucking dumb. You guys have been allowed to go out of control with the naming of this retard shit. All right? Enough.
The funding that they have, taxpayer dollars that they're using to kill US citizens, back into the communities impacted by ISIS terror through wraparound services. Because we know that DHS is being used as a weapon to be pointed towards anyone the government considers a public enemy. And fascism always requires a public enemy. So we must take the weapon away and hold those who have allowed our communities to be terrorized accountable. So let me get to the witnesses here. My understanding is that your agencies are working with ICE in some capacity under the Trump administration. Ms. McNeil, is your agency sharing data with ICE, yes or no?
Absolutely, we are part of
Got
the
it, that's it.
Department of
Yes or no,
Homeland
that's it.
Security,
Thank
and
you. Ms. McNeil, I have a follow-up question for you. Why is TSA making life miserable for
So
people
you
every
mean
right
she's
that have
doing
every
her
right to
job
travel
the way it's
domestically
supposed to
and
be
who pose
fucking
no
done?
threat to aviation instead of focusing on your security mission?
I don't agree with your statement, ma'am. As we have
This-
seen, the
this
men
is-
and women of
this is
TSA
too
are absolutely
stupid.
dedicated to the transportation and national security mission, and that was very apparent during the 43-day shutdown where they continued to show up to work while we waited for funding to come.
Thank you, Ms. McNeil. It is clear that people are living in fear, and TSA is working with ICE to terrorize their communities.
How is it
Dr.
clear?
McCullough, has your agency taken personnel off mission to work for ICE? Let me add to that. That includes details and reassignments from your agency to
Wait. TSA is working with ICE by telling people, hey, this illegal is right here. This person that's wanted for fucking child rape is right here. I got him on this fucking plane. They're working. By doing their fucking job. They're working with ICE. Yo, it's time. It's time, America. If you don't see this dumb shit playing out right in front of your motherfucking eyes, there is no helping you. Really isn't. TSA is working with ICE to let people know, hey, this person is on this flight. You know, as they're supposed to. You were complaining about how they didn't do it before 9/11. Now you're complaining about how they're doing it because of illegals and child rapists. Yeah, this is happening. This is happening, America. This anchor baby fucking cunt bag right here, Ramirez, has literally in multiple fucking hearings saying, I don't know why we're sending money to any other country other than Mexico. We need to send everything to Mexico. And now she's sitting here saying, hey, those Mexicans that are here illegally, yeah, we can't track them through the air. If they get on a plane, they can't be touched. I'm so fucking sick and tired of the retardation.
ICE or CBP, as well as to the Federal Protective Service and U.S. Marshals in communities with ICE enforcement operations? That's a yes or no question.
Congressman, not in my times.
So in the last year, your agency has not taken personnel off mission to work for ICE? Yes or no?
Not in my time, ma'am.
Okay. I'll have something to the record that indicates the opposite. So let me ask you another question. Does it concern you that your personnel might already have staffing shortages as we just heard a moment ago, over a third in staff shortages. Yet
This is
the administration
incredibly
is
fucking
asking for your
pathetic.
staff to be used for ICE enforcement.
Congressman, Congressman, I think
Incredibly
Does it
pathetic.
concern you? Yes or no?
we are on mission. We are doing all the cyber from physical.
Let me ask you a follow-up question to that. Has your agency transferred funding to ICE? Yes or no? Has any of your funding gone to ICE? Yes or no?
Congressman,
The answer is yes. My time is up.
Gentlelady's time's expired. I now
Who the
recognize the
fuck
gentleman
cares?
from Alabama, Mr. Strong, for 5 minutes of questions.
Thank you, Chairman Garbarino, Ranking Member Thompson. As my colleagues have noted, the United States is entering a period marked by high-profile special events and increased global travel, underscoring the importance of readiness across the Homeland Security enterprise. Thank you to our witnesses and their teams for their work to meet these challenges. Mr. Day, within the Science and Technology
What do you
Directorate
expect
R&D
motherfuckers to
portfolio,
do? To sit there
where does the threat
and go riot at fucking
posed
airports
by
now
unmanned aerial
because
systems and
TSA
counter-UAS
is helping
capabilities
fucking
rank as a
ICE?
priority?
God damn it, make that a fucking thing. That'll be wonderful to
Thank
fucking
you,
see
Congressman, for
you
your question.
motherfuckers
I
get
think,
mowed down by actual
Very
security.
high on our priority list.
Holy
that's
shit.
exhibited by Secretary Noem's creating a program executive office within S&T that brings together
You
both
the
the
dumbest
policy and
fucking
the
cunt ever in
R&D aspects,
existence, Ramirez.
acquisition support aspects.
You're worse than
to, handle the
AOC.
counter-UAS
You're worse
mission,
than Ilhan
particularly,
Omar.
in
You
a
are
speedy manner
fucking
as we
dumb.
approach the FIFA World Cup, LA 2028 Olympics, and America 250.
Given the rapid evolution of drone technology, how is
I love you,
S&T
but I'm
keeping
gonna
its
have to find
counter-UAS
something that ain't
research
gonna
ahead of
piss
its
me
threats?
off.
Thank you, Congressman, for the question.
I understand.
At present, our
I
focus is
understand.
getting the
I
speedy
get it.
delivery
I
of
have to do
systems to the
this. You
field
don't.
in preparation for these events. So we're providing
Have a good
technical review and assistance to our partners to ensure that the right systems that work well get out into the field to prevent threats. We are also doing a number of testing, development, and evaluation
Rhonda,
efforts
there is
to
a cure for
look at technologies
retardation.
that may help change the game for us. But
It's called
at
not
present,
letting
given the short
these
time frames, the thrust of
motherfuckers
our effort is getting
procreate.
delivery out into the fields.
Okay. My district is home to the joint S&T, FBI, and TSA TIDE Center, as well as the FBI's Terrorist Explosive Device Analytical Center. These centers
I
work
know it
closely
sounds
together to
fucked
protect
up,
our
but
homeland and
we
stay
need
ahead
it.
of potential threats.
Humankind has
How does the
become too
FBI's
goddamn
expertise
stupid.
inform S&T's efforts at TIDES, and how does the collaboration enhance TSA's implementation of effective screening technologies?
Thank you for that question. We, as an agency focused on delivering transportation security to the traveling public, are always focused on looking at cutting-edge technologies and how to advance those in collaboration with our partners at S&T and across the U.S. government. The evolving threat requires us to always evolve our posture, and that includes technology. So, we look forward to our continued partnership across DHS to ensure that we're meeting that mission, but also to work with this committee and Congress to ensure that we've got the funding to be able to deploy that technology into the hands of our operators.
Thank you. Dr. Gautam, how do you say it? I won't ask again.
You're good, sir. You can call me with my first name.
Dr. G, there we go. CISA was created by Congress with bipartisan support to protect national security. Unfortunately, the Biden administration transformed an agency once focused on cyber and foreign threats to critical infrastructure into an unaccountable censorship agency that pressured social media companies to take down speech protected by the First Amendment. Can you confirm that CISA has stopped those policies or policing American speech and returned to its authorized mission scope?
Congressman, thank you for the question. I mentioned earlier what changed was the scope, not security. CISA ended all the activities that were outside its core mission, not election protections. The activities that ended involved monitoring any Americans' lawful speech, any narrative management, or any coordination with those social media companies on election-related posts. Those activities are not operational election security services. So we ended abuses, sir, with not any protections that we do with election security.
You said earlier, and I quote, CISA is trying to get back on mission, close quote. For the record, during the Biden administration, what got CISA so off its core mission?
Congressman, thank you for the question. As part of this administration and under the guidance of Secretary Noem, we are reviewing line by line on all the items that we do, and we are eliminating any redundancy. We have eliminated duplicative oversight roles, and we have consolidated fragmented IT support structures. We unified a lot of fragmented IT functions under one office. We eliminated overlapping IT operations. We removed over 300 plus duplicative contractor roles. We modernized some of the enterprise IT environment. And,
my time's expired, I think. Mr. Chairman, I yield back.
Gentleman yields back. I now recognize the gentleman from New York, Mr. Kennedy, for 5 minutes of questions. Sorry about those bills, buddy.
Yeah, we are in pain with Bills Mafia. Thank you. We're here to talk about some very important issues here, Mr. Chairman. I want to thank you for bringing this committee together today, but I am terribly disappointed both by the answers that I'm hearing, or the lack thereof answers, as well as the lack of ICE being here with us to answer some very serious questions. They should be here testifying under oath,
not
answering
saying
critical
that
questions
he's a piece
all of
of
us have.
shit because he
This
works
committee
with
needs
ICE?
answers from ICE. The people
What
of this
the
country
fuck?
need answers of what is happening across this nation. Like what happens to families like Renee Nicole Goods who are left with a massive hole in their hearts because of
We
this
need to
administration's
have
lawlessness.
answers for what
And
the fuck's
credibility can
happening in our
investigation
own
into
goddamn
this tragedy
government.
possibly have if it ends as quickly as it begins and scrutinizes everyone in Minneapolis except for the agent who shot her? And how many U.S. citizens and lawful residents have been swept up in the Trump administration's immigration raids? How many of them have seen their due process rights, those enshrined in the U.S. Constitution, willfully ignored? Why is Secretary Noem taking no responsibility for the violence she has brought to our communities? And how much farther is she willing to go to destroy the American dream as we know it? What critical DHS mission?
There wouldn't be no fucking violence if you didn't have crazy ass retarded motherfuckers in the goddamn street trying to kill people just because the news told them to do so, would you now, faggot Kennedy? I swear to God you were the dumbest son of a bitch walking the face of this earth, you fucking retarded sack of shit. You would not have violence if you wouldn't have pushed retarded assholes to do retarded shit like attack federal fucking agents. Weren't you screaming about how January 6th people were attacking federal agents, and now you are fucking encouraging people to attack federal agents and defending them when they do so? What the actual fuck is happening in American politics when retards like this can actually say whatever the fuck they want to say? Speech and demand clause, or speech and debate clause be damned. These motherfuckers need to pay. This is too goddamn stupid to not be held accountable for. This is, oh my fucking God. Oh my God. You scream and yell and whine and moan and bitch and complain because people were beating the shit out of people on January 6th. The officers were getting their asses kicked on January 6th. And now you're sitting here defending how fucking retards that have made up your goddamn fucking army that we must now deal with in our own fucking way because you're too goddamn retarded to control the fucking mob. Now those motherfuckers are out there beating up fucking federal agents and you defend it. So what is it? We can beat up federal agents or we get thrown in prison for it, faggot? What is it? I don't understand. As an American citizen with a goddamn brain, I can't tell you for the fucking life of me what your message to me is. Can we beat up federal agents or nah? Oh, is it only the way they align publicly then, or politically then? If they're Republicans, they can't do a fucking thing. If they're Democrats, they can go out and kill people at will and get away with it. What the actual fuck are we doing here? Sorry, off-label pod. None of this is funny and you're making very valid points, but you're making me laugh. I'm not... look, I am raging the fuck out. Yeah, I get it. But God fucking damn. Can we not pass this retardation level yet? I mean, this is fucking stupid. Just a few people ago, there was somebody screaming about January fucking 6th. I believe. They always fucking do. Maybe not in this hearing. In the last hearing, how many times did we fucking hear them scream about how officers got their ass beat on January 6th? And now this motherfucker's saying I should have their ass beat. God fucking damn.
Are being neglected at the expense of Secretary Noem's extreme immigration agenda. And that last question, I'd like to ask the witnesses in detail about reassignments away from your respective agencies in immigration enforcement missions. We know that Secretary Noem's taken thousands of federal personnel from their assigned duties, and it's felt acutely in my community in Western New York. My district has 4 bridges that connect New York and Canada, and yet many of these travel processing booths are empty because Secretary Noem is diverting resources from northern border communities. This drives up costs, takes away good-paying jobs, deters travel with our closest ally to the north, and makes things less safe. So I understand both CISA and TSA have had employees reassigned to oversee the Trump administration's immigration and deportation operations, along with its draconian crackdown on Americans exercising First Amendment rights. So Acting Director Gadamukala and Deputy Administrator McNeil, how many people from CISA and TSA have been reassigned?
Congressman, not to the knowledge of, I don't have the knowledge of any people from CISA.
But your agency's been cut by over a third.
The team participated in a voluntary the workforce transition program, and we are working towards our own mission of making sure that we are protecting the critical infrastructure from cyber and physical threats.
Ms. McNeil, how many of your employees have been reassigned?
This has been talked about 3 goddamn times now, you stupid motherfucker, and 3 goddamn times they said they were voluntary. It was voluntary, which means it came to a fucking end. And your workforce was cut by a third by voluntary people who knew the shit was going to end. God fucking damn you retards. Is there anything in your fucking brain that allows you to just be stuck on fucking stupid 24 goddamn 7? where you run into the same fucking stupid shit time and time and time and time again. Oh, me fucking God. Anybody listening to this shit. Bitch, he already answered it 3 fucking times. What do you mean? Oh, his workforce was cut by 1/3. They were voluntary. The shit fucking ended. They knew it was going to end. It's not like they were dumped for any other reason but the fucking contract was done. How do you stupid motherfuckers walk in this time and time and time again? Every single fucking one of you dumb motherfuckers walk into it. Every single fucking time. Somebody will answer a question, and you can guarantee you 2, 3, 4 motherfucking dumbass Democrats are going to ask the same fucking question, thinking it's going to be something damning. When the motherfuckers answered it and there ain't nothing to it, and you're just like, that makes sense. And then you hear, your workforce was cut. Yeah, because it was voluntary. Oh, that's just going to affect everything. Your workforce was... They were fucking voluntary. They weren't hired in. They weren't employees. You motherfuckers walk into this dumb shit time and time and time again, and you wonder why when people actually fucking pay attention to the retardation that comes out of your fucking mouths, you wonder why Americans, by and large, don't like the Democrat Party, despite what you want to pop up on the mainstream media news, despite what you want to throw out there. People don't like Democrats. You're fucking dumb, retarded, goddamn assholes. But at least with Democrats, we know something will fucking happen to the system. Republicans, they may actually make some fucking sense. Guess what? They're making sense while they're fingering their own assholes in the corner stealing your money. At least they'll do something. It's going to go ahead and fuck you up in the long run. We all know that. It's always been that fucking way. But they'll do something about it. God fucking damn. How the fuck do you motherfuckers walk into the same goddamn trap several fucking times? It's not like this Ramirez bitch over here hasn't been sitting in here. This is like 1 or 2 fucking committees. That's all she does. She sits in this shit all fucking day. She listens to every goddamn word. And this bitch still walks into the same motherfucking stupid ass trap. I could understand if you were one of those people that come and go into a fucking hearing, you show up like 5 minutes before you talk, and then you run your fucking mouth and then you leave again. I might be able to understand that, except for fucking LaMonica here can't fucking elbow you like she's trying to get away from fucking being pushed out of a goddamn facility that was already having a fucking tour with Miss Norton and her goddamn crew. She's not elbowing you like she did that fucking agent, right? She's not saying, bitch, don't say it, because that's fucking dumb. Of course not. Why? You don't pay attention to the whole fucking thing. You just pay attention to a little clip that might come out of this. Every single fucking time.
I'm not aware of any of our employees being moved over to ICE.
And 250 air marshals you testified today.
I don't know why that made me snap either.
That is not a reassignment. The federal air marshals are providing in-flight security for deportation flights, which is actually falls within their mission space.
So outside of commercial flights, they have been reassigned to other flights. 250 air marshals have been reassigned. How can we assure the American people that flying in this country is safe post 9/11 if the air marshals that have been provided to do the work to keep them safe in the skies have been reassigned off of those commercial flights?
Providing in-flight security for deportation flight keeps our skies safe, and I don't think that your number is accurate, Congressman, but we're happy to make sure that we get that number.
I believe that's the number that was mentioned in this testimony today. Do you believe that TSA employees have the right to organize, Ms. McNeil?
As I stated earlier, the administrator has the authority to set the terms and framework of employment of the TSA
Why the
workforce.
fuck do you
and we need to
exist
do
in
so
government,
in a way
sir?
that keeps in mind the mission of TSA,
You have
which was
shown
granted
just how
by
fucking
Congress.
Is that a yes or no? Do you believe that the
Humankind
employees that
is.
keep our skies, our communities safe have a right to organize in this country?
I think that
Yes
is
or no?
determined by the administrator, and actually what we are focused on is delivering
What the fuck are
aviation
you
and
even
transportation
on
security
about,
for the
dude?
American people and being a good steward of the tax.
I will take that as either a non-answer or, quite frankly, it sounds like a no to me, which is very, very disappointing, disheartening, not just to this panel and to this committee, but to the rank and file working families that are out there protecting us each and every day. It is their right in this country to organize if they choose to do so. And quite frankly, it is an obligation of this government to work with them in a collective bargaining scenario to provide them the rights that they deserve.
I yield back. Gentleman yields
What
back.
the fuck was that about?
I now recognize the gentleman from Arizona, Mr. Crane, for 5 minutes of questions.
I am so
Thank you, Mr.
fucking
Chairman.
lost on that one.
I want to start by pushing back against my colleagues on the other side. You know, it's interesting to me. I've only been in Congress for 3 years now, but they clearly created this catastrophe. We warned about it in the last Congress, why the southern border was wide open and many of our visa programs were being completely exploited. Now you have 15 million people in the country. That's a figure they won't even argue with. And now the American people elected President Trump and this administration to go and solve the problem. And now so they've turned on ICE, whose job is to get the criminals and these people out of the country. And so they've turned on ICE. We even have a member on this panel, again, who assaulted an ICE agent. And we wonder why this stuff continues to happen. And I didn't hear any of them talking about the deportations that took place under President Obama, who I believe was deporting even more people than President Trump has in his first year. Next, I want to turn to what this committee is actually about. And I want to start with CISA. Dr. Gouda McCullough, under the Biden administration, censorship, deplatforming, and flagging speech of Americans they didn't like was very common and often reported. They censored American citizens who were posting about election integrity. They were also deplatforming anybody who talked about COVID-19 and its origins. What is, correct me if I'm wrong, doctor, but I thought CISA was for protecting American infrastructure and cybersecurity. Is that correct? Why do you think CISA started going after Americans for exercising free speech?
Congressman, thank you for the question. You're absolutely right. Election security is focused on infrastructure. And CISA's election security role is focused exclusively on defending the election infrastructure from cyber threats and physical threats and foreign adversaries.
You're not answering the
that includes
question.
any voter registration systems, election technology, and supporting systems, not speech or content moderation. And precisely why I keep saying is that what changed was the scope, not the security. We ended activities that were outside its core mission and not election protections. Those activities that ended involved monitoring any American's lawful speech and narrative management. And you rightly said, sir, coordination with social media companies on election-related posts. Those
God
activities are
damn,
not
that was a long
operational
way
election
home,
security
son.
issues.
Thank you. Thank you. Sorry, I got to cut you off. I
You
got more
didn't have
questions.
to fucking
I want to turn
talk that
to Ms.
goddamn much to
McNeil
say that.
with TSA. On July 8th, TSA ended its shoes off policy, which was obviously in place because we had incidents like the shoe bomber that tried to bring a bomb in a shoe on board an airplane. Why was that policy ended, Ms. McNeil?
Thank you for the question, Congressman Crane. At TSA, we're continually looking at the risk environment that we operate within and improving our standard operating procedures and operations at the checkpoint to reflect that risk picture. There had been multiple risk assessments done in past years that allowed us to make that change and amend our procedures to maintain the safety of the skies while delivering for the American public. Continual improvement is something that TSA embraces.
Ms. McNeil, real quick, do you think with technology adapting, it's impossible for somebody to make a bomb out of their shoes?
The way that we approach security is to deploy multiple different layers of security and pieces of technology to ensure that nobody can essentially game the system. We have multiple layers from identity and vetting through all of these physical screening that happens at the checkpoint and then in-flight security as well. So through that layered security approach is how we deliver for the American public, and that's something that has been in place since the inception of TSA.
Thank you. I want to turn to some of the Somali cash going through airports. It's estimated that $700 million in cash in passenger luggage was leaving the Minnesota airport in the last 2 years. Has TSA made any changes to its policies to prevent this activity that is tied to the fraud in Minnesota from continuing on?
We are extremely proud of the team at TSA for highlighting this issue by reporting what they saw in the normal course of their screening in Minnesota.
But reporting's not enough, right? It continued to go on, and we got $700 million in cash. Has anything been changed? That's the question I asked you.
We are working with our interagency partners and law enforcement partners to ensure that this issue is being addressed. We continue being a good partner to them. The money that was moved through legal means, and so this is where I think Congress has a role to play to think about the authorities around this bulk cash movement.
Thank you. I yield back.
Gentleman yields back, and I recognize the gentlelady from New Jersey, Ms. McIver, for 5 minutes of questions.
Mr. Crane, I don't know what your obsession is.
I thought you were supposed to address the chair.
I'm so tired of you mentioning me. And
Mr. Chairman, is she supposed to address me or the chair?
People of Arizona, not me.
Yeah, well, if you quit assaulting ICE agents, I wouldn't keep bringing you up.
I am reclaiming my time.
Come to order.
Watch your mouth.
Follow the rules of the committee, Ms. McIver.
Excuse me, I'm reclaiming my time. Thank you, Mr. Chairman and Ranking Member. Let me get to the business that I'm here for the people of New Jersey, not Mr. Crane. Thank you for holding today's hearing. Here we are 3 weeks into the new year, and finally we're having our first full committee hearing in more than a month. During that time, the lawlessness of DHS under Donald Trump and Kristi Noem has increased tenfold. Just like
Bitch, you tried to create an incident where an incident never fucking was, and now you're crying and whining and bitching and moaning and complaining because somebody called you the fuck out for it. Oh, my pussy hurts because somebody mentioned the fact that I assaulted fucking federal agents. I'm in the Homeland Security Committee, and I'm assaulting federal agents, and somebody calls me out for it. Now I gotta bitch and complain about it, because why not? Shut the fuck up. Why is your ass not in prison?
Last week, a parent in my home state of New Jersey was detained by ICE after ordering food for his 6-year-old daughter. When her dad didn't come home, the little girl was then found crying and wandering around for hours outside, parentless. How inhumane.
What's
like
a
I told
parent
Secretary
loop?
Noem when she sat in this room last
They were
month, the
running
greatest
around
threat to the
parent
homeland
loop.
right now is the Department of Homeland Security under her control. Unfortunately, the Republicans, like Mr. Crane, in control of Congress, are not up to the task. In the face of the administration's appalling escalation of violence, the majority has set up this hearing with a random assortment of DHS leaders who are not the ones we really need to hear from in this moment. I join my colleagues in demanding that we bring ICE
I'm going to yell at
acting director.
I want to yell at Kristi Noem. I want to yell at Bovino. I want to yell at other people instead of these people who are actually behind what is actually going on. I want to hear from everybody else and yell and scream at them because I don't get to assault them, I guess now, right? I can assault fucking federal agents, and because I'm a sitting member of Congress, nothing absolutely fucking happens to me, but it's you as an American citizen to do that. Well, guess what? You're getting your ass stomped out before you even go to fucking prison. Yet this bitch gets to get away with it. She gets to do whatever the fuck she wants to do. Why? Because she's a member of Congress. And if you fall back on it, if anything, all else fails, she's black. Are you tired of this yet, America? Are you tired of this fuckassery? Because it's going to get you killed. I'm getting killed here.
Todd Owens before the committee as soon as possible. Respectfully, Mr. Chairman. That would be just the start of providing the accountability and change our constituents are demanding of us right now in this moment. Now, since having administration witnesses is a rarity this Congress, I do want to talk a bit about TSA. Acting Administrator McNeil. I want to note that I am the top Democrat on the Transportation and Maritime Security Subcommittee, but this is the first time we have met. In fact, this is the first time we have had a single TSA witness before the full committee or any subcommittee this Congress, even as the majority is embarking on an effort to reauthorize the agency.
Congress?
Ms. McNeil, as with other DHS components, this administration has been lawless in its direction for TSA. Last month, Secretary Noem tried to abolish the workforce's collective bargaining rights in a blatant defiance of a court order to keep them in place. My fellow Democrats and I wrote to the Secretary and to you to demand that you halt those efforts, and I am glad that the court has since ruled that those efforts are in fact illegal. However, we still did not hear from you. Ms. McNeil, I recognize you have no control over Kristi Noem's lawlessness and cannot speak to whether she will continue to break the law. But speaking for yourself in this moment, yes or no, will you commit to abiding by the court order to keep TSA's collective bargaining agreement in place and fully honor its provisions?
Every step that the Secretary and that we have taken has been in compliance with the courts.
Is that yes or no? I'm speaking on behalf of you, not Secretary Noem.
I wish
Will you commit to that? Will you commit to the provision? Will you commit to the provision as the acting administrator? Yes or no?
We are both.
Okay, I'll go to my next question, Ms. McNeil, because you're going to do this today. I don't have much time, okay? Ms. McNeil, what has TSA done prior to providing passenger data to ICE to ensure compliance with the law?
We are acting within our absolute authorities. We are part of the Department of Homeland Security. It was a department that was set up by Congress to ensure that these agencies weren't operating in silos, and that's what we are doing today, to advance the mission, the national security mission of the department.
Ms. McNeil, TSA mission is to secure transportation, not to assist ICE with immigration enforcement. There is no law that forbids undocumented people from flying domestically within the U.S. The vast majority of undocumented people have no criminal record and pose absolutely no threat to aviation. Under what authority is TSA sharing passenger data with ICE?
We are absolutely within our authorities to share information within the Department of Homeland Security to further the national security mission.
What statute are you following or policy? Point to the policy or the statute that you are following. Under what authority is TSA sharing passenger data with ICE that you are allowed to do that?
We are allowed to do that.
What policy or statute are you following?
I can get you the exact policy.
Oh, please do. We will wait on that. With that, I yield back, Mr. Chairman.
Gladly.
God damn.
Back. I now recognize the gentleman from Tennessee, Mr. Ogles, for 5 minutes of questions.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you to the witnesses. There's been a lot of talk about ICE, and unfortunately, really outside the scope of this hearing. And for that, to our witnesses, I apologize because science and technology.
It's always
TSA,
out of the scope of the
Chairman
fucking
Cyber, I spent a lot
hearing
of my
with these
time,
goddamn
with
retarded
a good doctor
fuckers.
here, but S&T, if you would please, if there's anything that we can do as members of this committee in Congress to help you affect your job more efficiently, please, if you'll reach out to my office, I'd love to have an offline conversation with you, TSA. Same with you as well. And, and I commend you and your office and your agents for the job you're doing during the shutdown. And it should be noted, Mr. Chairman, that Joe Biden, reassigned air marshals to assist with the movement of illegals across the southern border. So when we talk about reassignment of roles, let's look at the large scope of how it's been done under previous administrations. So, and then, again, collective bargaining, you want to talk about manufacturing, when you look at Six Sigma and Lean Six and efficiencies within operations,
Illegal
the fact that
aliens
we're
fly
bringing
around
that
the country with no
the
passport, no
government
ID.
is a good thing
What the fuck?
as we move forward. And so we specifically, to Dr. Gakbakala, we have
You think that's bad? You just listen to Miss Ramirez here, a Latin woman who said Literally, if they get on a fucking plane, you can't track them. You shouldn't be able to track them. If they get on a fucking plane and freely move around the country, they should be able to disappear. What?
Privilege of talking. When you look at reductions within your agency, one of the things we said, or I said in the previous hearing, the cyber subcommittee, was that it's about quality, not necessarily quantity. Can you speak to the numbers? And quite frankly, the trend lines, your department is, when you look
These
at
are the
attrition,
people
slightly
that
below
are
the federal
tasked to
average.
to do things about the threats.
Thank you,
to the
Congressman.
homeland.
I do not. Thank you.
Congressman, thank you for the question. And first
And
of all, I
this
want to
is
say
what
that
they're
there's
talking about.
continued bipartisan support across for CISA. And the personnel that we are making sure that they are on mission. For somehow the bad press or whatever we see, we miss the point that CISA personnel are deployed across the 10 regions in support of all 56 states and territories, working with the local.
Specifically, good doctor, because we have limited time. So roughly 800 agents. What percentage of the workforce is that? 23 some odd percent?
That is correct, sir. About 23% participated in the workforce transition program.
And then the national average of, aside from that, roughly 9% across federal agencies, you're trending, what, 7% attrition?
That is correct, sir. Compared to the previous years, it's about 9.25 approximately across all federal agencies, and we were at 6.5 to 7.5% from a natural attrition this year.
So the facts, quite frankly, speak for themselves. And as Chairman Cyber, I spent a lot of time in the SCIF getting updates on the constant attacks that we face from threat actors like China, like North Korea, like Iran, like Russia. And yet you're doing more with less, and you're doing it more efficiently. And so for that, I say thank you. Now, one of the things that we talked about, and what's important, I think, to the American people, when
if they are doing more with less and doing it more efficiently, that's what should actually fucking happen.
Adversary is China. It's important that we on this committee and you and your agency have better communications, increase communications, and then we're updated on a much more timely basis. So with that, and again, per our conversation, do you agree that members of this committee, and in particular the Subcommittee on Cybersecurity and Infrastructure, which has direct oversight of CISA, will be informed in a timely manner, and quite frankly, when needed, in a SCIF, so that we can do our jobs and help you and assist you in doing your work?
Congressman, I appreciate the support. Yes, definitely.
Yes, sir. And then, to change subjects, and I appreciate your willingness to meet with me. I appreciate all of you for being here. When we look at the mission statement and the directive we have here with the committee, it's important that we keep things in perspective. We have an obligation to the American people and to the American taxpayer. And one of the things that we've seen under the previous administrations plural, is the absolute suck on our system, our infrastructure, and our welfare. So, for example, Bhutan, 81.4% are on welfare. Yemen, 75.2%. Somalia, 71.9%. Marshall Islands, 71.4%. Afghani, 68.1%. Dominican Republic, 68.1%. Bangladesh, 54.8%. Pakistan, 40.2%. And I can go on. But this idea that doctors and lawyers were brought into this country to help our society is absolute nonsense. Go back to Hart-Celler, back to the 1960s. Let's abolish it and, quite frankly, deport them all. This is the United States of America. We get to decide who comes in, and Mr. Chairman, we get to decide who leaves. I yield back.
You're goddamn right.
Gentleman yields back. I now recognize the gentlelady from New Jersey, Ms. Poe, for 5 minutes of questions.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So as we sit here, DHS is operating an armed invasion of an American state, Minnesota. Local law enforcement described DHS tactics as, quote, profoundly detrimental to public safety. An American citizen was shot in the face and killed by an ICE agent.
For trying to run over the said ICE agent.
Should be here testifying under oath what happened to Renee Good and the pervasive
we all
ICE
fucking saw
violence
it. She
against
tried to run
Americans
over an
because
ICE agent.
We know taxpayers-funded
What the
media
fuck are you talking about?
continues to spew outright lies about her department, including calling Renee Good a domestic terrorist.
She
Just
is.
this weekend, the secretary went on TV and said that 70% of the people held by ICE have committed violent crimes. In fact, only 25% of individuals in ICE custody have criminal convictions, with many being minor offenses like traffic violations. And that's a fact. No one here can speak to the rampant DHS corruption, like the $200 million in taxpayers' money used for an ad campaign to the secretary's aide and family, or her so-called border czar, who accepted a fast food checkout bag stuffed with $50,000 cash bribe. Why is DHS illegally blocking Congress from entering ICE facilities? Is it to cover up the 32 people who died in ICE custody last year, or the 4 this year, including a reported homicide at a Texas ICE facility earlier this month? There are now reports that in my home state of New Jersey, ICE is looking to convert massive warehouses into detention centers, including one in Roxbury. None of these witnesses can speak to any of these abuses. But there are important questions that we can cover, starting with election security. I am alarmed by the administration's termination of funding for state and local elections offices for election security. We talked earlier, and someone asked about how safe are our elections. Are they fair? Will they be indeed secured? This president has attempted to weaponize CISA and spread disinformation about his election loss in 2020. So I'd like to ask Dr. Gatumulala.
Oh my fucking God.
Did Donald Trump win or lose the 2020 election? Yes or no?
Congresswoman, I will be more than happy to talk
Yes
about
or
this
no?
mission. I'm not here to discuss about
I know.
the
Yes or no?
2000 election or the 2020 election.
Did Donald Trump lose the 2020
Why
election?
the fuck are
Yes
we
or no?
still
Ma'am, I'll
here?
be more than happy to discuss about
It's
the great
simple.
work that CISA does.
You know
how we attack
what?
on mission,
I can
and how we are
understand why
eliminating
you would
NMC.
want to. I will tell you, this is a simple question that only has one right answer. Yes, he was in fact defeated. Do
No.
you believe that Donald Trump
No. In fact, he fucking
Do you
wasn't.
believe that Trump's defeat in 2020 contributed to this administration's cutting funds to support election security for state and local officials?
I
Yes
believe
or
you were
no?
fucking
Ma'am, election
retarded.
security is focused on infrastructure, and as CISA, we
I
are
cannot
exclusively
believe you
focused
were
on
in
defending
office.
election
So,
infrastructure.
quite
being this
honestly,
fucking
it's
dumb.
very simple. What kind of justification could explain this reckless cuts? Please explain that.
Ma'am, once again, I have explained before,
It's
people
clear
have
that you're not going to
participated
be
in the
able
first
to
transition
do
program.
that.
They
I'm
have done
sorry,
so
but it's
voluntarily.
obviously
You're
clear
not
that
going to
you're
be able to
answer
do what I
a simple
want you to
question with a
do,
yes
so
or
I'm
no
just going to
answer.
cut you
I
off
am
because
very
you want to
concerned, Mr.
actually
Chairman,
say something.
over the fact that one of my colleagues asked earlier about sharing information, and Ms. McNeil, the passengers, are we
I'm just
in
fucking
fact
done.
making TSA, American citizens aware that TSA is in fact diverting resources, and how are those personnel information being shared between agencies? Do the American people know
There's
that
no
their information may
fixing
very well be
any
shared?
of this shit, ladies and gentlemen.
Generally, you can maybe respond. in
There's
writing
no
to that question.
fixing any of it.
The time has expired.
That's
Ms.
fine.
Poe, I
Thank
appreciate
you,
that.
Mr. Chairman, I yield back. I would like, however, to be able to ask that question.
Absolutely. I know all committee members will have the time to submit questions in writing. Following this,
sir.
I know I have a bunch that I'm going to
Thank you very much.
Thank you. The gentlelady yields back. I now recognize the gentlelady from South Carolina, Ms. Biggs, for 5 minutes of questions.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you to our panelists for being here today. I would like to elaborate on my colleague, Congressman Crane, what he was stating. It is concerning to me that for 2 years, Somali residents were walking through the Minneapolis airport with duffel bags filled with cash, nearly $1 million a day, totaling nearly $1 billion. I think that's astonishing. TSA reportedly flagged this flood of money and raised it to DHS and intel agencies. So Administrator McNeil, did that really happen? And who were these individuals responsible for this? And where was the cash going? Because to me, if that is what was reported, why wasn't it stopped immediately? This money could have easily been used for terrorists and tied to the same massive Somali fraud networks that we keep seeing across Minnesota.
Thank you, Congresswoman, for that question. TSA did indeed report these incidents as it came across the checkpoint because bulk cash shows up as a mass on the X-ray, and so our officers have to resolve what they can't identify on the X-ray machine. And through the course of their normal day-to-day duties, they reported that to our law enforcement partners in compliance with their standard operating procedures. This is why it's really important to take a whole-of-government approach on this and levy the authorities of all these law enforcement agencies, both across DHS and with the Department of Treasury, to ensure that we are taking a concerted whole-of-government approach to this. And I think this is where the role of Congress is also critical to ensure that we have the right framework in place
$700
to take
million
action.
gone.
As I mentioned
2
earlier,
years fucking
the
later,
movement of this money
Biden was investigated.
historically had been done through legal channels, and so I think we're going to have to collectively work on this.
Okay, I still didn't hear what is actually being done about it.
We continue to report it based on our standard operating procedures. I know there's an ongoing investigation with our law enforcement partners. We are part of that.
I mean,
and
what do you want them
happy
to do?
brief
Just
you and the members of this committee
take
on any
people's fucking
developments
bags?
that we see on that front.
I mean, they
guess
can't
my
do anything. That
next
has
question
to
would
be
be,
law
why is
enforcement.
Congress finding out about this from journalists and not from DHS?
I can't speak to that. I mean, again, I think we are
Because it
committed
was
to
allowed
transparency
to
with this
happen.
committee, and as the investigation evolves, we are happy to brief out on our part in this and work with the rest of the U.S. government to make sure that we're taking action.
Well, thank you for that. My constituents and the American people would love to hear a follow-up on that. Thank you. So my next question, TSA, the touchless pre-check is a biometric identity verification capability that enables enrolled pre-check travelers to verify their identity at airport checkpoints using facial recognition and eliminating the need to present a physical ID. What is TSA's long-term vision for this TIS, and is it intended solely as a checkpoint identity verification tool, or does TSA envision it becoming a broader identity platform across the transportation system?
Facial recognition.
So we have launched the touchless identification system, as I mentioned, TIS, in 15 locations today for pre-check.
That sounds
It
great,
is a
doesn't
voluntary facilitative technology that we offer to our pre-check members. We're going to be rolling out additional locations, based on the experience and feedback that we're getting from our pre-check population. Is very well received. And again, I would just state it's voluntary, and it's meant to really provide that seamless experience to our trusted population as they travel through our airports, because you don't have to take out your identity or your boarding pass at the checkpoint. So it is a facilitative tool. That is the intent of that program, is to offer that benefit to our pre-check population.
Just one more quick thing. So is it beyond passenger screening? Will it be like for cargo or international operations? Will it go more in depth?
It is intended for passenger screening and for our pre-check population.
Okay, thank you. I yield back.
Gentlelady yields back. I now recognize the gentleman from Texas, Mr. Green, for 5 minutes of questions.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I thank the ranking member as well. Thank the witnesses for appearing today. Mr. McNeil, the Transportation Security Officers Union is under attack. And thankfully, a court injunction has kept TSA's union in place. Most recently, the secretary
worthless
openly
fucking
defied the court
troglodytic
order
faggot.
and tried to disband TSA's union for a second time.
Why do you
Last
look
week, the
so
court
fucking
said
greasy,
those actions
dude?
plainly defy its injunction and order the secretary to keep TSA's collective bargaining agreement in place or risk contempt. My question to you, acting administrator, is this. Will you commit to abiding by the court's order to keep the TSA's collective bargaining agreement in place?
Congressman, every step that we've taken to date, and we will continue
Excuse me,
to do
if
so,
I may,
abides by
since
court
I control the
orders.
time, if I may, please. This question can be answered with a yes or a no, and if it's anything less than a yes or a no, I will assume you mean no. So now, back to you again. Will you
Anything
commit
less than
to
a yes
honoring
or no?
court's
How do
order,
you give
the
less
court's
than a
order?
yes or no? Just not
The court's order.
answering?
When you
So
don't
if
honor
I
court's
answer
orders
more, it's not.
and you're the secretary,
It's a yes.
you could be impeached.
If I say more than one yes
So
or
now,
no word,
will you
it's,
commit to
it's
honoring
a
the court's order?
automatically yes. Then
Thank you.
what the fuck?
And I'm pleased that you said yes, because the secretary needs to confirm
You
with you.
that-
She needs your advice. The secretary,
We
quite
shall
frankly, is probably being influenced by the president.
overcome.
Disobeying court orders is something that is antithetical to the Constitution. The courts are there for a reason. And if we can disobey court orders, we no longer have a Constitution that we can count on. You're defacing, demeaning, and denigrating the Constitution when this happens. Not you personally. You've already said yes, and I'm grateful to you for saying yes. But that's what's happening. And I can assure you, people are growing tired of seeing what's happening in terms of the lawlessness.
We're growing
emanating
tired of hearing
from
you
this,
try to fuck
this
us up.
department.
Yeah, you're right.
They're growing tired of it.
We're growing
What happened
incredibly tired of it.
to Ms. Good is something that people are not going to forget. And for the secretary,
Yeah, if you
and
don't
others to
agree with what
pretend
I say,
that
I'll
she was a
assume you're
domestic
against me.
terrorist
That is
is
exactly what that
beyond
was.
comprehension, without even having investigated immediately. This was a Christian
But I
woman
like how he said, if you
with
say
children
less than yes or no,
who, according to
how do
her
I
wife,
say less
they had
than one
pistols,
fucking word?
and they indicated that the constabulary
So if I say
had
more than one word,
pistols,
it's
as
a
evidenced
yes?
by the fact that she's no longer with us.
You assume it's a yes?
People are.
Is this
getting
how it's
fed up
working?
with
I
this
just want to make
behavior and the
completely sure we're not
justifications for
fucking
lawlessness.
blindly retarded
We
on this.
must return to the rule of law. And one of the ways to return to the rule of law is to enforce the law. And one of the laws that we can use to make sure the rule of law prevails is impeachment. This secretary is putting herself
What
in
the
harm's
fuck
way
was
as it
that?
relates to impeachment. Not a
The
physical.
thumper over here is doing
in terms of how
something.
she is conducting herself in office. And my guess is, if she is not very careful, she may become the first secretary to be removed from office. We have a long runway here. It doesn't end at the end of this year. It's a
Dude,
long
you are
runway.
the missing
But
link
I'm gonna beg you
between
to counsel
modern
with
and
her and help her to
Cro-Magnon
better
man.
understand
What the
that
fuck
the law
is you?
prevails, and she is not the law, and
You
neither is
have
the
to be a
president. I yield
caveman.
back the balance of my time.
Gentleman yields back. I now recognize
Either
the
that or
gentleman from
you're,
Oklahoma, Keene for 5 minutes of
you're
questions.
either
Thank
a
you, Mr.
fucking
Chairman.
caveman
witnesses,
or a
thank
fucking
you.
werewolf.
As
Why are
typical
you
in
so
Washington, so I was having to
hairy?
shift in and shift out because of scheduling conflicts. I am certain, because I heard some of the commentaries I walked in, some of what we're going to be discussing on my part is a little bit redundant. Please forgive me because I did miss some of the prior discussion.
I'm going to be
Relative
that
to CISA.
dick.
And
If I ever get hauled up into these
weaponization
motherfuckers,
that
I'm
many
gonna
felt like through the
beat that
social
dick.
component, social media. I just want to make this just a statement. This is kind of a rhetorical statement. That is something of major concern to us, that under this administration, we
If he
continue
shaved
to
and
pay attention to
degreased
that
this guy, I
and make
bet
sure that
it's
our
Tom
government
Hanks.
is not allowing that to continue that we saw in years past. That
Sorry. I got to check some. 32, we'll take it at 3304. I can see it. I can see it to me. God, Jesus Christ. What is that? That can't be human. There's no way that's human. That's Cro-Magnon. Like the DNA. Did he just come from a fucking a tribe of Cro-Magnon men who never met modern man until like maybe 20, 30 years ago? And this is the product of it? Okay, he's probably what, 60? 60 something. So it's got to be 100 years ago. This is the product of that. Like some you know somebody had to have done it, right? You know somebody had to have done it. There are men out there who will literally be, okay, we found Cro-Magnon man, we found cavemen, I'ma fuck it. You know there are men out there that do that shit. You can't deny it. Oh my God, that's horrible. 33.
In years past. That said, and moving on, for TSA and for the
I don't
oversight
even
we're
know what that
conducting
had to do with
the
anything.
World Cup, with the Olympics, I know, Director Neal, that you are very much attuned to what's ahead, the high volume, the international
could be
traffic,
right, bro.
look, the heightened threat level, the landscape that we had in this hearing months ago because of
It's
the
just a
illegal
little bit
population that was let in by the prior
surprising. That's all
administration.
I'm
There's a
saying.
different threat landscape. And whether it be
jokes
the
about
biometric
it,
security
but
screening,
you're looking
real
at
ID
the
enforcement, the
modern
gaps
link.
in that, it's been astounding to me to find out the number of states that are allowing real ID compliant driver's license. I've had some state elected officials show me how that is in the past played out to where by the way the prior administration was implementing parole and the work permitting process, that real ID compliant driver's licenses were being handed to those who were here illegally. And so to be able to, and by your response, I'm taking for granted that you may have not heard this before, but that's something I would very much like some feedback for our office to obtain where we're at on ensuring that with real ID coming into compliance this year and all the objections, and I was one of them on the state level, that if we have that type of possibility of illegal aliens getting a real ID compliant driver's license, what a major security concern it is. All right, I want to shift over. I know you've talked about the Somalian incident, the cash. You've talked about, in terms of what you all are doing. My question on that is, when were you all as an agency made aware that this was happening? What was the timeline of the millions of dollars that flowing through the airport security system? What timing did you all become aware of this?
I believe that the reporting started back in 2017.
2017. Okay. Okay. With the World Cup, with the Olympics, I'm about to say something that I'm going to make sure my words are precise and give you a chance to kind of think this thing through because there's an element to this just for national security purposes. The DHS Inspector General released a report on November 1st, 2025 on its independent covert testing of TSA checkpoint screening to see how effective it is at preventing threat items from being brought onto commercial aircraft. We cannot publicly talk about the contents of that report due to the sensitivity of the information. But let me ask you generally, are you aware of the report?
In other words, they fucked
Have you
up.
read it? When did you receive it?
Yes, yes to both of your first
Okay.
questions and last November.
Okay. And do you agree with the findings and recommendations of that report?
And I do, and it's not anything that actually we didn't know already and fully consider in our security policies.
Would you commit to providing this committee with results of any follow-up analysis conducted by TSA related to this report?
In
We
other
would be
words,
glad to have
they
a briefing on
fucked
the
up.
subject, in the proper classified environment.
Thank you. Transition to another little different direction here. Many travelers are confused by TSA spatial screening practices. Can you please clarify whether this is mandatory or optional?
It is absolutely voluntary. We have signage at our checkpoints that notify the passengers of that, and if they don't opt in, there are alternate procedures that they go through, so it is 100% voluntary.
And with the 25 seconds I have left, what would you say to travelers who are concerned about their biometric data being retained as a result of that process?
I would say that we don't retain the data that is captured at the checkpoint. It's solely for the purpose of identification at that point in time as they traverse through the checkpoint.
Thank you very much. Thank you, panel.
You expect me to believe you're going to
Gentleman yields back.
delete
I know,
that
gentleman
shit.
from New York, Mr. Golden, for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
You think I'm that
It is
fucking
good that we're
dumb?
having a full committee hearing here. I appreciate you calling this hearing. Of course, it relates to nothing that we have an urgent need to do oversight on.
Let me ask you a question. This is wonderful. They take your biometric data and they run it into a database to make sure you are who you say you are. And then they delete it. How can they say you are who you say you are by your biometric data if they don't have a database that they run your biometric data through? So you mean to tell me, you want me to believe that these motherfuckers are deleting biometric data? Like, as soon as we figure out they're who they are, we delete it. And how the fuck do you know who's on the goddamn plane? If you delete the information, how the fuck do you know? Oh, it's the biometric data we delete. You're still in the system because you bought the ticket and you're flying under this ticket. Either you don't know who's on the plane or you're keeping that data. Those are the only two outcomes with that. Either you don't know who's on the fucking plane or you are keeping that fucking data. Because if you delete that data, you don't know who the fuck's on the plane then. The only way you can track is who's on the plane is who bought what ticket. And guess what? Somebody bought 3 tickets. Are you telling me one person's sitting in 3 fucking chairs? Oh, so you don't know who's in the other 2 chairs at that point then, right? Because you've deleted the fucking data. I am not that fucking stupid.
We do not have Acting Director Lyons here when what we're seeing around the country is a mass secret
The only thing
agency
the government deletes is
dragnet
evidence of crime.
using violence against
What up,
American
Jen tells you?
citizens
How
and
you doing?
others. And it's bewildering to me because I know the chairman is a very good person. We work together on legislation. In
There
fact,
is no way you
I'm
expect
optimistic
me
we
to
will pass
believe
the
any of this
Zadroga
bullshit,
Act
right?
together to make sure that 9/11 survivors have certainty and security in their health care. But I know that you and your colleagues cannot possibly be okay watching secret masked ICE agents barging into homes without a warrant, pulling American citizens out in their underwear, stopping American citizens on the streets and demanding.
You're not okay with it? Okay, so when we go in and raid some big ass drug dealer's house or apartment, let's just say an apartment, because yeah, more than likely there are actually in apartment buildings. So when you go raid some big ass drug dealer's apartment, you don't detain anybody around that area. You don't detain American citizens who are in that apartment but don't live there. You just let people just wander about willy fucking nilly. Oh, wait, anybody in the area is detained, right? Until the situation is under control. And then after the fact, if you're actually not who they are going after and you're not involved in that in any way, they will let you go. Just say you're a passerby. What the actual fuck are you talking about here? What the actual fuck are you trying to say, Goldman? Other than the fact that you're too goddamn retarded to be called a human. You sitting there saying that these motherfuckers who are here illegally, or who are here legally and have violated their terms by being violent, by doing fucked up shit within American society, you telling me that they shouldn't be arrested and anybody around them shouldn't be detained to find out what's going on with them? But you, America, you should. Okay.
Demanding their citizenship. And that, of course, is not even to mention the violence and Renee Good's murder, as well as everything else we're seeing. There is a urgent need to conduct oversight from this committee of the Department of Homeland Security. But it is not the Science and Technology Directorate. It is not the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency. It is not the TSA, all of which are very important agencies and certainly do very important work. I am not disparaging the work you all do. But the urgency in this country right now is what's going on with ICE. Why are we having a hearing with Department of Homeland Security officials who do know nothing about ICE? We get such misinformation.
Because this isn't
from
about
this Department
ICE.
of Homeland Security. We're told, oh, it's the worst. It's the murderers. It's the rapists.
You retarded ass motherfucking... Oh my God. I hit the wrong button. You retarded ass motherfucking faggot.
Of the 20...
This hearing isn't about ICE, so why are we not talking about ICE? I don't fucking know. Maybe because it's not about ICE, you stupid fuck. Maybe it's about oversight of actual... What is it? What is the title of the hearing? Oversight of the Department of Homeland Security. The Department of Homeland Security. CISA, TSA, and SNT. Does it say ICE in this, you stupid fucking faggot? So why are you not having a hearing on ICE? Because it's not about that. You don't think you can do multiple fucking things? I know it's fucking hard for you since most of your brain power is into manual fucking breathing, Goldman. But goddamn, there are people who have a higher brain function to be able to do multiple things except screaming and yelling fucking bullshit and made up lies about ICE. Or dragging Kristi Noem in so you can yell at another fucking woman. How about that woman that you actually told who lost her child to fentanyl that she was too stupid to know what high crimes and misdemeanors were because she never went to college? And you want to drag somebody else in here, some other fucking woman, and just call her a piece of shit just because. The absolute faggotry that goes on in our goddamn government. This retarded fucking faggot right here is screaming, we can't do anything else except yell about ICE. I'm fucking done with the faggotry. I don't even know where we were
certainly
in his
it is
shit.
an urgent ship. And that, of course, is not even to mention the violence and Renee Good's murder, as well as everything else we're seeing.
Somewhere around in here.
There is a urgent need to conduct oversight from this committee of the Department of Homeland Security. But it is not the Science and Technology Directorate. It is not the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency. It is not the TSA, all of which are very important agencies and certainly do very important work. I am not disparaging the work you all do. But the urgency in this country right now is what's going on with ICE. Why are we having a hearing with Department of Homeland Security officials who know nothing about ICE? We get such misinformation from this Department of Homeland Security. We're told, oh, it's the worst, it's the murderers, it's the rapists. In our home state, Mr. Chairman, of the 3,212 people ICE arrested in New York City in 2025 up through October 15th, 70% had no pending criminal charges and no criminal convictions. 15% had pending criminal charges, which of course with due process would have to play out before they are removed. 15% were convicted criminals and 5% had serious felonies. That is not the worst of the worst. That is what we should be doing oversight of. But since we do have the TSA here, Ms. McNeil, I want to ask you about this new policy that my understanding is you have implemented, where the TSA rather, is providing information to ICE to assist them with the deportation effort. You're familiar with what I'm referring to?
I am.
And just to be clear, this was a new policy implemented under this administration, correct?
No, it is not new policy to share information between the agencies of the Department of Homeland Security. Past administrations have shared information.
No, that's not what I asked. Is it a new policy that the TSA sends identification information of all passengers to ICE so that they can check for potential deportation orders?
That is not what is occurring. We don't send the information to ICE. We help ICE check against information. And yes, absolutely, we do that. And we are supporting the mission of our colleagues at the Department of Homeland Security, and that includes enforcement of immigration laws. And
can I just because I have a little time, can I ask you? Last year, Secretary Noem said that the Biden administration allowed immigrants who are in our country illegally to jet around the country without identification. Is that true? They had no identification, but yet they were able to get on an airplane?
I can't speak to what occurred before this administration took place, but as you know.
Bitch me motherfucker, there was actually IDs that had no name on them. Yes, it is fucking true. You're too fucking pathetic to be called a human being. Goddamn, this has been going on. That was over, what? That was almost a year ago. Almost a year ago, and this motherfucker saying he still doesn't know if it's true or not. This is your taxpayer dollars at work, ladies and gentlemen. This is your fucking money at work.
We started enforcing Real ID last year, which is a law that was passed by Congress over 20 years ago. And
but just because I'm running out of time, is it your view that the Biden administration said it's okay for people to go on airplanes without identification? I've never been on an airplane without identification, but was it okay in the Biden administration?
Apparently, it was allowed.
Apparently, because Secretary Noem said it? You ought to be careful what you testify to, and I yield back.
Gentleman's time.
Apparently, because Secretary Noem said it. No, apparently because they had IDs that actually had printed on the ID. No name. No name. Some of them didn't even have a fucking picture, but yet we were allowed to fucking use them. Yes, it happened. And I will testify to that shit, faggot. What are you going to do about it? You want to sit there and smug ass? Because Christy Noem said it? No, because I saw it my goddamn self. Have some fucking balls, people. Why are you all so fucking afraid of these goddamn fucking retarded faggots? Why? Why? Explain it to me. Explain it to me why you can't look these motherfuckers straight in the goddamn eyes and say you were too fucking stupid to be called a human being. I fucking witnessed it firsthand. Yes, they had fucking IDs that had no name, literally no name printed in the name section. Some of them didn't even have pictures. Yes, it is a thing. They were allowed to move freely with fraudulent fucking IDs. It happened. You got a problem with it, faggot? Have some fucking balls, America. God damn.
Expired. I now recognize a gentleman from Pennsylvania. Ms. McKenzie for 5 minutes of questions.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you to all the testifiers for being here today. Obviously, each of you cover very important agencies, and having you here is critical to the work we do as a Homeland Security Committee. I'm going to focus my questions to Ms. McNeil. The TSA is an important agency that keeps all Americans safe. And first, I'd like to commend our local TSA agents at the ABE Lehigh Valley International Airport. They just went through the highest record and busiest year in history at the Lehigh Valley International Airport. Over 1 million passengers moved through successfully and safely, and we thank all of them for their work, especially during a Democrat-led shutdown where they were not being paid for a period of time. We thank them for their service and their work. Two things that I would like to highlight. First is ways that you were actually reforming the administration to move passengers through more quickly and improve the passenger experience. One of those is the Families on the Fly initiative. And can you speak to that and how that program works, what you're doing to help families, typically with children under the age of 12, to not only move them through more expeditiously, but also speed up lines for everybody else?
Thank you, Congressman McKenzie, for that question. Families on the Fly is an initiative that we rolled out last year in support of American families traveling through our airports. It dedicates a lane, a specific lane for families that go through the checkpoint. As many of us know, when you travel with children, there's a lot of gear and equipment that gets brought through, and so it provides a wider lane, easier access for families to go through, and extra assistance to screen all of their gear that they bring through. And it has the added benefit, actually, to driving down wait times in non-family lanes as well. And so, it's been a win-win for everyone, and we're really happy to be able to support families traveling through our airports.
Well, thank you for that. It's an important improvement to make in the agency. Obviously, a lot of people outside of AB have difficult experiences with TSA, and while it should be predominantly and primarily focused on safety and security, it is also a customer service-facing organization. We want to improve that experience. So I think there are lots of great ways that we can coordinate to make sure that passengers have the best experience possible. The second thing I would like to focus on relates to the last administration, so I understand you may not be in a position to share all the information that I'm looking for here. If you don't have the information, I would ask that you follow up with the committee with written documentation of the information that we do have. And what it relates to is during the last administration, there was something that was commonly referred to as ghost flights, where illegal immigrants in this country were being moved on planes across the country to different locations. Many times it was minors. The last administration then proceeded to lose thousands of minors that were supposed to be in their custody. And when we went to our local airports and other airports in the region and asked for documentation of who was on those flights, they could not provide any manifest or logs of those flyers on the plane. We couldn't get any information on these individuals, whether they were here legally or in some kind of protected status. We couldn't get any information on who paid for those flights. Many of those people were in the country illegally, though, we know, based on some of the information that was shared publicly.
Starting to rethink the fact that you may be actually deleting that shit now, because if you ain't got records on paper now, maybe they are deleting that biometric information. Shit, you can't even provide information of who's on the plane now, but biometric information, you're supposed to take their shit and delete it. What are we doing, America? What the fuck are we? There is no way in hell. No way in hell. No way in hell we remain a country from this shit. There's no way in hell we can remain a... You don't even know who the fuck is on your flights, let alone, oh, we got to add biometric data. But don't worry, we're going to delete it. We have no records now, but we're definitely going to delete records then. I don't even know what to fucking think about this, man. It's given me a contusion within my brain.
From the last administration, where they just said that it was
I'm going to start saying the wrong strawberry next.
Moved to a different location.
Oh, shit,
so those individuals do not have proper documentation. So the last questioner asked if people were being moved on flights without proper identification. The answer is undoubtedly yes. We know that for a fact. And so my question to you is what has this Department of DHS done under this administration to look into those transgressions that occurred in the last administration, those ghost flights? What can we now share with the public about what was going on, who was paying for them, who was on those flights? And again, if you don't have that information, I would ask that you look into it and get back to us with as much detailed information as possible, even if it has to be anonymized so that no individual information is disclosed. But that program and that activity is highly egregious and very concerning for the American people.
What I can say is that under no circumstances would that happen under this administration and the initiatives that we've rolled out at our airports, namely under the leadership of the Secretary. We've rolled out Real ID, a law that was passed 20 years ago that really does enforce identity verification standards at our checkpoints. I mentioned early on in my statement, identity verification is a cornerstone of our aviation security system. Knowing who is accessing our aircrafts is critical to our security posture. And I'm happy to get back to you
but we're going to delete the
record. The scenario that you raised earlier.
Please do look into those ghost flights.
Knowing who is on the plane is absolutely important and vital, but we're just going to delete biometric information about people getting on planes.
Would be helpful for us going forward. Thank you. Thank you, and I yield back.
Facial
Gentleman yield back. I
recognition
now
is just
recognize the
deleted.
gentleman from Virginia, Ms. Walkinshaw, for 5 minutes questions.
Thank you, Chairman Garbarino, for
I'm
convening
supposed to
today's hearing
believe
and for our
this.
witnesses for joining us. Last week, I visited Minnesota with 27 other members of the House, where we heard from
I don't even know what to
community
think
leaders
about
and
this
members about
retardation,
the
though.
brutal, masked
Apparently they
secret
can't
police
keep
that have been
records
unleashed in
now,
their
so-
streets. They've shackled peaceful protesters,
Maybe they ain't
pulled guns
keeping
on children,
facial
dragged
recognition
pregnant mothers,
shit.
and as
I
we all know,
doubt it.
shot an unarmed mother in the face. Just yesterday in Minnesota, we heard from local law enforcement leaders that their off-duty officers, United States citizens, have been targeted by ICE. Had the department honored the committee's request, and I appreciate the chairman for making the request, for acting ICE Director Lyons to testify today, I and I think others would have questioned him
CDL,
directly
Real ID.
about his role in escalating tensions by deploying thousands of masked immigration officers, I should say masked and minimally trained immigration officers in Minnesota. With that said, I want to just discuss another one of this administration's failures. Last year, President Trump's DOGE and its chainsaw wiped out 72,000 federal jobs just here in the National Capital Region, which includes the district in Virginia that I represent, including a lot of cyber professionals. These are patriotic Americans who chose a career of public service, and instead they were fired, pushed out, or moved to support this administration's mass
I almost got
deportation
struck
effort
by lightning in my
that's
game.
currently, as I noted, harassing U.S. citizens, including law enforcement officers in Minnesota. CISA, as we know, is the lead agency to defend and mitigate against threats to our cyber and physical infrastructure, lost a third of its workforce. 1 year ago at CISA, much of its career workforce was bullied into quitting. They were threatened with rifts that would not come with any severance. So-called probationary employees were fired. In the recent government shutdown, some CISA staff even received the illegal RIF notices, and court after court after court has determined that those rifts, attempted rifts, were illegal. Others were moved to ICE or to CBP or told they'd be fired if they didn't accept their transfer order. CISA has cut support to critical partners like the multi-state ISAC and the election infrastructure ISAC, while the department has dismantled key oversight and prevention efforts, including eliminating the Cyber Safety Review Board. And the leaders behind the pre-ransomware notification and secure by design initiatives have left. At a time of persistent and growing cyber threats from malign foreign actors, these choices by the president and the secretary have weakened our defenses and left our critical systems and infrastructure more exposed and the American people more vulnerable. Dr. Gatu Makala, has CISA conducted an analysis to prove that its current staffing levels enable mission delivery? Have you done that analysis?
Congressman, thank you for the question. Please allow me to clarify. I think capability, somehow I think the narrative comes across in the media as these 800 people just left overnight. That's not the case. This is a workforce transition program. People who participated in the program did so voluntarily. And
Yeah, I don't agree with that, but just answer the question, please. Have you conducted an analysis to prove that your current staffing levels today enable you to accomplish your mission? Where is that analysis?
Congressman, the work that we do is mission focused, which means capability is measured by outcomes, not headcount. And CISA remains fully operational from what we do from securing the nation from.
So you have not conducted an analysis. Is there an analysis you can provide to the committee to determine you can meet your mission with the workforce you have today?
Congressman, we support every single statutory authority given to us, and we support every single one of that for the mission.
Okay,
that
thank
has
you.
not been compromised by any
Okay,
means.
so there is no analysis. Funding for the multi-state ISAC has been
Apparently not.
eliminated. I referenced it. I'm sure you know a lot about it. The center provided no-cost services for cash-strapped state and local governments, especially small local governments in rural communities who don't have the ability to do this on their own. Has the threat landscape against state and local governments diminished or increased over the past year? Has it gone up or down?
Congressman, thank you for the question. And again, consistent with all ISACs, there is no federal funding, but we do work with all the ISACs in releasing the joint security products. We deployed automated communication for the joint cyber defense collaborative, expanding the real-time communication.
Thank you. You've managed to answer none of my questions. You haven't answered a single question, but thank you for coming.
Gentleman yields back. I now recognize the gentleman from California, Mr. Fong, for 5 minutes of questions.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you to the panelists for the work that you do. I want to start with Undersecretary Allende. The threats our nation faces require us to continue developing new technological capabilities. Specifically, my district is home to the Naval Air Weapons Station China Lake, which supports the Navy's research, development, acquisition, and testing and evaluation of advanced weapon systems. Recently, the Department of Homeland Security Science and Technology Directorate, in coordination with the U.S. Coast Guard and the Naval Air Warfare Center Weapons Division at China Lake, tested a contactless vessel stopping capability prototype that uses high-energy radio frequencies to safely stop small, non-compliant vessels,
Ask
which is an
for his
exciting new
papers.
development. How do
I gotta pee.
S&T's
Hold
partnerships with key military bases enhance
Rumble is
testing and development efforts?
unfortunately only a little less asshole than
Thank you, Congressman, for the question.
Rumble has
S&T
a
take
lot of glitches
a whole
that it
component,
needs to
whole
work
DHS approach to
through,
understanding
but it
the
is
needs
a
of
lot
environments.
less
We take a whole
asshole.
government approach to reduce duplication and create efficiencies. Often some of the systems that are developed for other departments, including the Department of War, may have a civilian application, or the core technology may be transferable. Obviously, they're very different mission sets, but the technology you're referring to is very promising. We would like to do some continued testing on it to make sure that it is suitable for deployment, but it is a concern that I heard both in my engagements with Coast Guard and from CBP and others in my trip to California this past week.
Well, you're always welcome in California. So certainly, if you're in the area, please, we'd love to roll out the red carpet for you. I wonder if you can describe how SMT is working with private sector vendors to ensure technologies being developed, procured, and deployed are up to date, incorporate the latest innovations, and avoid becoming obsolete before they are fielded. So, what does the procurement process look like? Are there changes that need to be made? Certainly, as mentioned before, we have major special events occurring in the United States with the World Cup and the Olympics and the celebration of America's 250th birthday. How can we facilitate the spread of these technologies and deploy them ahead of these events and for any threat that exists?
Sure. Thank you for the question. The private sector is able to address a number of problems that government just really could not do on its own in many aspects. And it's generally wise to look for those technologies and the applications that they might be suitable for. We do that soup to nuts at the department. We're always looking for opportunities to bring in existing technologies. I guess my answer to you is if there's something that can be applied, our preference will be to either adopt it or adapt it for our use, rather than going through a long research development timeline. Now, in fairness, there are those areas where there is no private sector market, and in those instances, it's suitable for us to take lead on that.
Can you expound on that? What type of capabilities? I mean, does a demand signal have to be provided for the private sector to address some of the department needs, or is it something that is solely focused within the department that you just prefer to have it in-house?
I'd say there's two sets of demand signals. There's something the private sector has developed with a private market in mind that may have a very good government application, and there's the alternative, which is something that is a almost uniquely government niche that ultimately has a private sector application. And in those instances, we'd be looking to do tech transfer at the earliest possible moment, and that's private sector. For the components, our operational delivery is our goal, and so by either method, we look to get out in the field.
Do you have a particular time frame you look at when you're trying to deploy with your processes in place?
ASAP is really my preference. There's some nuance to that, of course. You want to make sure that it is properly tested, evaluated, and in a position to be deployed. And we have very smart people that get after that issue.
Sure. Well, I know that when it comes to the threats that our country faces, the technology is going to be critically important for us to address that, both on the private sector side and on the research and development side. So any way we can facilitate the deployment of promising technologies, please let us know. And with that, I yield back.
Gentleman yields back. I now recognize the gentleman from Tennessee, Mr. Van Epps, for 5 minutes of questions.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you to our witnesses for sharing with us today. This department is tasked with the most sacred mission to protect the American homeland. Our witnesses today represent vital aspects of that mission, and I'm grateful for your time. I'm going to build off of my colleagues' questions, Mr. Ayande. S&T's Office of Safety Act Implementation, OSAI, plays an important role in mitigating litigation risk to incentivize the private sector to acquire and deploy anti-terrorism technologies. Building off of previous questions, what additional resources, if any, does OSAI require in order to process applications for designated and certified anti-terrorism technologies at a speed sufficiently appropriate to keep pace with emerging threats and technologies?
Thank you, Congressman, for the question. I would like to ask for an opportunity to come back and brief you on this. I can tell you we currently have a large number of applications pending. We've had a 50% increase in applications, which we attribute to FIFA, LA 2028, and America 250. And we're working very diligently to get through those. I have some time actually scheduled towards the end of this week to see how many we can get through. But certainly it is top of mind and not something that we take lightly.
Great, thank you. And to what extent does OSAI perform evaluations of technologies that have already received Safety Act certifications or other Safety Act designations to ensure that these technologies remain effective at mitigating terrorist acts? And is OSAI adequately resourced to complete necessary reevaluation processes in a timely fashion?
Thank you, Congressman. There are different sets of certifications that are offered by OSAI, and each of these is on a renewal review period. So we periodically revisit the applications. There's a whole host of requirements that are part of that, including evaluations of sites and so on. So yeah, we do try to keep with the times and the emerging threats. If I think that answers your question.
Great, thank you. Pivoting here, and this will be for Administrator McNeil. TSA announced at the end of last year that passengers who do not present a real ID or acceptable form of ID at the TSA security checkpoint would have to pay a $45 fee for a 10-day travel authorization under a new program called Confirm ID, which we've talked about some today. With the new program starting February 1st, the committee has concerns about whether TSA holds the requisite authority to levy this fee and build out a contract for an alternative travel authorization system. Can you please explain to the committee why this Confirm ID program is necessary, how this program does not go against TSA's goal to enforce real ID compliance and uphold identification security, since it would allow individuals without proper identification to still travel simply by paying the fee?
Thank you for your question, Congressman. When we rolled out enforcement of Real ID in May of 2025, we saw approximately 93% compliance rate. Today, it's around 94%. The Confirm ID is really meant to address the continuing non-compliant population, so about 6% of what we see through our airports every day.
I mean, you don't fly unless you have that gold star, right?
And for folks to show up with a non-compliant ID is a draw on our resources operationally, and that cost today is borne by the taxpayer. And so the fee is really meant to defray the cost of us processing people who don't show up with the acceptable form of ID, ensure that they do not pose a threat to our skies, and have the fee borne by the non-compliant population.
And could you just talk a little bit about how TSA determined the $45 would cover the cost of a travel authorization for a passenger without an acceptable ID? I believe the original amount considered was $18.
Absolutely. So, with any fee that we issue, there is a fee study that we conduct. There was a realization that we did not include all of the costs in the initial assessment. That's part of our fee revision process, and we will do so on a recurrent basis to ensure that the fee reflects the cost of carrying out that program.
Great, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I yield back.
Thank you very much, Gentleman yields back. I will now entertain, and I appreciate my colleagues waiting until the end. I'll entertain UC. Motions.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I ask unanimous consent to introduce into the record a staffing chart provided by CISA that shows 65 employees have been transferred out of CISA in management-directed reassignments since January 2025, January 20th, 2025, and that CISA has lost 998 employees since January 2025.
They were
Nearly
voluntary.
1/3 of its total personnel. Further, I ask
He
unanimous
fucking
consent to
already
include in the
told
record
you multiple
two articles
goddamn
describing how
times.
TSA and CISA
And
are
you're still
contributing
trying to put that
ICE's
shit in there.
deportation push on behalf of Mrs. Ramirez.
Dude, you're too fucking stupid. God
Well,
damn.
I want to thank you all, the witnesses,
God damn,
for
you
being here
all are
today.
dumb.
And one of the main things we do here is oversight, and this was the first of many hearing, and you all run very important departments under the Department of Homeland Security. And I appreciate your willingness and your time coming here today. And the members of the committee may have some additional questions. I know I do. And we would ask that all the witnesses respond to these in writing. Pursuant to Committee Rule 7E, the hearing record will be held open for 10 days. Without objection, this committee stands adjourned.
Holy fuck. I don't know what to tell y'all with this one. Seriously, I don't. This is your taxpayer dollars at work. The only thing I can say is this. I don't know if it's become painfully clear to everybody yet, but there's only one side of the political aisle who actually wants to have an investigation to let people know what's going on. They don't want to stop it. They just want to let you know this shit is happening. And then you got one side who's just like, yeah, it's fucking happening, but it needs to happen because you're a racist bigot. How do we survive as a country when this political body right here, this body politique, whatever you want to fucking call it, when they pull this shit? How do we survive as a fucking country? Because you got half the fucking body saying that everything that you fucking make, everything that you earn, everything that you do should be focused on people who don't even belong here. And most of the time, ain't even in this country. How are you going to survive to continue to pay to continue to have a job, to pay your bills and everything like that? So you give money to the federal government through your taxes when all of your fucking money is going to people who don't belong here and who aren't even in this country. It's a serious fucking question, America. How does that fucking work? We are $38 trillion in fucking debt. How do we survive like this? We're already in the Civil War, and I know there's no coming back from this shit. That exit was left a long fucking time ago, ladies and gentlemen. When they came after the kids through that transgender shit, that was the exit. We are here now. We are just now seeing that edge, and we are about to drive off. War is here, in all its horror and all its glory. Hope y'all are ready. I'll get off out of here. We got Stupid's Play coming up later tonight. I just wanted to do something while I had the chance and give y'all some extra shit while I had the chance to do so. But I got to get out of here. I got a little bit more things to do. And me and Scott, well, we'd be playing Stupid's Play, talking about some cultural, gaming, entertainment kind of news, bullshitting around, and living life on a hostile planet known as Icarus. Okay, it's not the planet called Icarus, but it's the game called Icarus. I've done a lot in there since last time. Y'all need to come check that out. We will see you again later tonight over on the Stupid's Play at 7 Central. Y'all have a good night, and we'll see you again soon.
And y'all don't know that I'm a soldier. I always felt like I'm alone when everybody thinks they know ya, and y'all don't even know I own ya. And now I'm ready taking over, 'cause every day I'm getting closer. Just look at everything I'll show ya. And now I'm ready, I'ma blow up.